To you in the chat. Did you not get it?
Let me see. I don't have the chat open. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, good. I swear I put it to you in the chat.
I haven't like the last time I used Skype was when it had a different interface.
Yeah, I don't really use Skype that much either, but it's not the worst thing in the world.
No, I don't not use it because it's not good or something. Oh, it's already live. We're already live.
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, cool.
Fuck it, we're doing it live. Fuck it. All right, but let me give you that link in there again if you didn't get it before.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I got it. I got it. That's
Okay.
how I
Never
opened
mind,
up.
Broseph. Okay, guys. This is Pat, and I'm here with Dan.
Yo.
Okay, so we've actually been talking for almost like an hour and a half before we started streaming, and some of that conversation might be uploaded in a later video. It was just talking about SJWs and Star Wars and all that stuff. But Dan has a YouTube channel. What's the name of that channel?
It's just kill underscore Dano. Actually, I don't think there's an underscore.
Do you want to kill Paul Dano? Is that the problem? You hate Paul
No, it
Dano?
used to be when I was a tiny little edgelord. I had this sort of thing I would draw in notebooks and shit that was shotgun cures cancer, and then it turned into someone kill Dano, and then I just started writing kill Dano, and then since I got on the internet when I was a little edgelord, I kept it.
So anyway, Dan and me got in touch with each other because I don't know if he found me through my alien video or whatnot. I'm not exactly sure. But we basically started talking. We basically started talking one day about Alien and Star Wars and social justice stuff. And I went and found some of his videos, and I was like, shit, this guy actually makes really good videos. Like, I actually really liked your editing and that you actually put some effort into lighting. Um, unlike a lot
Oh,
of
thank
other.
you.
There's one in his bedroom where like an angel with the flaming sword comes to him to talk to him, and the way you did those scenes with the blue like night color, those were really effective because it was almost like a
Oh,
horror
thanks.
movie. But I found out like, oh, we have a lot in common, who we like on YouTube, what we don't like. But the thing with Alien Covenant is when I made that original video, that review, when I kind of shit on it, I asked people to say why they liked the movie in the comments, and I really didn't get very many good responses. But talking to Dan, he liked the movie, so I asked him if he would come on and actually tell me, and we would talk about, not really debate. We said a friendly debate, but basically I want to hear why he thought the movie was good, so people can see that I'm not like being like echo chamber about this movie. I don't care if someone likes it. So, and then we're gonna talk a little
Echo
bit.
chamber.
Yeah, echo chamber. We're gonna talk a little about the new Star Wars films, too, and where we think the franchise is going, and a little bit about the Han Solo story because that's what everyone's talking about because it's crazy. But okay, so basically, let me know, what's your favorite Alien movie going into this? What was the one that you were like, that kicks you in the balls when you watch it?
Definitely aliens. I'd have to say.
Greed. All right, well, we
Yeah,
agree
man.
on that one. Yeah, James
Yeah,
Cameron.
I had it as my favorite movie for a while, but that's been downgraded.
No, I don't blame you. It's in my. It's gonna probably show up in the. No, it's definitely gonna show up in the top 20 list. My 20 favorite movies. I don't know when because I'm kind of freeballing it movie to movie. But I think it'll probably crack the top 10. Um,
I'm calling 9.
yeah, I think actually you're not probably far off. Okay, so I'm gonna say that you might be similar to a lot of people. You like the first two movies, and you're more mixed on Alien 3 and 4, and you don't like the AVP films, or is that wrong?
Um, I think I like Alien 3 more than you because I gave it a lot of thought, and then I watched the assembly cut, and I feel pretty good about Alien 3 now. So I feel like it's a really solid 3 movie trilogy. I'm on board with what everybody says about Alien Resurrection. It's basically a comedy. So,
Yeah.
and it also takes place 200 years after Alien 3, and it doesn't even star Ripley. She's a different character for all intents and purposes. So it's hard to even call that an Alien movie.
Okay. But you're not like a fan of AVP and Resurrection and all that, Requiem, I mean, and all that stuff.
No, I hate the AVP movies.
Okay. So how did you feel about Prometheus when it came out? You saw, what was your, because everyone's mixed on that movie. You either hate that movie or love that movie, how most people are. What was your feelings on
Yeah,
Prometheus?
yeah, I was, overall, pretty much very similar to what you hear around. Like, I thought it was a beautiful movie, but then I was confused about all those weird plot points. I was confused about the Lindelof shit. But then I saw some videos. I thought about it, and I realized, all this shit does have an explanation. You don't really need to reference a whole lot of outside information to get the answers to a lot of this. Like, most of the answers were pretty much what you thought they were. Like, we got the explanation written down, spoon-fed to you in Covenant about exactly what the black goo is. But if you saw Prometheus, you kind of should have known that they used it as a weapon and they used it to create. And okay, we saw both of those things, and that was the black goo. But everybody was confused about the black goo. What does it do?
Yeah.
And so yeah, everything pretty much had an answer. So I after learning those answers and thinking about it, I gave it 2 thumbs up. I thought it was a solid movie.
I guess I'll go because I never did the Prometheus review, and I guess it's gonna have to come out at some point because I reviewed the other films in the franchise that are the main timeline. God, I hate to go in Prometheus because anything I would say would sound like a cliche at this point because the problems I had were the problems all the other people had at the time. Like, why is she running straight while the ship's falling? And that stuff. But mainly, I remember at the time I was extremely hyped. I thought the trailer was like the greatest trailer of all time, and I would equate my experience to Dead Island when it had this really great trailer, and then I bought the game, and it was this FPS I didn't want it to be. Prometheus trailer, I thought I was going to get this like badass horror movie, and then Ridley Scott made this like 2001 sci-fi epic mystery film. And yeah, I do agree with you. There's actually an explanation for most of that stuff with the engineers and the goon stuff. I just don't like the explanations. Basically, I don't like the space jockey not being part of the. To me, there was a biomechanical element. I always thought the space jockey was actually part of the whole thing, and it was mixed. I never thought it was some dude inside of some robot shell thing.
Yeah, well, nobody did. Like that, those were creatures in the Alien Expanded Universe. That suit was a creature before
Yeah,
Ridley Scott
and
changed it up.
that's how I always kind of viewed it. So that stuff was just odd to me. It wasn't a moment in the movie where I was like, "Wow, that's really cool." I remember in the theater I was being like, "Huh?" And I was like a lot of people, though. I did like David, and I liked Michael Fassbender, and I thought he had the best scenes in the movie. And I actually, in that movie, didn't so much the scientists taking their helmets off and that one asshole guy being like, "Hey, don't be such a skeptic." Greg was in there, but but what I guess my issue with it was that there was that stuff where it was like the guy smoking pot in his helmet, and then he had the map for the map room, and then those two guys get lost, even though he was the map guy, and
Yeah, I've heard about that, and it's like he had puppies, so he threw puppies up, and the maps got sent to the ship. We never saw him with a tablet that had the map interface, so all he had was his little droids that worked on their own. Like, who's to say that he was the map guy? He was just the person who deployed the drones.
I don't know. It's just visual execution. Like I wish Ridley Scott would have set that up a little bit better. Those guys getting lost. I felt like it was just kind of like they wandered off like Scooby Doo, and then they were like, "Oh, now we're lost." And I'm like, "Well, can you guys like I don't know. Like in the first Alien, my favorite scene in that movie, and I think it's the most crucial scene in the film, is when they go to bring back John Hurt's character with the face hugger. Okay. And then Ripley doesn't want to let them on the ship. And then Ash makes her let him on the ship. And at the time, we don't know that the company wants him to do this, But she doesn't want to let him on. She's like, "I'm not letting him on. He's contaminated," right? To me, that's like such a crucial moment because that's the moment Ripley takes over the movie as the character you start, like, noticing. Because she's the one that's making the rational decision at that point. We're like, that's the right decision. And then she really has no control, and then when we get the plot twist later of what was going on with Ash and the company, it's like, okay, that makes a lot of the stuff before make even more sense. And I just felt like Prometheus, the setup with those scientists going to the planet and how they start getting killed off and stuff like that, it didn't make as much sense, like from a geography filmmaking standpoint. Like they're like pretty much outside of this giant cave thing, and they keep going in and out of it, and characters start to slowly die. And I think I would have preferred it maybe if they were trapped in the cave thing, and that was most of the movie, or most of the movie took place inside of the ship like Alien did. I'm not sure if I was a fan of, like, let's make this a bigger, epic sci-fi film, and then a smaller movie at the same time. That stuff did not work for me, and I really did not like the last shot with the xenomorph baby thing, McGigger, or whatever the hell that was. I don't know what that was. And I kind of wish they would have just not put that in there because I don't think they're ever going to go back to that thing.
Well, I think that's where David is taking the ship at the end of Covenant. I think he's taking it back to LV whatever, but the planet from Prometheus. Because there are more engineer ships there, and there's more black goo,
Yeah.
and so if he wants, like, he doesn't have any black goo. All he has is those two face huggers. Presumably, one of them is a queen, so he could make a whole alien hive. But I don't know. I feel like he wants to do more shit with the black goo.
Yeah, well, okay, so let me ask you this then. Now, do you think, when you saw Prometheus, you thought the engineers created the xenomorph, right? Because that's what.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, that's pretty much what it tells you.
So, did you think it was odd that Ridley Scott changed his mind in the interviews, that David would have more of a creation aspect to it than he did in the first movie? Because I don't think that was the plan with David in Prometheus, and I didn't really get the sense of that in the first movie. I didn't get.
I think from the get-go, this whole thing is a little bit odd, being that the ship that's on LV-426 is like fossilized, and we're sort of told that it's been there for thousands of years already. So there's no way that these movies are going to straight up explain how that got there without sort of contradicting each other a little bit.
Well, somebody told me that they said in the original Alien they got the sense that maybe this isn't true, that the space jockey, it had been crashed there for like 1,000 years before the events. I don't know if that's confirmed, or they just said that or something. But if that's true, that would be weird if Alien Awakening ends with like them crashing on LV-426.
Well, the original script for Prometheus, that ship was the engineer ship, so we already know that their intentions are to explain that, because clearly they set out to do that, but David Lindelof jumped on board and decided to make this several movies. But see, they're already willing to forget about that thousands of years thing.
Yeah, no, well, that was kind of my issue with Prometheus and Covenant, is that I don't, so far, the continuity aspect of it to the original film, I don't really feel any sense of it yet. Like, this doesn't, to me, I don't see the connection yet to, like, Alien 1.
Alien films, they're gonna make like 7 of them.
Yeah, well, like I said in my Alien Covenant review, I said 1 or 2 movies I could see, you know, where you're telling this origin story. But, like, he's saying he wants to make, like, 5. And it's like, well, how many are there going to be until we get to, like, Alien 79, you know, until we get to that point where,
Yeah. Also, how long is it going to be until one just doesn't make enough money to make any more? Like, already Covenant is probably verging on the line of not going to have a sequel.
yeah, actually, while we're on there, I'm gonna go check the box office of it right now, see where it's at.
Good idea.
Because it actually was, last time I checked, it was up higher than my last update, but it's still not that great. It's at $228 million worldwide on a $97 million budget, and some people think that means profit, but the issue is that it only has a $73 million domestic take, which is awful. That's an awful domestic take. And the studio cares more about domestic box office than they do about the foreign box office. With this franchise in particular, because Prometheus actually did pretty well domestically, it made like $130 million.
But it did cost more.
Yeah, it did. But when your movie's not breaking $100 million, I don't know if the studio will greenlight a sequel if they don't think they can make $100 million off a franchise. Like I said, I don't see them producing $100 million Alien film again.
Yeah, so maybe you will get your only 2-movie prequel.
I hope not. I hope, like, my dream would be Ridley Scott makes like a $50-60 million lower budget third film that's more like Alien 1, and he uses practical effects. And
man, they could make a new one just on the Covenant ship with that new alien colony they got set up. That would be fucking cool.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Like, kind of do Aliens again, like they're fighting off a bunch of fucking shit, a horde, like it's scary. It's like a war film. I'd watch that. And
yeah,
you can do
can
it
you
for
imagine
60
how?
mil.
Can you imagine how cool the Covenant on the end? Like they have what, like thousands of people and bays there. That's got to be. It's got to be a cool structure to have a shitload of aliens jumping out of cryo tubes and shit.
No, I agree. Well, the main thing. Okay, so the main thing for me with Prometheus, though, is that I didn't really like it. I didn't hate it. I was more mixed on it. Its cinematography's gorgeous. It's one of Ridley Scott's most emotional movies, I think. I think he's actually trying to make a film with characterization. Like, cause I think, like I said, I think he's a cold director. I think he always was. And even the way he shoots his movie with the wide framing and stuff is kind of an attached feeling sometimes with some of this. Even Blade Runner, I love Blade Runner, but sometimes it's very cold. And it's kind of the point. But Prometheus, I actually thought he really did try to do this emotional stuff with Shaw and her father. And I respected that because it seemed like a filmmaker trying to grow in his older age and be less cynical. Because I think Ridley Scott was a very cynical filmmaker throughout his career. I think there's cynicism throughout his career, a lot of his movies. You know, the corporations are evil. We basically already live in a dystopian society and we don't realize it. We're being controlled by corporation. I mean, there's a lot of themes throughout his works. He did the 1984 commercial for Apple in the 80s, the most famous commercial ever. But my thing with Prometheus is like, yeah, my thing when I saw it was this is one of those movies where I'm going to like it more or less, and I feel this way about Force Awakens, if the sequel addresses a lot of these things and expands on them. So I was sitting there, he's going to make that sequel, it was going to be called Paradise, and they were going to go to the planet of the engineers. Instead, we had to wait 5 years and we got Alien Covenant, which is we get a new crew. They go to a new planet. David's been there with Shaw. They crashed years ago. Shaw's dead. David's there. He's been fucking around, experimenting, mad scientist shit, playing with himself, playing with this black goo. And he has this bat cave. And then basically they come down there, and it's more of a, like, slasher horror film than I think a lot of people thought the sequel to Prometheus was going to be. I think a lot of people at the time thought it was going to be another big sci-fi film on the engineer's planet talking about philosophical ideas of creation and humanity, and that stuff's in Covenant. But I don't think people thought it was going to be this kind of movie where, like, there's an alien chasing people through a ship and killing them in showers and stuff.
Hey Pat,
What?
are you're aware of the timeline change that happened? So Prometheus and the next, like all the information I've seen, and I'm pretty sure Ridley Scott is that Awakening is the prequel to Covenant. You're clear with that in your you don't dispute that, do you?
I don't, but I don't know if that's what's going to happen if they do make Awakening. I think if they do make Awakening, I think that was a plan they had before Covenant made the money it makes, so I think they're going to retool whatever the next idea is for the next film. I don't think we're going to get 5 Alien prequels.
Maybe this movie Paradise Lost that you don't think you got, maybe that's going to be Awakening. Maybe they changed it up because he realized he wanted to tell this sequel movie first for some reason. I think it's kind of cool to not tell it linearly.
I agree. I think that's cool if all the movies get made and come out and there's a whole fleshed out universe. If they don't get
that's
made,
the problem.
then we have 2 movies that kind of feel detached a little bit. They're not in totally... This isn't totally a Prometheus sequel, and it isn't totally like a reboot. It's kind of got that Force Awakens thing where you could tell the studio told Ridley Scott to add some things to put in a... Like, hey, you probably need more xenomorphs. A lot more xenomorphs. And he's like, all right, fuck it, they want the xenomorph, which Ridley Scott did say. He said, fuck it, they want the xenomorph. And it's like, okay, dude, cool, put an alien in the movie. I don't know if I was a fan of him putting multiple aliens in the movie. I thought the film could have benefited from one that David had a relationship with, and you make that the character thing, and then maybe when it dies, David's, like, completely fucking pissed at the end. Instead, they play with the idea of David bonding with these, like, children, basically, but I feel like they don't spend... It's my problem with the Alien Resurrection with the mother thing. They don't spend enough time on... although this doesn't have that disgusting baby alien from Resurrection. But I like the idea of David being a mad scientist on the planet. I really do. People think I hated that idea. I didn't hate that idea. It was more execution that when they get there, they all start dying off one after another like a Friday the 13th movie. It's just like they start killing off characters really quick.
Speaking of him being like a mad scientist, I wanted to bring up this point that I noticed when I pirated the movie and I watched it a few more times. When he takes the captain, I forget his name, he takes him to his office and he starts telling him that like more detail about what's been going on. He goes into like what happened after they dropped the bombs, and he shows after we dropped it, like these creatures and they're like these mosquitoes came out of the black goo.
Yeah.
And then he explained how that, like, I feel like that is a lot of detail if they don't have this sort of mapped out, like ready for Awakening to be a prequel.
I mean, I think that's the plan. I agree with you. I think that was their plan. I'm just worried that movie's not going to get made. I agree with you that Ridley Scott made this movie with the intention of making Awakening. I just don't know if he thought out financially if that was going to happen or not. I don't know if it was a good idea to make Covenant. Because I think a lot of people were even confused by this movie. Because it's 5 years after Prometheus, and it wasn't...
It's 10.
Well, I mean, in our time, like
Oh, gotcha.
in 2017. So a lot of people who saw Prometheus, if you were waiting for a sequel, I don't think you were expecting it that long, and I don't think people were expecting it to be called Alien something. And
Yeah.
I don't think people were. I don't think the trailers did a very good job of advertising what the movie really was. I think it came off like a remake or reboot of Alien than it did a sequel to Prometheus. Like, they didn't even really make the David thing that clear in the trailer. And for me, I think a lot of people didn't even know what the hell this movie was about. Like,
Yeah, it's funny because we were talking earlier about I thought your expectations for this were you went in to see an Alien movie and you got a Prometheus sequel, but it's actually backwards. You wanted a Prometheus sequel and you think it was too much Alien, huh?
yeah, that's exactly how I felt. All my problems with the movie, my main issues, involve the aliens. All the stuff that's like sci-fi, like with Waylon Tyrell at the beginning and David and Walter, and the captain who's religious and he doesn't want to lead this ship and he's scared. I think that stuff's all really interesting. I don't.
There's not a whole lot of Alien in there though. What is it? The final act is pretty.
I think that ruins
yeah.
the whole movie though.
Wow.
Is that you have a movie that's an hour and a half of like philosophical ideas, and then basically you resort to the tropes from Alien and Aliens. I mean, it's literally the same shots from Alien. I mean, I said Scott would be accused of parody. There's points to me where it's like, okay, you have a giant CGI alien on top of this ship, 12 swing. I mean, that's just, to me, it's like, that's so stupid. I don't want to see that. That's like AVP stuff to me, like Paul W. Sands. Like, I wanted to see, like, I said to me the scariest scene of horror in the movie is when she just walks in the room on the aftermath in the shower and sees them dead, and their body parts are everywhere, and we don't actually see totally what happened, and you don't know where the xenomorph is at that point. I think that's a really effective horror scene, and I wish the movie would have had like more scenes like that, and not the chick runs in, slips on blood, shoots the gun, blows the ship up. I mean,
too many people talk shit about that, and they say, "Oh, it turned into a slapstick comedy." I want to see you fucking people run around the ship with an alien and a gun. Like, these are not soldiers. These are people who were fucking their boyfriend a few hours ago. These are couples flying a colony ship about to make their home, and now they're being murdered by horrible aliens, and you expect them to act all composed and not slip on blood and not miss and accidentally shoot the gas tank.
Well, that's why I brought up the moment earlier, because that's my point, is I brought up the Ripley moment from Alien 1 where she doesn't want to let him on the ship.
She's a soldier.
She keeps her composure, and that's why you like her as a character. And my problem with Covenant and Prometheus, for the most part, although I think Shaw does a very good job in Prometheus, I feel like a lot of the characters in Covenant have hints of... Like the captain at one point. They establish he gets clever to David being fucked up, and he puts a gun on David and tells David, show me what's going on. Then he lets David lead him into a room with the egg, looks into the egg, and gets attacked. I just don't think that's a good way to execute that captain's death. I don't mind David tricking him, but it made it like he was smarter than that, because it's pretty stupid. I don't care if you're not a soldier. If some creepy guy tells me to walk into a dark room and look in this egg thing and tells me it's okay, I'm not going to listen to this guy. I just think that was like, it was needed to happen so they could kill the captain. Instead of, they couldn't think of a clever way for David to trick this guy. It might have been a budget issue. I felt like a lot of the movie, like maybe Ridley Scott didn't have the money to film scenes he wanted to film. And I've heard there was like 30 minutes of the movie cut. And I think it shows. I think you can tell there's deleted scenes in this movie. Because there's like parts of it where I'm like, it feels like there was whole character arcs that were cut out with because we know
and put on YouTube.
Yeah, we know that they have the scene early on with James Franco that's on YouTube. And that feels like a scene that was supposed to be in the movie to me. It really does.
Yeah, who would hire James Franco to just have him burn?
And that's what I'm saying. A lot of the movie, it feels like there was supposed to be more scenes with Billy Crudup's captain character. There was supposed to be more scenes with Tennessee, I feel like, in the shit. I feel like there was more scenes that were like left on the cutting room floor to make this 2-hour film, because the studio wanted an alien film they could advertise, and Ridley Scott was trying to make this David sci-fi movie.
I don't know. I really hesitate to blame the film for these things, because Ridley Scott has had his own cuts of movies come out, and he's been like, this is the cut I wanted, and the studio, that's not what I wanted, what they put out. But with Prometheus, there is a longer cut of the version, which he says that's not my my official version is the theatrical. That's my director's cut. And I sort of like if Prometheus, a movie that is so sort of, when you get out of it, you feel like this could definitely benefit from a few more scenes that probably didn't make the cut. And for Ridley Scott to say that, no, nobody forced me to cut this out. I think the movie flows better like this, and I gotta feel like that's probably what's going on with Covenant. I don't think the studio had a whole lot to do with this.
I would agree if I don't know. I feel like sometimes something screams a producer's idea. I feel like sometimes something in a movie screams a producer's idea, and I just feel like there's moments in this movie that was something a producer had an idea, or it was something that they were like, Ridley, this might help this movie financially. Where Prometheus, it felt like he got like total carte blanche to just go shoot a $130 million movie and do whatever the hell he wanted, and I don't Covenant, even the budget being lower, is kind of a sign that the studio wasn't as confident. Because they clearly didn't think this movie was going to bring in the money that Prometheus did, because they were like, we're not going to give you $130 million again. So it's kind of weird to me, like, why there's so much CGI xenomorph in this, why it's a $97 million movie. I don't know. Like, Ridley Scott doesn't seem like the kind of guy to do mediocre CGI, because I've seen all of his movies, and they're usually technically perfect from a special effects standpoint. He doesn't usually have bad special effects in his movies, and this is one of his first movies I've seen where it has CGI and it didn't really look good. Like, even his movies, like Gladiator has a CGI, I think, like, shots in it that look fucking seamless even today, from like 2000.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things when I was watching the movie, like, as much as I really liked it, I'm like, oh, God, why does that look like a cartoon that needed to look good?
I don't get it. It's confusing to me, because, like, Ridley Scott, that's his main thing, is he's great at technical stuff. Like, I never criticize that almost ever with any of his movies. I don't like his storytelling. Like, Legend's a gorgeous movie. It's just got a terrible script. But the Tim Curry scenes in that movie are gorgeous. Like, the lighting, the makeup. Like, Ridley Scott doesn't make bad-looking movies, But this movie, it was kind of like, did he want to do practical effects? Because he did a lot in Prometheus. People don't realize how much practical effects there were in Prometheus. Like, an insane amount. Like, the engineers...
They probably don't realize because they can't tell the difference.
Yeah, and I feel like he probably wanted to do that with this movie, and the studio was like, we're not going to give you $100-something million, it's going to cost more, so just do CGI. And that's what I'm talking about. I felt like the post-production was affected by the studio. I think Ridley Scott wanted to make a more expensive movie that looked better, and I think he was held on time, and they told him, we're not, if you want to make your Alien movie with the David stuff, we're not going to give you $100-something million. We're going to give you right under that. And it happens with movies all the time, but I think it was to the detriment to this movie because it needed more money spent on special effects.
I think we both agree, though, like, had this movie been better, we wouldn't really care about the effects that much.
I do think effects are important, though, when it's the monster of the movie, because that's kind of like the make or break the illusion of it, Like Alien 1.
They should have just kept him in the shadows instead of showing... Like, if they didn't have the effects budget, then don't show the creature that much.
I agree, and I think they could have honestly gotten away with that without pissing off anyone. I think they could have went like a Stranger Things route with this, where it's kind of more low budget. You just show the creature in the background in shadow. And
out of focus.
Yeah, I think that would have been the right way to go. Don't really... Because the rest of the movie, the cinematography and all that's really good, the editing, but then the CGI aliens stand out because they don't really look like they belong in this movie, because everything else looks like a natural location. They clearly went and shot this on location. They clearly used real sets. They clearly used... And then the aliens aren't real. And it's a little jarring for me, because, I don't know, like, I felt like Prometheus, I didn't feel that once during Prometheus at all. I never felt like there was a... Like, I never saw the engineer and thought, that doesn't look real with the background. It always looked seamless. But I honestly just think Prometheus was a better shot film in general. I
also think audiences nowadays, we're sort of programmed to forgive shitty CGI. Basically every... Especially with the Marvel movies, like, everybody knows what is CGI and what isn't CGI in all these comic book movies that we've been seeing. So it's hard to really fault it that much and put too much weight on the bad effects. It's like, every movie has bad CGI, except maybe Prometheus.
Yeah, well, Okay, so you were saying here you get upset that people complain. It's because you did that video on Red Letter Media. So you don't like when people complain about you don't have a problem with taking the guy to the bay and the chick slipping on the blood and the chick blowing the ship up scene? Do you think people are nitpicking that scene, or do you not get why people have a problem with it?
Yeah, they complain that it turns into like a comedy. And I just want to say, you've never been in a situation like that. Like, try running and shooting at someone, and you might see an action movie like, he shot at him 100 times and he never hit him. Yeah, because he was panicking and freaking out. It's like, people don't really consider how you would react in a situation like that. Like panic is a serious thing, and rarely do I see it taken into account in this movie, in films. And I'm glad this movie did for a change. It's like finally, it was an important part in the story. A character died because they panicked.
I guess my issue with it, although it was kind of one of my big points in the review, and that was one a lot of people they laughed at how I phrased it. I kind of phrased it something like she slips on blood, then the other bitch comes in, she slips on blood. I guess okay. I hear what you're saying. I think that's a good way to defend that scene. The best way you can is that they were panicking. I hear what you're saying. I think though. I still think there's a way to do that a lot better than how he did it in that scene. I think you can emphasize the panic without the two of them slipping on blood within 30 seconds. I think you can choreograph that where I feel that they're panicking and screwing up, and it's not as convenient visually for the director to be like, well, if I just have a blood splat on the floor, I can have them slip on that, and then they don't really I don't really have to put too much effort into them screwing up. And it all kind of seemed a little convenient, like they're with that guy, they go back to the ship, no one else is there. I also really didn't like how quick the two people got infected as soon as they got to... I thought that was way too fast in the movie. I thought that should have happened later on in the movie. I don't mind it happening. It's just like as soon as they landed, it wasn't that long in the movie to happen. But they take the guy back, and my issue is like, she shuts the door on the chick, and when I saw that scene in the trailer, I thought that was going to be a really great scene where she locks her in there because she doesn't like her. I thought there was going to be some backstory where, like, because I knew it was about couples, so I thought, oh, this is going to be like that movie The Descent, where the one chick cheats on the woman's husband and then she leaves her to die and fucks her over. I thought, oh, you're trying to kill this chick because she slept with... So I was really excited. And then basically she just says, like, hey, I don't want to contaminate the ship, and the other girl says, rightfully, fuck you, you bitch, which is what I was thinking in the moment in the theater. And I guess I just didn't like the logic of that. And then her running to go get the gun and coming back and opening the door, and...
I don't know, man. How many friends do you have who wouldn't lock you in that room with the alien if they saw that shit about to explode out of that guy's back?
I don't know if I have a single friend who would do that to me, to be honest with you, and I don't know.
You don't think they would lock you in?
I don't think I wouldn't do that to anyone. I can tell you right now, if I saw some guy's back bursting out and I could open the door to let someone else out, I wouldn't leave them in. I don't know. It wasn't like a moral problem with me. I just wish, like, I don't even remember those two characters' names. So it bothers me. Like,
yeah, that's one of the reasons we needed that YouTube scene with James Franco.
Yeah, I don't even remember who they were who died in that scene, and it kind of like bothers me because I feel like that should have been like one of those moments where it was like, oh no. And it's not so much them slipping on the blood I found comical. I guess it was just how the alien looked and how it was bobbing around and ran over. There was something that reminded me of Spaceballs where the alien dances, and it reminded me of that very much, and the chick holding the knife up to it and swinging it around. I don't know, there was just something that was like... I get what Ridley Scott was trying to do. I just, once again, I didn't go into this movie expecting stuff like that. I did not think he was going to do like slasher sequences. I have no problem with that. I just wasn't expecting it. It kind of like it was jarring to me because the movie doesn't really feel like it's gonna have sequences like that to me. Like, I didn't feel like it was gonna go there from the stuff before where they're on the ship talking.
Hey Pat.
What?
I feel like I'm noticing a trend here. Every time something comes up in this movie that's kind of like blatantly unexpected, you throw it as a negative, but I originally took it as, holy shit, that I did not see that coming. That was cool. Yeah. Like, for instance, them slipping on blood and all the shit we've been talking about. I took it as unexpected, interesting, fresh take. I like it.
Yeah.
And you take it as you know, nobody's ever done this in an alien film before. It doesn't really make sense. It's not really a horror trope. You don't see horror movies where people do slapstick bullshit like this. And another example is the xenomorph being created by David. I took that as, holy shit, I would never in a million years would I have thought you would have done that. And here it is, something fresh and new. Who thought in an Alien prequel they could be surprising me so much? So I'm happy with a lot of these surprises, but I feel like you're not.
Yeah, well, I'd say once again, it's execution. Like, on paper, like us having this conversation, it sounds like a really interesting movie to me. But when I'm watching it, I'm bored and not enjoying it. Like, this conversation we're having is more interesting than any idea in the movie. I like what we're talking about. I'm like, man, that sounds like a really cool thing. And then when I watched it, I was like, no, I did laugh when she slipped on the blood. I laughed, you know? And I didn't mean to be, I wasn't trying to be like an edgelord it generally made me laugh. I thought it was silly, and I also laughed when, and you didn't laugh during the scene, and I can get what the scene was. I laughed when the chest burster scene happened with the emotional music and David. That scene, I was generally laughing. I hadn't laughed like that since Batman killed people with the Batmobile and Batman v Superman, which I also laughed at in the theater. It was just
I didn't laugh at that.
that was one of those moments for me where I was like, okay, Ridley Scott, I get what you're trying to do. I get the setup of the scene. David seeing this thing be born, and it's an emotional moment. It's not a horror moment. It's a horror scene, but the music and the framing is to give you the sense of what David's interpreting it. It's a recreation of our traditional feelings of a chestburster sequence. I get that. I think that's really cool. But for me, for some reason, when that thing pops out and that music comes on, and the way he looks at it, it was just goofy to me. It made me think of Spaceballs again. I don't.
Yeah.
There's something about, I want to like it. I really do. Like, and I like that piece of music a lot. I think it's a beautiful piece of music.
We were talking about how Ridley Scott it's like an 80-year-old dude, and finally he's back with passion in this. And I think a big part of his passion is he really needs to reinvent it. Like, he doesn't seem to be back to do the same shit. He doesn't want to bring the xenomorph back and try to play up the same horror tropes and make it, it's a big scary thing. Like, clearly he's seeing something in the sort of creation angle here, and in that now he doesn't see the xenomorph as a Freddy Krueger murder machine. Now he's more interested in the beauty side of it, and I'm really happy with that.
Well, I think one of my issues, and it's just an inherent problem with me, is I'm not a big fan of creation stories, and sci-fi. One of my biggest pet peeves in sci-fi, and it's a personal thing. I don't like when you start answering a lot of questions. I don't like when you start revealing the backstories and mysteries. I'm not a big fan of, like, finding out, what makes this work and why this happened. I'm more of a fan of, like, just giving it to me and letting me kind of think a little bit beyond that. It made me feel smaller to the Alien universe to know David was so involved. Like, I used to stay up late at night and think about the space jockey and Alien. I used to think about where it came from and the universe and the xenomorphs, and I used to think about that stuff, and it's not really there anymore, unless there is more to the xenomorphs than what Ridley Scott's showing us right now, and maybe they were some ancient society even before that the engineers, were influenced by or wanted to recreate. Maybe it goes way further back than we know, and Ridley Scott has an in-depth idea, but I felt like with Alien 1, when they were making that movie, they had this rape metaphor idea, and then they built everything kind of around, like, because when Ash sticks the magazine in Ripley's mouth, and then he dies and it's all white like jizz. I mean, a lot of that stuff is clearly that's done for those reasons. There's a lot of sexual imagery. In fact, originally they were gonna have Sigourney Weaver be naked in the final 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I do remember reading that somewhere.
Yeah, she was going to be naked with the alien, and that was the whole thing. And I felt like it was a simple thematic idea, and the whole movie was built around the theme. I feel like, and then I felt the same way with Motherhood, with Aliens. And I get that this one's theme was creation, I think, was what Ridley Scott was going for. But I don't think the theme was as tight in that same way Alien was they're on the ship, and you could end with Ripley being naked. I don't really like David taking over Walter at the end and having this just cliche plot twist, I'm the bad guy, instead of... At that point, the creation story's not really there anymore in the third act. It's them finding an alien, David helping them, and then that's the end. I would have been much more interested if we would have saw more of David's weird experiments in the third act. Like, really go into the weird stuff, like body horror, more Giger, more Clive Barker, if you will.
Yeah, especially when like, if you're going to show us Shaw like that, I feel like you can't just show me that little bit, you son of a bitch. They needed to either show us nothing of Shaw or give us more than what we got. Like,
I agree.
Yeah.
The Shaw stuff really got to me. That really just was like, come on. Like, I don't mind you killing her, but really, like, we get like that. That's it as one image. It's like, it's such a fuck you, and it's, and I gotta say, yeah, I wasn't a fan of the of Catherine Watterson in the movie that much as the new chick, the new Ripley.
Daniels.
Every movie has to have a Ripley.
She had about 10 minutes of screen time, I thought.
Yeah, she felt very underdeveloped for being, like, so advertised in the movie and so, like, present in the whole film. It was kind of like, well, It's. I mean,
Well, we need this character in there.
she has the one scene I agree with her where she says to Billy Crudup, she's like, "We don't know what the fuck's down there," and I'm like, finally, someone's saying what I would say. Um, but I don't know. I just feel like the dynamic between her and the captain guy should have been the focus. I feel like this movie would have benefited from less characters. The planet dynamics being this captain and her don't really know, and a few other characters maybe don't know how to deal with David, and they don't know if he's good or bad. And you don't really know as an audience member. I wish they didn't make it so obvious from the beginning scene that he killed. Because I mean, like, well, not the beginning, but it's just we know Dave. It feels ominous when they get there and David shows up. He just feels. I wish they would have played it up more like David's not evil, and then really threw us a curveball in like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, except we already pretty got like leaving the last movie. We knew David was evil.
Well, I was hoping he had character development because that when I was watching that stuff before, I didn't know he was going to kill Shaw. When I was watching that YouTube stuff, it looked like him and Shaw had made this relationship, and I thought, oh, David's changing. And then when I went to go see the movie, he just killed Shaw, and I was like, oh. And I was thinking they were going to go that direction, where like maybe him and I was wondering if they were hinting that maybe even him and her had sex or something. Like I was liking those.
I've been thinking about that a lot lately.
I think that's interesting. I wanted to explore that. Like
I think they did have sex.
I do too, and I think that's the stuff the movie should go into, like Walter and David talking about having sex with a human, and Walter asking David about what sex is like a child. I think that would have been a brilliant scene. Like that's the stuff that I think was cool about this movie that wasn't the movie. Like the other shit I don't care about. Like I don't care about Tennessee spinning the ship around in a circle and an alien getting caught in a claw and her shooting at it like a first person shooter. Like, I want David to talk about creating things and talking to Walt, and maybe they talk about if you have sex with a woman, I can't create a baby. I don't have sperm like that. And he could explain to him that's why I want to create these things because I can't be a father. I think those should have been ideas the movie should have explored a little bit, and that they hint at it. They hint at it, but I think, like I said, there seems like they cut out whole bits of this movie where they talk about
we need to go after all these people that criticized Prometheus then, because this is clearly a very reactionary movie. All these things you didn't like Alien being in the title, the xenomorph being so sort of in there but doesn't really need to be in there. Like all these things came from people not really liking Prometheus so much.
I agree, and I'd say I probably contributed to that at the time because I said a lot of bad stuff about Prometheus. But at the time, I still thought, well, because at the time it seemed like a lot of people still liked Prometheus, and that it was really popular, so I thought, okay, but as the years have gone on, you find out there's a lot of haters for that movie, and it's really, really, like, some people think Ridley Scott's just killed the whole franchise, even though the franchise already died before that. It's not like the franchise was thriving off the Alien vs. Predator series. I guess if for an Alien prequel film, I agree with you. It was a reaction, and I don't like reactionary filmmaking. I don't like the Man of Steel to Batman v Superman. Like, oh, people don't like that our Superman killed too many people, so we have to put an opening scene in to address that we didn't originally plan to put in this. And then we have to put Batman in the sequel because people didn't like our Superman movie. And then we don't get a Man of Steel sequel, we get a Batman movie that Superman barely has any dialogue in, and that's a reaction. And I think if Ridley Scott could have just made the sequel to Prometheus, I probably would have liked this movie a lot more. Entirely, I think I would have liked this movie a lot more.
I don't know. I feel like being like I went in expecting to see a forced alien movie where they're just going to sort of toss aside these characters from Prometheus, because we saw it was called Covenant. It was about a new ship. It was about a new crew. And we never saw Shaw in the trailer, really. And then I learned she's maybe going to be in the movie for 10 minutes because she had like a week of shooting. Yeah. And so I just thought that they're trying to get rid of all these ideas from Prometheus to just sort of tell an original Alien story based on horror, based on what the original Prometheus script was more like. And I was like, no, I really wanted to see another Prometheus movie. I wanted to see a sequel to that. And I feel like I got that with that, but it was sort of hidden under like they were pretending like they're really another Alien movie, but I feel like I got a lot of Prometheus sequel, which is pretty much what I see the criticisms to be. People are like, we wanted more horror, we wanted it to just be in a ship, we wanted another Alien movie, but we got all this robot shit, we got all this Blade Runner Part 2 shit that I don't want.
See,
that's why I'm surprised to hear you say that.
I don't want that stuff. I don't want the alien stuff. I don't want more horror. I don't want more corridors. I wanted more. Yeah, I'm the opposite, where I said, like, make your David sci-fi movie where he's inventing stuff. I can get into that movie. That's kind of a cool idea for a sequel to Prometheus, that David goes up and does these experiments like Frankenstein, and you can
Yeah.
actually tell a Frankenstein story. What I don't like is, like, yeah, it did feel like they sold it, and even with the title, they were trying to kind of, they thought maybe they could get goodwill back from Alien fans. They thought they pissed off with Prometheus. And I think it would have been a lot more. I think people would have honestly. It felt disingenuous, and I think people would have went to this movie a lot better and reacted to it better had they not thrown like Alien Covenant. Like, it has that cliche. Like, maybe if they just called this film Covenant and released it like that, I think it would have honestly got. I think that would have cored a lot of people. I think it was a lot of little things like that that affected this movie for people.
And the poster just covered in sort of horror tropes and the alien head, and it just says run, and it's like, shit, this is straight up fuck Prometheus. This is an alien movie.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that was all to the movie's detriment from a box office. I think that's actually a big reason it's not doing that well, is because...
But I definitely agree. But then why did you go into it not expecting an alien movie? Because I went into expecting an alien movie, and I was pleasantly surprised that I got a heavy Prometheus sequel with some alien on the side, but it wasn't really the main point of the movie. Sure, the end of it sort of turned into horror, and I thought it was fine. It wasn't a large part of the movie, but why are you disappointed then, being sort of your expectations should have been the whole thing's going to be an alien movie?
Well, it was because the stuff I was hearing, and it's probably just, it's what you're exposed to, the reviews that I was reading, and the stuff that I was looking at was telling me something else than what the movie actually was. A lot of the stuff, because I was avoiding reviews, and I was trying to avoid spoilers for this movie. So I kind of, and unfortunately in today's world, some reviewers don't know how to write a review without spoiling the whole movie.
Yeah.
They'll write a whole plot synopsis of the film before they actually tell you what the movie is. So I went in really, because what I was hearing, people were telling me, like, no, this isn't this Alien movie you keep hearing about. This is actually more of a Prometheus sequel than people realize. And people kept telling me that. They kept saying, no, this has way more David Prometheus stuff than what they said. And I go, oh, cool. All right, I want to see that. And people who were liking the movie were telling me that shit was awesome. And people don't notice, the reviews on this movie steadily went down. The first week on Rotten Tomatoes, top critics, it was like 91% and had like 80% with normal critics. Then by the time it's been out now, it's got like a 71% and like a 6.4 average. So like the first week this movie's reviews were out were pretty positive. Like, people were saying it was a return to form. Like, if you go read the first reviews, like A.O. Scott and New York Times, people were praising this movie. Like, early on, the first early reviews were saying, like, this is a really, really, really good return to form. This is better than Prometheus. And then I didn't think it was better than Prometheus. I thought this was a weaker film to Prometheus. And
I agree. I think Prometheus was probably better.
And I went in hearing that it was so much better than Prometheus. It didn't have a lot of those issues. And I thought, no, it does still have a lot of those issues I had with Prometheus. And it has things that I especially did not want. I really hadn't. I mean, just for me, I had no interest in seeing a new crew go to a planet and get... I just had no interest in meeting a new crew of people. I didn't. I didn't care about... Tennessee's probably the only one I kind of liked, Danny McBride. But the other people, they all just died. And I just kind of don't get why they're even there. I think you could have been better off to have a smaller movie with like 5-6 cast members instead of like... Because then you could tell they have to start killing people off.
Well, they're important because they set up the next movie. I mean,
if it gets made
just
again, that's my...
Yeah.
If it gets made again, yeah, but that's...
Well, he has to go into this expecting it will.
I know, but that's kind of my... It feels like Ridley Scott, that's what I talk about my problems with him. He's an indecisive filmmaker his whole career. He's always had that. He was indecisive all throughout the production. He argued with Harrison Ford and the screenwriter about Deckard being a replicant. I'm kind of pissed that he thinks... I think he kind of forced the Deckard replicant thing in more than the other people did, and I think especially if Deckard's not a replicant in the new movie, the sequel, it's really not going to make a lot of sense. Some of the stuff in the director's cut of Blade Runner, like the Unicorn Dream and all that, stuff's going to be really confusing now if Deckard's not some older replicant. I don't even know if we needed a sequel. Like, the Blade Runner sequel, not going to tangent, I would prefer that sequel if Deckard wasn't in it. I'll say right now, everything that I see about that movie, if Rick Deckard old wasn't in that, because I'd rather just have the ending of Blade Runner and not know what happened to Rick Deckard. I like not knowing. I don't mind you going back to the universe with Ryan Gosling as a new Blade Runner, like the video game did, Blade Runner. But
yeah,
you're making a sequel to a film that had an ambiguous ending, and you're going to answer the question. And
Well, yeah, I mean that character also had nowhere like unless they're gonna hook in, they're gonna finally explain the replicant connection. That character really served its purpose. There's nothing else to do with him,
I
and being
agree.
that he's old and he doesn't work in there anymore, like what the fuck is he doing in this story?
I
The
don't.
story has nothing to do with him
I don't
anymore.
like seeing old Harrison Ford run. I don't. No, I love the idea of a Blade Runner sequel, like with Ryan Gosling and it being in the same universe and being the same kind of story. I think you could tell a dozen stories in the Blade Runner universe. I just don't think you need Rick Deckard. You
You know?
don't need Deckard, and that part scares me. That and that.
Hey,
Sorry, what?
I'm sorry. Being that we're on the topic of Blade Runner, how about if they finally connect in film the two universes? You've heard about how Wayland exists in the Blade Runner universe and the company that makes
I'm up for that. I
the
think that's cool. Like if Blade Runner
replicants.
2049 establishes that Weyland Yutani is like part of the whole universe, and they make it a thing, like a Dark Tower or MCU thing.
Yeah.
I don't really have an issue with it because it wouldn't betray either film to have them take place in
Mhm.
the same universe. It wouldn't affect Blade Runner because honestly, both universes seem like people live in this shithole esque
Yeah.
it's kind of what I always liked about the Alien franchise. It was like the dirty version of Star Wars. Although Star Wars was dirty, but it was even dirtier. Like it felt really lived in. Like these people like this technology's existed for a long time, so it's kind of dirty now, like old cars, and like the ships they're in have been around a long time. It never felt like the tech was state of the art in the Alien films, and I always liked that about all of them. It always felt like it was something they've had a long time and they took for granted. Um, but I
Have you read about this?
what about them connecting? I've heard that for a long time. I've heard that for
But
years,
they're
actually.
already they're already connected. It's just not in the movies.
Yeah.
For instance, there's like a website for Prometheus, maybe it was, or maybe it was Covenant. But anyway, it mentions the what is the company from Blade Runner?
Tyrell.
Yeah, it mentions Tyrell in the TED Talk that Wayland does in the Prometheus promos. He doesn't mention Tyrell by name, but he talks about like an old man in a tower or something, and he says that was his mentor, and it's clearly a reference to Tyrell. So they like clearly they want to connect it, but I want them to actually make it happen, like in a tangible way, to where I don't feel like I'm a geek if I start talking about them like they're a shared universe.
I just want to do a shout out to Fraser Danger, $5 in super chat. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying the conversation. I'm gonna have to
You need
mail.
a little sound effect.
I'm gonna have to mail Dan his 250, and unfortunately, it's gonna cost me more money to mail that to him, so I'll have a negative cost by the time he gets his $2.50. I'll have more money in it.
Why don't you just send me a selfie when you have a beer with it?
Yeah, um, but I do like hearing at least someone explaining, because the problem was when I made that Covenant vid, and maybe it was made too antagonistically. Maybe the tone was a little. I thought that would be funny, and a lot of people I guess people didn't get like the whole tone of their review is supposed to be kind of a Plinkett-esque thing where I'm just being a total asshole shitting on this movie, and making fun of every Michael transgender, Michael bartender. That was very Plinkett to me. I was going back to his old childish start, but I guess a lot of people took it as that I was just fucking pissed off at this movie and I wanted to choke it to death. And that
Well,
just
the title was "I'm done with the
yeah,
Alien"
yeah.
series. So.
Well, even that was supposed to be kind of like a joke, but I realize on YouTube people take things literal very much.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea was like, it was supposed to be hyperbole. I'm done with the Alien franchise, like it
Well,
was.
some people call that clickbait.
Yeah, what I always say to people when they bring up clickbait is I said, good luck, you just discovered how YouTube works. And you mean
True
someone made
that.
a video to get a click? I love the clickbait's something, a criticism some people use. It seems that they don't get the hits. Like I have 100,000 videos. People are like, this is just a clickbait video. I'm like, well then, dude, go make your 100,000 clickbait video. If I wanted to do real clickbait, I'd have my girlfriend in a bikini in the thumbnail in every video, and we would just do 8-minute reaction videos where we don't say anything, and I'd have 100,000 subscribers in 6 months. And I agree. Like, I'm done with the Alien franchise is clickbaity, but I guess it was just my fault that the joke didn't come. Some people got the joke, the people who liked the video, but other people took it as I was literally saying is like, because the franchise already had died a few times. That's what I laugh. People even took that. It's like, guys, Alien 3, a lot of people thought the franchise was dead then. Alien Resurrection, people thought the franchise was dead. AVP, people thought the franchise was dead. I mean, I've went through this before. I remember Prometheus, everyone said Alien was dead then too, a lot of people. So it's like, we've gone through this cycle before. So I was kind of making fun of those people that are so reactionary. They're like, I mean, I even had Alien Covenant sucks in the title, like in the front. I mean, I wanted it to be ridiculous, completely over the top. And then my idea was to make a positive review of the movie, and that one just didn't get as many hits as the negative one where you put I'm done with the Alien. Putting a video, things I like about this movie, doesn't get as many clicks as I'm done with the Alien franchise.
True that.
People want they want the confirmation bias on a movie they don't like, probably, a lot of people. Or they want to just hate somebody that doesn't agree with them. And,
You know the AVP movies. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to finish?
No, you're fine. Keep going.
I was just saying that the AVP movies, you know, I hate them just because they're bad movies, but I hate them the most because James Cameron was working with Ridley Scott to make an Alien sequel, and they just quit because the AVP movies became a thing.
Yeah, I know. I remember at the time. Well, and also just Paul W.S. Anderson's like the worst director in the world. I don't know how the fuck he got on that franchise or even get near it. Like, I don't know whose dick he sucked. I don't know if he let somebody have sex with his wife or something. I assuming that's how all the Resident Evil movies get made and all that. But that guy has no place touching any franchise. I mean, that movie, it has a scene where they're running down the hallway and it looks like Schumacher's Batman films where they run down the fan hallway at the end with Batman and Robin. She's running down the hallway with the Predator, and it's like the same shot Joel Schumacher does in the Batman. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
I can't believe you're talking about these movies like you remember them.
He's ripping off Joel Schumacher's Batman movies. Who does that? That's not who... Oh, I'm making an Alien Predator film. What should be my influence? Batman Forever. Good one. But so... Okay.
And then they found even better directors, and by better I mean worse, when they made the Requiem.
Requiem's fucking darkest movie I've ever seen. Just completely black. They shot that movie just in complete pitch black. Pitch Black shouldn't get that title anymore. It should be Alien Requiem's title because the movie's so dark. You can't see anything. It's like it's like the dark. I'm not even kidding. If someone hasn't seen this movie and they don't know about like lighting and cinematography, this is a movie you could tell the guys making it weren't very competent when it came to lighting, and they didn't know how to light scenes. So they thought if we make it dark, we can hide the alien in the shadow like Ridley Scott did, and they don't know what made that stuff work so well. And the whole movie's that way. It's like watching two amateur guys try to make like we're gonna do Alien and Predator our way, and it's bad. It's the worst kind of fanboys making a movie film out there.
It's true. You know, I met them, the Strauss brothers. I used to work for their company. I was the front desk guy for like a few months.
I've heard they're nice. I've read stuff about them being really cool guys. So I don't know.
You heard wrong.
Well, that's press releases, you know. So that's different. There's contracts involved with that stuff and money. No, yeah, if you're telling me, I'll take your word for it a lot more. It's like the people who serve you and how you treat them.
Man, they have this really impressive alien sculpture in their building. It's like made out of steampunk parts. It's so fucking badass. I think there's if you go back a few years on my Instagram, you can see it. But it's really awesome.
So let me so Covenant. Do you think? Where would you rank it in the franchise, like in the Alien films? Where is it ranked for you? Is it would it be the first three, Prometheus and then it? Like 5? Or...
No, I think it's better than Alien 3.
Okay, I was just... so you say it's
I'll go with Aliens, Prometheus, and I think they're very close to it. I don't think it's much better than... I think Prometheus is just maybe 1/10 of a point better than Covenant. I think they're very similar in quality, or at least I appreciate them.
I agree they're close in quality. I agree. I only like Prometheus slightly more, but yeah, they're very similar. But okay, so yeah, for me it would be Alien, and then Alien 3, and then I would start with I guess Prometheus would be the next one. And then I would maybe put Resurrection ahead of this. I'm not sure. They're pretty much tied. I'll give this one the edge because the acting's better because Winona Ryder's awful. But that's what this movie reminded me of. It gave me the same feeling I had. Now, not in the same way where it's goofy and over the top, but when Jean-Pierre Jeunet made that film, and he was this visionary director, and the way that he shot it and the tone he was going for with Whedon's script, it just had a certain reaction to me that just didn't jive, and that's how it was for me on this movie with Ridley Scott. What he wanted to do with it, the kind of movie it was, just something about it did not click with my things. Just the things didn't, those scenes that click for some people, the literary references and stuff like that with David and the Paradise Lost and stuff. See, for me, that stuff, bombed bad.
Yeah, because you're familiar with that material,
Yeah,
unlike me.
maybe that was my issue. Well, I said he's the asshole guy in Good Will Hunting in the
Yeah.
bar that Will has to show up, and I did actually think that's one of the most clever scenes in the movie is when actually Walter corrects him and says if one part of the symphony's wrong, the whole thing falls. That's actually a really great line, and I think that I wish there had been more moments because it was a really clever scene because it's so realistic to life that there's these people that they just parrot other people and they don't actually have their own ideas all the time, and David's so that kind of guy in a lot of ways. He's such a wannabe creator, and like he's a hipster, and it's so funny. And the way that Walter just shuts him down, I thought, damn, that's a good, like, whoever wrote, I think that was stuff like John Logan maybe wrote, who came in and worked on this because he wrote Rango and worked on the Pirates films and stuff. I think he wrote some of those really good scenes because there's moments where it's like, man, that's a clever line of dialogue. I could see that.
Speaking of moments you didn't get between them, what about the fingering line? Did you crack up during that, or
big
did
time.
you like it?
No, people quote that line all the time. I will say I like the line, and I think it's supposed to be funny. I think
it's supposed to be definitely sexual. I don't think you're supposed to smile or laugh at it. I think it's supposed to be sexual in a way that the face hugger is sexual.
I think the wording was the issue. You know, I think I don't know how else you word it, but yeah, I'll do the fingering. No, I was ready for
I mean, he kisses him later, so there's definitely some sexual
shove
tension.
Shove the thing in his mouth and start putting it in. This is how you play it, Walter.
And it's a fucking flute that's already phallic, and I didn't even think of that.
No, that's my that stuff's so on the nose. Yeah, like when I was saying, I was like, Jesus Christ, Ridley Scott, like fuck subtlety. Just throws out the way, like no, and no, like him quoting Paradise Lost, like. I don't have it because they were going to call the film Paradise Lost at one point. That was going to be the title.
Yeah.
It was going to be called. In fact, there was one point it was going to be called Alien Paradise Lost. And he says that, you know, better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven. And Paradise Lost, if people don't know, which it's this epic poem, the whole idea is it's from Satan's point of view, and God's kind of this authoritarian figure, and you kind of get it from Satan's point of view, trying to rise up in hell with fallen angels and take down God. And it humanizes the devil in a lot of ways. And that was a lot of themes of this movie. The devil tries to become his own creator because he doesn't like the way that God... He thinks he's better than God in the same way David thinks he's better than Waylon now. In the opening scene where he says, well, I'm superior to you and you created me. And that's kind of the theme of Paradise Lost. And then finding out he isn't superior to Waylon, he's just as flawed. Walter informs him of that. That's good thematic filmmaking structure. I do like that stuff. I think that stuff all really works in Covenant, and I didn't put that across in the original review. I do like that stuff. It's just, as a movie, movies have editing and camera work and tone and pacing, and how that affects you is different for everyone. I know some people that think Alien 1's boring as shit. They can't sit through it. They can't finish the movie. They've never been able to sit through the whole thing. And I get it. It's a slow movie. It's not for everyone. Some people I know can't finish Blade Runner because they think it's too slow, and it is a slow movie. There's a scene where Deckard looks at a picture for like 5 minutes. And
he rapes a replicant.
Yeah, and I get it. It's different. So for me, I think this movie was actually pretty well paced. I think the editing was actually surprisingly good for a film that had a kind of a messy script, in my opinion. I think the editing kept it rather coherent, but it just felt like Ridley Scott and Michael Fassbender to me were like having a whack-off session with a bunch of stuff they want. Like they were making their own little art film in the middle of this Alien movie.
Man, can you imagine if Lindelof had still been a part of this?
Yeah, I couldn't. I don't even want to think about that, honestly, to be honest. But I am upset. I don't know. I just feel like there could have been more scenes, like the scene where the captain has the gun on the protomorph or whatever, and David's talking to it, and he says it's like a horse. That was my favorite scene of the movie. I love that scene.
Mm.
And I think
then he blew him.
See, yeah, I think that scene could have played out even longer. I think he had. I think that was a perfect setup Ridley Scott had there. It was like, holy crap, you can take this scene anywhere. And I think that would have been a much more effective way, probably for the like. Here's how I would play out the emotional music captain scene. And I'm not Ridley Scott, so this is pseudo asshole shit talk, but it's for fun. Here's how I would do that scene if I was making the movie and I was turned across. I wouldn't have it where the chestburster scene happens the way it did. I would do the same scene with the horse and all that, and the captain's pointing the gun at him and all that. And then kind of do one of those Steven Spielberg Jurassic Park blocking things where maybe something else sneaks up on Billy Crudup's character. And then attacks him, clever girl. And then David watches over. Then I would kick in the emotional music, show this guy getting, like, torn apart, and David's watching this thing eat him and be happy. Instead of trying to separate it as two separate scenes, I would have connected the scene as one. And then David could have had these like two. He would have still had his one. See, that's my main issue. I think there should have been one alien throughout this that David had like a bond with instead of him having it with all of them. I like the idea, but I think they should have had it where one dies near the end and it really affects David. But there's really only that one scene where he's like, no, and I love that scene. I wanted more of that. I wanted David to be like, don't kill my aliens, don't touch my babies. You know that like get away from her, you bitch. I think that was
Yeah, I feel like they're not trying to like they're trying to be minimalistic with this shit. Like I feel like the movie does benefit from giving you so little of like had they could have gone into this big thing about David controlling the aliens with blowing them on the nose and really building that up and explaining the details of why he knows he can do that and how the effects work. And it's like I'd rather sort of want more than to feel like I've gotten too much. And I think they sort of rid that line to where I still want more, but had they given me more, it might have been too much. Don't you think?
I don't know, because my issue is I'd agree with you if the third act, David didn't seem almost completely emotional. Like, I think the way they should have played the third act was have him be a little bit more affected that they're trying to kill the alien on the ship. It's like, I know he's not totally helping them, but the whole point of the third act is to be a mystery, like, hey, they don't know David's Walter. I mean, they don't know Walter's David, but you do. And you're waiting. It's like a clicking, it's a bomb going, and you're waiting for the bomb to go off. It's built. The suspense is more waiting for them to find out, because you already know. And I don't know. I think I would have preferred that if David was, like, trying to fuck them over more in the third act so they couldn't kill the alien. I think that could have been a really fun third act instead of, like, basically you get a final action scene, they kill the thing, they shoot it out, and then the last couple minutes is awesome. Like the actual ending. But I think he could have done the whole third act like that last bit, where like David's like in control of the ship, he's fucking with it, because like once he gets on the ship, then I think he could have done it where like, yeah, and like maybe he even kills Tennessee's character and then he freezes her. I would have liked at that point, if you're gonna do that and show him be protective of these things. I agree they were trying to be subtle with it, but I don't know how subtle it is when he's like touching it and talking to a horse, and then there's a sequence where one bursts out of its chest and like emotional music plays and David's like crying, and it's like, Daddy, give me a hug, Daddy.
I want to talk about that scene we were just talking about at the end where David is protecting the crew when you pretty much know that it's not Walter, it's David.
Yeah, it's obvious. It's just painfully obvious. He even shows the hood fly up over his head to make it very clear to you that it's David. There's a shot.
What? The hood?
Yeah.
Tell me about what are you talking about?
David, when he shows up in the movie, he's wearing that cape with the hood thing when he shoots the gun up in the air. Ridley Scott does this at the end when Walter's outside with the wind. He's standing there by Daniels. His thing pops up his hoodie over his head like David earlier in the movie. It's a visual clue. That
was more him trying to hint that it was David?
Yeah, that was a couple seconds in the movie. No, it was very clear.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, it's definitely, that's what the shot's referencing. He's trying to be like, see, it is David, and she does. It's because it is scary somewhat, because you don't know what David's going to do, if he's going to screw them over or not. And I wish he would have played with that more in the third act. Like, shit, is David going to screw them over and trap them in a room with the alien to kill them? And it doesn't really do that too much. They kind of just play the sequence out like Alien and Aliens. Let's kill this thing and shoot it out and do it. And I think he could have reinvented what we think with the third act. Like, don't do the airlock. Like, now the ship's trying to kill you. You know, the guy controlling the ship's the bad guy, not just the alien. You have no help on the ship. It's like if, you know, like Dallas when he's going through the things, if the people helping him were trying to fuck him at the same time, it'd be pretty bad. And I thought that's where it was going. I thought it was going to be David who was going to come on and try to kill them, but it seems like he just kind of went along with them, and then he froze them, which, I don't know. I do like the ending, though. I think the ending's badass. I really do like the last, 3 minutes. I think it's awesome, David freezing her, the look on his face, I think it's the best moment of acting from that actress is that moment, the final scene, where she's like, oh, shit.
I thought that was very good, too.
I thought it was effective. It was an effective scene of horror, because there's implication of what's going to happen. Yeah. And that is
definitely a they didn't have to show you anything for you to see the horror that, like, he could do anything. Like, you just set him loose in a buffet.
No, it's horrifying. No, I think the ending setup's awesome. And I honestly, there was one thing I even said that, like, I might have even liked if they'd have done that earlier, because really it's such a cool idea. I want to see that movie, and that movie may never get made. I want to see this David on a ship doing experiments movie. Like,
You know, it
'cause
might be better a video game on that.
oh, that would be awesome. And like sometimes it gets loose, and you have to go control your
Yeah, fucking an Alien Isolation sequel, but if the movie never gets made,
and
make
you're an
it for
android, and you can
the
actually like
Covenant.
fist fight the
Yeah,
xenomorph in
man.
sequences. No, I also did like the scene where Walter fights the alien and gets his. I thought that was cool because we've never actually seen an android except for Bishop get ripped. It's cool to actually see them fight as an alien for once. And I did like Walter and David fighting, even though it was just kind of like this weird like.
You're talking about that scene at the big at sort of the beginning when Walter gets his hand bit off?
Yeah, I'm talking about that scene and the scene later where Walter and
Okay.
David have their like martial arts battle.
Right. Okay.
I like those two scenes. I wish there'd been more of that. I like when he shows what the androids can do. And that was
Yeah, we weren't very clear on that. Like, he never really does anything superhuman in Prometheus. So when he started pushing people around like that, I was like, "Holy shit!"
no. I thought
New
that
information.
I thought that was cool
Yeah.
too. I really did, and it kind of was cool that they discontinued the David model because it creeped people out. I thought that was cool. Yeah, basically all that stuff. Then that's what I was hearing was the Walter and David stuff was good, and I thought, okay, I just didn't like the other stuff in the movie. I didn't like Daniels. I didn't like the. I don't remember the other crew's name, to be honest. I can't remember. I remember Tennessee and her. I can't remember everyone. I don't remember the shower couple who were having the shower. And
Yeah,
the
I mean,
music's
they're all
too loud.
meat.
Yeah. I knew some of the actors in the movie. I just didn't know their names. I don't know, and it was so similar to me. It was kind of weird. It had the like, there's a storm and they can't leave. I thought that was like, that's odd. That's kind of the same thing that happened in Prometheus.
Well, it's not that they couldn't leave; they couldn't communicate
Yeah, I don't know. It was a little.
because their ship blew up.
Yeah. Yeah, because
So that's why they couldn't
she
leave.
shot it and blew up the ship. Yeah, I wish that stuff had been a little bit more smart to me, that the events of that, them being stranded there. I probably could have went with the rest of the movie, but it lost me at the point that ship blew up. Like, that was pretty much the moment I was out of the movie. And then I was struggling to get back into it, and I would like scenes and not. And then the ending, I knew I was. And then I liked the very end of the movie, but yeah, I pretty much was out of the film the moment that they're walking home and the ship blows up, and I was like, okay, this isn't working for me, and I tried, I really did.
Dad, I want to ask you something else about the scene when we think when at the end when we're not sure if it's Walter or David. Do you think Ridley Scott meant for you to not know until the reveal?
I'm scared because I don't know. I hope he did, and if he didn't, he failed miserably. If he meant for you to know, it's okay. If he didn't mean for you to know till the reveal, that was a really, really bad job of doing that, because it was. I haven't met one person that didn't know that was the case when you watch the movie, because it's almost abundantly clear it's David.
Because I think if one thing he's trying to trick you with, it's when he gets Walter to. I mean, he gets David to work with them, like you were saying, and close the doors behind the xenomorph, and then vent the space, and then they were able to kill the xenomorph with David's help, and then you see him sigh of relief, or at least that's what it sort of looks at.
No, you're right. That's what he's doing.
It feels like he's trying to tell you that it's David, and then trying to trick you back to, hey, maybe it's Walter, because there is this very noticeable scene when he's with Daniels, and they're talking, and I feel like we are supposed to pretty much know that's David because it just pans down at his melted off hand. And that was just kind of like see, David must have melted his hand off, because that's the only reason why they would show you his melted hand, to sort of try to reassure you, no, it's not David. I know you think it's David.
Yeah.
His hand's melted off. And
Yeah,
and then at the end when he helps him with that shit, so kind of the reveal at the end was supposed to confirm what you thought earlier, but he tried to convince you away from. So I do like it. I like it.
I think it was only a bad idea in that it wasn't probably the strongest way to go with the third act. I think there was more interesting places. Like, I don't think it's a bad idea, but you probably could have done more than the Olsen twins switcheroo thing that every twin movie does, and that I've seen in kids movies where two people switch and they don't know it's the other person. I think.
Hey, I read some. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I think the horror elements and the body horror and David experimenting, yeah, I think they could have done. They kind of went for. It felt like to me that whole third act was more to set up the last 2 minutes. To me, I felt like that whole third act was just there so he could have the ending with David's on the ship and takes it over. More so than wrapping up all the themes they were establishing throughout the whole movie, because
Meh.
Walter and
They're
David
playing the long game.
Walter and David really don't get to have the final conversation they should have, and I feel like there was way more with those two characters. I'm hoping Walter's not dead. I don't think Walter is dead.
I was about to say he might not be dead.
I actually think that David, when he stabbed him earlier, might have put a virus in him when he shuts him down earlier with the next stab. And I'm wondering if he was even downloading stuff onto Walter. And that kind of stuff, that's the stuff I like about the movie.
Well, he stabbed him with a flute.
Yeah,
So that's
no,
why he slaps the blood off of it so much, because it's his flute.
No, but we see Walter shut down, and for me, I'm wondering, like, maybe in between that, maybe he did something to relate.
Yeah.
Maybe Walter shut down later when because Walter's about to kill David, and we see David reaching for the knife, but I don't know. I think if Walter comes back, David might have, because I don't know if he wanted to kill Walter. I don't think he did, and I don't think he would have just killed Walter. I think he might have left him there, but I don't think Walter's dead.
I think they may be. I think they're maybe sharing a body at this point.
Which
I think
is a great idea. That's in Dreamcatcher, where this guy's in the. I would love it if Walter was trapped in the mind with David. I think it's a great idea.
But they can't be conscious at the same time, or maybe he's got him dormant or something, because had he had access to all of Walter's memories, he would have known what Daniels meant by the wooden house.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
he wouldn't have had this
definitely doesn't know
reaction.
that. Yeah, and it's so funny. David's so stupid in that moment. I laugh so hard. It's like, if I was David in that moment and she said that to me, I'd go, yeah, and walk away. But he's just like, huh? He's just like,
well, it's a hard question to know how to react to.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't know where to go with that. Like he doesn't know what the fuck she means. Like he could play along if he knew what direction she was going
if
on.
David
with
would have
that.
played his cards right, he probably could have got some poon in that cabin. I think he could have pulled a Shaw. I think David has like the long game. It's really just David trying to get laid and have a family. That's Ridley Scott's real message with these Prometheus these Alien prequels. Is he just wants this android to have a family. Like David's there with Shaw, and he's got all these little alien kids, and they're Shaw as the queen. I thought would be a cool idea, but that really wasn't something they went into.
Maybe in the prequel.
If she is the queen alien on LV-42 or Origins.
Oh, that sounds horrible. Are you sure?
Well, some people have that theory that if he invented the mother to have the babies, he needed a woman to be able to birth eggs. Is what I've heard. It's like, because the queen alien has eggs. Those are eggs. So the theory was David made a queen who could birth eggs. So I don't know if that's true or not. That was what a lot of people thought Shaw was.
So the theory is that in the movie Aliens, when Ripley fights the queen with the machine with the arms, that is Shaw?
No. Just that Shaw was like one of the first queens, and there's been more than one queen alien. Like,
so that she maybe laid the eggs in that ship that's in LV-426.
They're like insects, where they always have a queen in an ant colony.
Yeah.
And then they die off, and a new queen comes and births a new one. So the theory is that Shaw was basically the first mother, and David was the father. And that was kind of what I thought. And I can kind of see that, if that's what Ridley Scott's doing. Like, that David was slowly figuring it out, and he only had to kill Shaw because there was no other option. He needed a woman, maybe. Maybe that was before. Because after a point, the xenomorphs they can impregnate a man and woman, but maybe the original couldn't do that. Maybe it had to be a woman, because he tries to get her pregnant, Shaw, in Prometheus, he doesn't, but the liquid thing, she gets pregnant with that guy's baby and she gets the abortion. So I'm wondering if David was trying to get a woman. I think Weyland actually is communicating with David in both movies. I actually think the company and David are still in contact on some level, and I think if Ridley Scott's going to tie this stuff back, it's going to deal with Weyland-Yutani sending them.
How would Weyland be communicating it during Covenant?
Okay, my theory is that David was told a mission. Well, I mean, long term, I think David was told a mission way before, and Covenant is still the continuation of the mission.
Oh,
I think David's playing, like you said, the long game. I think David's still working for Weyland-Yutani, and he was waiting for someone to show up to get him off there. But I think the goal was always Weyland to create life or create some kind of weapon, which I don't like that he wanted to be immortal. But I think once they found out that he went there and he died, they said, shit, we found this weapon there. And that's kind of where Alien starts, is they want to get this weapon. So I think David's going to be the connective tissue between that, with Weyland-Yutani knowing that they have this weapon. Because
Yeah, but you're totally done with the Alien franchise. It sounds like.
well, I'm done with watching sequels to this. I probably won't go see another one, but I'm not done with theories on this movie.
I don't believe you for a second. You're gonna watch every single sequel and make like even a longer rant video about
I'm done
them.
with it again. I've quit the second
Really
time.
done.
Well, I've never said I'm done with something. It's not very common of me to do. I remember I said that with Peter Jackson after like the second Hobbit movie. I was like, fuck this, I'm done. I'm not gonna watch these 3-hour movies when you turn this book into like 9 hours.
Did you?
Yeah, but I
No, I mean, did you see them?
I didn't see the third one. I did not go see the last one after the second one because I disliked it that much because it felt like indulgent Peter Jackson crap and not It's like how'd you turn a book that I read in 5 hours into 9 hours a movie? I can read The Hobbit in like 4.5, 5 hours, and it's like, dude, this is 9.5 hours a movie. What the fuck? But I don't know. I mean I'm not saying I won't see Alien Awakening, but I'm not paying for it. Let me put it that way. I'm not going to go pay for it in the movie theater because I don't want to go do this again and go see a movie I probably am not going to like and then be on the internet and be a little bitch because I don't want to be that guy.
What's going to happen when it gets great reviews and everybody's at the theater saying it? You're going to download a
I'll torrent it.
A pirated copy?
I will. I'll torrent it. I will. To see if I'll say this, if it's good like everyone says and I like on the torrent, then I will go see it in the theater and pay a movie ticket. If I do like it, I will go pay and see the movie a second time. If it's
I don't believe you.
I would do that. I wish I would have torrented Alien Covenant. That would have because when I went it was like $11 because I had to go to like a 10 o'clock show in my town and I paid like because normally you can go see a movie here for like $8, but yeah it was like $11 and I was like all right $11 to go see a movie, no big deal, and I was like oh shit, but I made that money back so I can't complain.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, I made my money back so I have no right to complain about it anymore. When I made the video I didn't have any money from it, so now I'm like oh shit. Now I look like an a-hole.
No, then you're gonna say, "See, I told you," because I'm gonna make a review and it'll kind of be free.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to watch this review, please go to Patreon and give me money.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so yeah, I think you said what you liked about. The only thing I could tell, it seems the people who like Covenant found an emotional engagement with the stuff with David, and I think the people that don't like the movie found that stuff silly and campy and it didn't work for them. I think that's the main course, that for some people the David stuff works really well, and for other people they think it is just Blade Runner 2.0 rip-off stuff. And I think that's the defining line. Is for me that was cheesy Ridley Scott trying to do Blade Runner, and for you you're like, oh cool, Ridley Scott's doing Android stuff again, I really like this, I want more of this, I want more sci-fi. And I think
but I also appreciate the Alien shit too, because that's why that's why I'm a fan of these series. So I like both of them. I like both. So I'm happy.
Well,
I'm happy that we have Alien shit.
We didn't talk about the Alien much in this actually. We focused on the androids a lot, but I didn't actually hear much about. I did like the Neomorph, the white one.
Yeah.
I thought that one was cool because we've never seen one be that savage and like just tear people apart. I thought that was something we hadn't seen before. My least favorite one was probably the last one, the one at the very end on the ship. I thought that's where the CGI was like... That probably wasn't the best... I don't know, seeing it out in daylight on top of the ship, I don't know if it was a good idea to do CGI daylight. They probably should have kept that...
And then they shouldn't have put that in the trailer either.
Yeah, it's a big spoiler. It's like the whole third fucking act of the movie's in the trailer. Like, the final action set piece is in the trailer. And it's like, well... yeah, because I was waiting for it the whole movie. Because I knew it was in the trailer. I said that about the first Avengers. Nobody remembers this. The money shot in the first Avengers trailer is the Hulk catching Iron Man. It's a big money shot in the Avengers trailer as the Hulk catches him. So when I went to go see the movie, I was waiting for it the whole time.
And yeah, because he knew he was falling from the the nuke.
So in the movie, he's falling from the nuke, and it's supposed to be this tense moment where you don't know what's going to happen. But I saw the trailer, so I knew Hulk was going to catch him. Killed all the tension in that moment because they put it in the trailer. You hadn't put that in the trailer, and I didn't know the Hulk was going to catch Iron Man. I would have flipped my shit. I would have stood up and cheered. Instead, because it would have been an awesome little moment because someone's going to catch him. But visually, it was so cool to see, because people don't realize at the time, the reason I liked Avengers at the time, I don't like it much now, it was cool to see Iron Man and the Hulk in a movie together. As a comic book fan, waiting your whole life, it was cool to see the superheroes all teamed up together and fighting the bad guys. That's something we literally never saw before in all of its glory with a $200 million movie. We never saw superheroes teamed up from comic books fighting a bunch of villains. We saw it in the X-Men, but never on the scale like that because Bryan Singer didn't make big scale movies back in the day. It was a different time. You couldn't make alien versus superhero movies back in the early 2000s. Studios wouldn't have made it. But at the time the Avengers came out, yeah, it was something, and I remember that in the time, and I was like, that would have been a really geek out moment for me in this movie. And they put it in the trailer because it was cool, and that movie had this problem bad. They put so many cool shots of this movie in the trailer, like insanely so. Like they put like almost all the shots that stick with you in the movie are in the trailer. Like when David shoots the flare and it lights and it's this beautiful shot, and it's like, why didn't I think they would have benefited from doing a lot of trailers that didn't, like the Prometheus trailers where you had no fucking idea what the movie was. You just got quick images and music where it was like, bah, bah.
Yeah, and wasn't the black goose spore that was given away in the trailer too? So we already knew how they were getting infected. That's fucked up.
Yeah, they did. They showed you a lot of points instead of like setting up a mystery of like, hey, come see this movie and find out what's going on. They're more like, hey, here's this alien movie. Come check out the xenomorph. And it was like, I don't even know if I wanted to know if there was a xenomorph in here by the trailers. I think it should have been kind of a mystery, like, is there one in this? Yeah. How much of one is there? But they made it pretty clear in the trailers there was going to be, a few. And I think they could have hidden some of the ones we didn't like. They could have probably hidden that last shot, like you said, on the ship. It's like, I have no idea why that's in the trailer. Because, it lands on the ship, and it's a pretty big moment in the movie. And it's like...
Yeah, and then it's in the trailer, and I can just see it in slow motion. I can blow it up. I can make it my wallpaper. Like, it stops sort of being scary when you show it so blatantly.
And uploading clips on YouTube that people look at for weeks that should have just been in the frickin' movie, so we can watch it the first time in the movie and not sit around for weeks. Because I remember people had complete plot synopsis for this movie figured out just based off those things. Because there was too much clues in those YouTube stuff where it's like, here's David killing all the engineers, now we know David's on the planet. It's like, that's a plot reveal in the movie like halfway through. Like, that's not how the movie opens. David tells Walter that later on, yet they have that on
So that lost all of its impact because I already saw that scene.
I did on YouTube, but I'm like, why did you put that on YouTube when it's supposed to be a reveal sequence in the movie? Because at that point, I probably wouldn't have known what David did. I didn't know he killed engineers, but I knew going into the movie that's exactly what happened. So that was all those were mistakes, but I think we need to move on from Covenant, or alien cunt shit, as I like to call it.
Vámonos.
Let's go to Star Wars. You made a video, and as far as I got, it seemed like you were upset. Unless I read about, you were upset that it seemed like that they weren't doing a lot of the EU stuff or stuff for Star Wars in these new films.
Well, do you want me to summarize?
Yeah, I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. What's your issues with these new Star Wars films?
Well, I was a big fan of the EU. I used to read the books. It wasn't so much in the comics, but I used to read the books. I would follow the story, so I was very much aware of the story that was out there in the EU. And then Disney bought it, and they declared that all these other stories don't exist. But not so that they can make their movies without really worried about that. It's so that they can, I mean, partly, but then they started new, and they started making other comics and other books, like taking these periods of time where these things already happened and telling them again and making new stories. So they expect us to spend time learning the new version of the story because they erased the old version of the story. And these are all comics and books and games. And I'm like, why would we do that? Why would we spend our time nerding out on all this shit if we can tell that Disney doesn't hold these stories to any value? Because clearly they just declared the old ones don't exist, and you don't. And I'm just like, they're gonna do it again, and if they don't nuke it, they're just going to ignore it. Like there's never going to be a movie that references some sort of Disney comic out there, or like you're never going to get a payoff for reading all these books, for turning into the ultra Disney geek. You're never going to get a payoff. It's going to be like you're reading fan fiction. Like it's never going to. The events you read in this book are never going to be put on the big screen. It's never going to be a cohesive thing like the MCU. Like if something happens in Ant-Man, you might see the response of that. And for instance, when in Captain America, they killed the SHIELD organization ended, and the rest of the movies that affected the rest of the movies.
Yes.
You're never going to see something happen in the comic books or in the books or anywhere that's not in a movie, and you're never going to see the movies react to that because they don't hold those movies to the same those stories to the same importance of the movies. So I feel like unless they do that, people shouldn't read them. We shouldn't be out reading these comics. We should just watch the movies. And that's pretty much what that video was. I was trying to convince people to not spend money on these books because they're a waste of time.
You made some points there that I really like, and I want to elaborate on a couple things here that I want to talk about. One, the fact that Disney just gets to pick and choose stuff from let's use Ben Solo, right? But let's not make the same character at all. It's like, well, Ben Solo is actually a very interesting character, and I would have liked to have seen that. Or, let's say, for instance, I remember a Darth Vader story I read where Darth Vader, he's in constant pain in his outfit constantly, and
I think that is Shadows of the Empire,
and part of the pain is what makes him so strong because it angers him, and he actually does not get the suit modified to be better. He keeps it rough to increase his anger and pain, and he starts using the strength of the suit to kill off Jedis in the universe. That because in the universe, all the Jedis weren't killed off after Revenge of the Sith, and I'm hoping at some point Disney makes a movie that actually has Darth Vader going out and hunting down rogue Jedi.
I want a game. I want a fucking game.
I'd prefer a game too. No, I would love to play that game. But the thing with Rogue One that I didn't like about Vader, except for the awesome sequence at the end, which I did think was good, is like they go to the planet, like the Revenge of the Sith planet, and he's there now in the tank and all that. And to me, that kind of took away, like in the EU, they did a really good job of establishing like Anakin was in this pain in the suit, and he lived with this pain. And to me, it kind of felt like they made it like he was still stuck in the past. It felt like Anakin Skywalker and not Darth Vader. And I like.
Yeah, what was he doing on the lava planet?
Yeah,
that made no sense.
I like my Darth Vader being Darth Vader because at this point to me, he's not Anakin Skywalker. In like Rogue One, he should be Darth Vader. There should be no Anakin. Yeah. He doesn't think he has kids. He thinks they're dead. So as far as he's concerned, he's just with the Emperor. He only starts to think about doing a coup against the Emperor when Luke gets discovered. Then in Empire, he's like, oh, I can maybe overthrow this guy with my son. But as far as we know in New Hope, he's just like a pawn. He's like a soldier. He just does whatever the fuck.
So what part of Rogue One doesn't do that? Like, what part are you saying of Rogue One makes him look more like prequel Annie?
The whole being in the tank as the human holding the tank. I don't like that he's living on the Revenge of the Sith planet, because to me that means he's still leaking back to when Obi-Wan cut him up, and he's still living in the past. And I much prefer the Darth Vader that's become just a straight up killer robot. Basically, he's become a monster. And that final sequence where he kills the rebels, that's what that scene shows. And I just didn't like that scene where he's like, be careful not to choke on your ambitions, director. Like he's
that was fucking retarded.
I think that whole sequence was a fail. And I think the whole movie, my problem is you only need the one Darth Vader scene. Imagine that whole movie if Darth Vader was never in it. You go, man, is he in this movie? And then he shows up in that fucking moment at the end with, that would have been killer. Instead, you've seen him a couple times, and the scenes aren't that great. They're just okay. And you don't need them. They don't really flesh out the stuff that well. But if you knew that Vader showed up at the very end, then that would have been like, oh, shit. And that scene totally works. And I want more of that. I want more Jason Voorhees, Darth Vader. Don't be wrong, that's awesome. I love seeing him put a dude on the ceiling and then slicing. I think that's awesome. That Disney, do more of that, and I will give you money. I will just show up. If you just have a whole movie of that 2 hours, or you make a video game, or you just let me do that the whole game, where I can just put people up against walls and kill them like Darth Vader, and it's not a crappy The Force Unleashed series, I would definitely. No, it's just the character. There was a lot more. The books I read, Vader had a lot more depth to him and darkness, and I felt like I'm really worried that they are kind of still. They seem to be more in George Lucas land than the stuff that was the EU that other people wrote that was really good. And,
speaking of that, you know his palace in that lava planet. I'm pretty sure they did that because it originated with Lucas. That's from some old material. Yeah. Like, they didn't just come up with that.
Well, he even came up with the idea of Rogue One. Rogue One was even an idea Lucas sold to them.
Terrible idea.
Yeah, he's like, hey, let's show how the plans of the let's explain why the hole's in the Death Star. Okay.
There's so much SJW shit in that movie.
Oh my god. No, the fact that... No, I love it. There's like a Mexican guy, an Asian guy. Like they have all their points hit. And no, like we gotta get all of our diversity in here. And
what is going on with virtue signaling these movies? And in Wonder Woman, when they have the fucking Indian character, and he's like, his people destroyed my people, and it's like, what? We interrupt Wonder Woman to give you virtue signaling about Native Americans and fuck white
If
people.
I see a Native American in a movie or TV show at all now, I just turn the shit off. I'm like, unless it's Twin Peaks, the Native American guy on there, I'm like, nope, fuck this. This is gonna, because it's always that shit. It's always to throw white guilt at you. Like,
Yeah, now you're not a representative of not now you're not just like a diverse character like an Indian person, a Native American. He is the representation of fuck white people in movies. Like how do you be that guy and get cast and then understand that this is why you were hired. It's not because you're a good actor. It's because you represent fuck white people.
well, it's also the point too that freaked me out about Rogue One. Someone pointed out to me that blew my fucking mind that I didn't even think about it was that like the whole film's message goes against kind of what the OT was. Now, it wasn't always. I get that the Nazi Germany thing was always kind of there, but there was always this British Empire aspect because all of the people in the Empire were British, and the bad guys were usually except for Obi-Wan. But I always kind of got a sense that a lot of Star Wars 2 was like the British Empire and how but Rogue One almost made it like the rebels were ISIS and it was like a pro-ISIS pro-terrorist. Like I totally got that theme, like them, like I was watching and I was like, okay, these are like desert people and the big America, because my friend, I asked him, I said, who did you think the Empire was in this movie? And he said America. And I said, you're right, this is the first movie, because the other ones it's either Germany or like the Brits. This one they were clearly saying this is America going over to the Middle East and dropping bombs.
That's interesting. I never thought about it that way. But now that you say it like that, they were sort of hiding out. They were doing the whole Che Guevara thing with her, the
Completely.
dude who raised her.
It was Cuba. It was yeah. It was the same thing, taking out tanks and military. Because really,
But then they made the rebels sort of fracture to do that because they couldn't just send that message because then it would say the rebels are terrorists. So they had to say he was too extremist for us. So he went in and he started his own group of people and not Mos Eisley.
well, I'd say this: they're basically ISIS if Islam and Muhammad was real, because they actually have their religion and it's real. Like they're driven. They have a religious fanaticism in their group.
Yeah.
And it's,
Except they're right.
and it's very similar to what we see with right now. So I think that was, I don't think they were intentionally saying it, but there is a fuck white people, fuck America mentality in blockbusters right now, and I don't think Disney's going to shy away from it at all. And I think, you know, like when I watched Captain America: Civil War, I know the movie was trying to make it like you were supposed to see both points of view, but I was just sitting there all the time going, no, Iron Man's fucking wrong. What he's saying is stupid. Why the fuck would you, like, I was sitting there rolling my eyes like, Tony, that's the first time someone's ever come up to you and told you someone died. It's like, fuck that, dude. Get over yourself, you egomaniac. All the bad shit that happens, you. Ultron, you. All the stuff that's bad. Like, Captain America's there like, I didn't fucking do anything. Screw you guys. I don't have to sign some bullshit thing. Because, like, I've honestly only done good. I frickin' found out S.H.I.E.L.D. was Hydra and stopped that crap. Like, I don't need to listen to you guys. You guys are all morons. And I felt that way that whole movie. That movie bothered me because it was trying to act politically nuanced. But I was like, this is simplistic message movie stuff where, like, oh, Cap's too into Americana and the gut. But it's like, no, what he's saying is right. He's an individual. He's like what a true liberal would be. Like, Captain America's like, no, fuck the government. Fuck the estate. They don't get to tell me what to do. They don't get to tell me what kind of superhero I am. That's the only
Well, it was
way
a Captain America movie.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I hated that so many people said at the time, they're like, it's so new. I'm like, no, Tony Stark's just wrong from the first, like, there's no way to read that and see where Tony's logic is.
Well, he comes around at the end. He ends up agreeing with.
No,
with
thank God he finally realizes he was stupid for acting like a baby, because he was a snowflake. He was driven because mommy and daddy got hurt, and he had daddy issues, and he wanted the world to make his problems go away. And Captain America's like, quit being a bitch. It's like, dude, I got fucking frozen. Like, what do you think my life's like? My life sucks. I don't get along. Like, I don't get this. I'm disconnected from this world. So I look at things more objectively than you. I'm not so caught up in it. Tony's too modern. You need the past of Steve Rogers to tell us where we fucked up, because he was there. And that's why Captain America's probably the best character in the Avengers Marvel MCU lineup, because he's the one that has the perspective to be like, guys, we're going to keep fucking this up if we don't. We can't have a leader. We can't have a boss. We can't just trust these guys, because I did that, and I was a pawn. And that's what we're going to become. And I like that about the MCU.
It's funny how just general patriotism is turning into like a right wing, like just showing a patriotism for America sort of now just means Trump supporter.
Being against illegal immigration is somehow anti-American, even though it's in the law for it to be. It's like, okay, so I'm a law-abiding citizen. How is that like? That's like saying like, I don't think people should kill people. It's illegal. It's probably not a good thing. It's like, yeah, I don't mind immigrants coming over. I'm 100% for it. I love immigration. I just think you should come over illegally. That's all I say.
Yeah.
I think you should come over illegally, like everyone should have to, like any country. I think that's fair. I don't think you should be able to just walk over here, get benefits, have your kids born here, and then you don't. That pisses me off. But then people are like,
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird how just speaking out against that, it's become so common to just have that be accepted, that speaking out against illegal immigration means you're racist. It's like they've said that so many times that you can't even try to convince them that the two aren't connected. It's been repeated so many times that they don't even listen.
I cannot explain to someone the difference between illegal immigration and like immigrant. There's just no. There's no, like, I've had this conversation so many times that they're like, no, dude, that's anti-American. I'm like, dude, there's no time in America where we were just, like, there's no recent time in America right now, current history, where we just, like, have open borders. That's not the modern world today. No, like, that's stupid to just have open. This isn't 200 years ago. Like, you can't just let millions of people come to your country. That's what people don't get. Like countries like China, they have 1 billion people there. They can't handle that many people living there. There's too many people. And I don't want an America with 1 billion people living in it, I think we can barely handle 350 million right now. I think we're doing a bad job with that. So I don't know why people think having 600, 700, like having more people come is going to fix the country overnight. Especially if all of them, they assume that all of them are going to come over and be doctors or IT people. And it's like, no, not every immigrant who comes over is going to be a scholar. They're going to be some guy who gets a job at McDonald's like some other dude does. And that's not good. And we can have that debate about it working at... I just want to have the discussion, but they make it a moral issue where you're a racist because you're talking about brown people. And it's like, dude, I don't care what color they are. You could be a white dude. If you're coming over illegally, I don't like it. If you're European...
It seems like they've been... It seems like they've been overplaying that card. Like I'm sort of seeing the change in the wind, like that whole narrative, racism, you just speaking out against certain things, just being patriotic, like all this bullshit. I feel like with the closing, with everyday feminism saying that they're fucking up, with Lacey Green coming back to our side, like I feel like the wind is blowing our way. I feel like it's becoming popular to not be a complete idiot.
I agree with you, and I think that the problem is that the thing is, I don't entirely agree with the GOP and right-wing politics, but the left is just so disastrous that you almost have to be with them a little bit more because you don't want to be part of this insanity of, like, Antifa and the Hillary people and the... they're the point where they just, like... I don't want any association with people that think that they can go... When they think... Basically, my distinction is, if you think hate speech is an issue and people need to be censored of it, I don't want to talk to you. Fuck off. Because I don't believe in hate speech in that sense. I don't think any speech should be censored. And that's the distinction for me. The conservatives aren't doing that as much right now as the left is. The left is trying to censor people, and I'm anti-censorship. Now, when the left stops trying to censor people and is all pro-free speech again, then I'll be a little bit more cool with those guys. But so far, it's basically like, we don't want conservative speakers coming to college campuses and perhaps influencing these kids on feminism or economics. We don't want Ben Shapiro, Milo Yiannopoulos coming to this college. We don't want... It's like, why is there only one way to discuss feminism? It's an ideology. We can discuss if the ideology doesn't work anymore and it's gone past its purpose and there's a new wave of it that's flawed. But to them, it's already set in stone that feminism is inherently good no matter what, and anyone who's opposed to it is alt-right, Pepe, Trump, Keck. And they don't realize all that stuff is people trolling them because you stereotype us that way. Kekistan and the whole movement is a parody of being called Nazis so much and being called white supremacists that everyone just said, fuck it.
I saw this funny picture. Sargon and Andy Worski was on there. It was the VidCon one. I couldn't recognize half the people, but I saw they were doing the white power AOK symbol.
Yeah.
I thought that was fucking hilarious.
I did, yeah.
And I tweeted, like, VidCon, what the fuck? Why are you retweeting a picture full of white power symbols?
Andrew Perkins, thank you for the shout out. Thank you for loving thank you for loving my channel. I love you too.
Oh, I thought it was more money.
Well, maybe we'll get there, but he just said he loved the channel, and I guess he wanted me to shout him out, so I'll be a shout out.
Sweet. Hey, I want to bring this back to Star Wars.
Yes.
I want to talk about something. I want to talk about, the George Bush meme of "You Miss Me Yet"?
Yeah.
Do you feel that way about the prequels? Because I feel like I miss the George Lucas is trying specifically not to make the same shit all over again, despite it sucking. He like there's something to say about how different the prequels were to the originals.
Um, I guess I'm more mixed on that, like, because I really don't like the prequels, but I don't like the new films much either, so it's a tough call, because I think there's benefits to both. There's things that I like the aesthetics of the Disney movies better. They don't have too much CGI. They're actually shooting it on location with film. Like, I thought Rogue One was a pretty good looking movie. I really did like how, like, whatever you feel about the character story, but like visually, I much prefer that to say something like Attack of the Clones, where like the whole movie looks like a computer screensaver. However, what you say, he did try original new things, and they're not doing that, so there is a give and take, unfortunately. My dream would be George Lucas more involved with the writing side of things and the producing side than he is, and then Disney bringing in the directors for the aesthetics. But it seems like they just don't give a fuck about what George Lucas has to say. They just throw his ideas out the window, and I don't think they should do that. I think George Lucas still has a lot of good ideas. And I don't think keeping...
I'm very curious about what his plans were for the new trilogy that Disney said fuck you about.
Yeah, I am too. I like, this is the thing. If you go back to the prequels and you see them, if you watch them and you say, hey, if different directors would have made these movies and someone else would have come in and worked on these scripts a little bit, these could have been really good movies. Like, and he tried to get Ron Howard, he tried to get Spike Jonze, he tried to get Steven Spielberg to direct Revenge. I mean, he tried. He didn't want to do these movies, and everyone kept telling him, no, you have to do them. And I think Lucas knew. I think he knew that, like, Star Wars wasn't an individual enterprise. It takes a lot of moving parts, because the original trilogy...
Well, he should have tried harder.
I agree.
I mean, all the directors he got for the Empire director and the Return of the Jedi director, like, they're not hot commodities.
Irvin
like
Kershner and Richard Marquand, and they're nobodies. Yeah, he could have went and got no-name directors that could have, wanted, like Irvin Kershner. Irvin Kershner was really good, like, at drama, and he knew that he could direct the dialogue scenes. And then basically, as all I know, ILM did pretty much all the special effects stuff in Empire. Irvin Kershner didn't do any of that. And same with Return of the Jedi, like Return of the Jedi, ILM and Lucas pretty much did all the special effects scenes. Richard Marquand and Lawrence Kasdan directed the dialogue scenes. But that works. That really did work for the original trilogy, and I think the prequels, Lucas should have been behind the scenes, working on the special effects, on the stuff, on the ideas, and then let some guy come in and shoot the movie and add his flair to it, like, hey, maybe I'm really good at noir, so let's make, like, Attack of the Clones a little bit like... Because it has Blade Runner influence in Attack of the Clones, the city they're in. It's like, okay, let's make this... Because Attack of the Clones...
Too much.
Yeah, it tries to be a mystery movie, so maybe they should have got a mystery director, a guy who was good at telling a mystery story with the plot reveal. And then Revenge of the Sith, yeah, I think James Cameron or Steven Spielberg would have been a great choice, but he could have went and got a smaller name director. Funny, even at the time, he probably could have got, like, a Zack Snyder... Which, it's funny, I would have really liked to have seen Zack Snyder's Revenge of the Sith. I'm not kidding. I would have liked to have seen that movie visually at that time. 05, Zack Snyder, like after Dawn of the Dead and before 300. That might have been a pretty cool movie. Like, in my head, I'm seeing it, I'm like, that might have been, like, the way he would have done the slow motion and stuff. I might have thought that was really cool at the time with the lightsaber duels.
Hey, Pat, do you want Disney to remake the prequels?
No. I don't want Disney to... I would honestly prefer if they would stop touching anything with the main mythos and just start doing their own original stories and leave Han Solo the fuck alone and leave, like... Do a Boba Fett movie, because Boba Fett, in the original trilogy, people always forget Boba Fett's useless. He does almost nothing. He's, like, in the movies for, like, 10 minutes. Now, then he has...
Well, he's about the same as Phasma. Clearly, she's a Boba Fett clone.
And I think, yeah, you could make a movie about him, because outside of the... And there's so much material in the EU that they could go and tell so many cool Boba Fett stories. And Darth Vader. I want to see a Darth Vader movie. I do. Like, I'm cool to see that, but I don't want to see, like... Yeah, I'm scared we're going to get in that territory where, like, they want the Han Solo to be like, hey, here's references setting up stuff for New Hope. Here's that poker game Han was at where he won the Falcon. It's like, I don't really want to see that. I kind of just prefer it as a line of dialogue between him and people. I don't really need to see a guy who's like 5 years younger than Harrison Ford was in New Hope play young Han Solo and win the Falcon. It's like, oh, well, he just won it in the exact way that... Unless they subvert us, maybe all the stuff that Han said wasn't true, and they show us that Han lied about his backstory. That could be maybe what they're doing. But I don't even want that either. I basically just don't want a Han Solo movie. I can't I can't figure a Han Solo movie out. I've stayed up late at night trying to figure it the fuck out. I'm like, it just doesn't work. Because the original trilogy is so heavy on Han Solo that it's like doing a young Han Solo is pointless. We already saw young Han Solo. Like, Harrison Ford wasn't old. He wasn't an old guy in Star Wars.
I remember with the I remember going out of the prequel era, like we had the Clone Wars show, and we had all the EU material because finally they could write EU material with the Clone War with the prequels in mind. So I felt like during maybe early 2000 era, we were very flooded with all this prequel content, and people were just like dying for original trilogy material, and that really made it explode when these new movies finally come out. And now we're getting back to wanting prequel material clearly because of Battlefront 2. Everything I see about it is on Naboo. Am I wrong? Is this pretty
No.
much a prequel game?
I think that Lucas is as much to blame for this as he is not at the same time. I think, like you said there, he, during the prequel era, released so much goddamn merchandise that we got overexposed to Star Wars for a few years. And he raised up all these kids on these toys and stuff, and I was one of them. So then they were able to make The Force Awakens completely on nostalgia and get to $1 billion because George Lucas built a whole generation. I mean, I did my American Graffiti video on this, and that was like, this film is the template for the modern movie, and George Lucas had this idea in 1973. He knew nostalgia, and I brought it up. It's in Mad Men. It's at the last season of Mad Men. Don Draper says it. He says nostalgia is the greatest marketing key, and it is. You want to get people to keep buying stuff forever. It's to make them want to buy that thing that takes them back to when they saw Star Wars as a kid. And that's why people go see these Disney films. They don't care if they're good or bad. They just want Star Wars. Because it's like why people go see the crappy pirate sequels. They're always hoping that it's that first Pirates of the Caribbean film again. Everybody wants that.
They've all sucked since.
They all want that first movie where Jack was the supporting character and he was really surprising, and you liked and Barbossa. They all keep going back. It's like The Matrix. Everyone keeps trying to get that first experience again, and everybody wants that feeling they got when they saw like Empire Strikes Back, and it's like, I don't think they can do it again. I don't think you can make that movie again because it was in the context of the time that they never did something like that in a movie before. We've seen kind of everything in a post-Star Wars world. It's hard for them to do things we haven't seen in a movie before. It's hard for them to do things in Star Wars we haven't seen before, or at least because we've all had Star Wars conversations, so we've all discussed a future trilogy 1,000 times. I already had a million ideas. That's stuff they did in Force Awakens. That was like one of a million ideas I already had years ago. You know, it was like, oh, what if Luke was on an island? What if Luke was like at a Jedi temple? I've had that idea. You know, it's conversations you have when you're 14, and it's like they're making movies based off those conversations. Instead of hiring directors like a Quentin Tarantino and saying, hey, go make a fucking kick-ass Han Solo movie. Do whatever the fuck you want. Just go make a badass Han Solo movie. Here's $150 million. Just go do whatever you want. And I think, honestly, if they want to make movies like with Han Solo, they almost have to do that because people are going to get burned out on the nostalgia. Give it like 4 or 5 years, and if they don't do something new, people are going to get tired of these fucking Star Wars films.
I know, man. I see Marvel movie after Marvel movie, which is a remake of Iron Man with a different character.
Well, my argument with that though is that people do. Those characters do have so much going back, though. Like, people who love Ant-Man may have been an Ant-Man fan, and they have the TV shows, and they are a little different, like Daredevil and Luke Cage. Like, Daredevil's a lot different than Iron Man. You know, there's a lot more.
And don't tell me that Transformers didn't blow up the box. Like, I haven't even looked, but I just know that it probably made a ridiculous amount of money.
Once again, that's people
and
going
everybody knew that was going to be garbage. It's just the normies. The normies have a lot of money for some reason.
Well, it's people still going back trying to get that first experience because people, like, the first Transformers movie, I don't actually hate it. And when it came out at the time, the special effects were, like, freaking amazing. Like, it was one of those movies when you saw it in the theater and you were like, wow, CGI's reached this place. Like, they did giant robots and ILM made them look real. After that, they became even more and more Michael Bay movies. But I still think, like, people are going back trying to get that sense of awe. I compare them to the Jurassic Park sequels. The first one came out, and you're like, wow, these dinosaurs look amazing. And then every film, the dinosaurs felt less amazing because the awe was gone. I think with Transformers, that's a lot of people that are going, like, I want this movie to blow me away with giant robots. And they don't realize they're going to see the same movie for the 5th time because, well, it's Michael fucking Bay. And I feel that same way about J.J. Abrams. I went into Force Awakens so worried. I was like, God, don't be a J.J. Abrams movie where everyone's constantly running and there's and it's exactly what it was. So Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness, and it was like crap. They're running and talking. It's what J.J. Abrams.
They had that scene where Rey told Poe not to grab her hand, or Finn.
Yeah, Finn. Oh, this guy asked, how is Winter Soldier a remake of Iron Man makes no... What he was saying was that a lot of the Marvel films are remakes of Iron Man. Not
No,
there's
Doctor
exceptions.
Strange and Ant-Man. What else?
Oh Jesus. I'd say all the first. Well, my problem is too. They're not just he doesn't the Iron Man's. It's the structure that it's a guy who starts out as a freaking asshole, has something happen to him, gets some new thing, and then at the end he has some big city fight cloud thing. Doctor Strange did something kind of different with the third act, but yeah, if you don't see the similarities between the Iron Man formula or the Avengers formula in Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy is basically a remake of the Avengers with the pop soundtrack. It's so similar in structure. They even have the final city battle at the end where they got to stop something from falling to Earth and crap. It's so similar. It's just different aesthetics, and they've done that ending. I mean, Age of Ultron has the same ending as the first Avengers movie. They're fighting a bunch of metal guys. I mean, it's like the exact same visual. It's the Avengers wrapped up in a circle. So that's my Winter Soldier's the only one I think actually did feel a little different because these directors came in, the Russo brothers, and they did their own thing. But that's why I like the Winter Soldier movie better than the other Marvel movies because it's the only one it feels like a movie.
You like it better than the Captain America versus Iron Man movie?
Oh, like I said, the Iron Man parts of Civil War really got to me. I do like Civil War quite a bit, though. I think the whole airport... I think Spider-Man felt a little forced in that movie, too. I felt like he was in a different movie. It felt like we were watching this really serious sequel to Winter Soldier, and then this Joss Whedon movie came in for like 15 minutes. And I enjoyed it. It just didn't feel like the same movie that we were watching with Bucky and Cap and all that before. And I'm very excited about Spider-Man Homecoming, though.
I'm not. I'm dreading it.
I'm hoping. The director says he's basically doing a John Hughes movie with Spider-Man, and I do like that idea. I like the idea of like a 16 Candles Ferris Bueller type movie with them.
Yeah, but it's gonna turn into Iron Man again. It's gonna be a big lightning show at the end.
It could. I am.
And the trailer showed you what the movie was. Like I feel like I've already seen the movie.
I do.
And
hate
it's not a good. It's not a fucking good movie.
I do hate they reveal that the whole idea is the costume gets taken away, and then like that is like pretty much. It's like, why did you reveal that in the trailer? Because that's so much of clearly what the story narrative is. I will say I'm pumped for Baby Driver, Edgar Wright, this weekend. 98% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
Yeah, his best reviewed movie. Yeah, I'm hearing.
So it's an autistic kid who listens to music as he's the getaway driver, huh?
Yeah, and there's something about the movie I didn't know, and they should have marketed this because they fucked up. They didn't market the gimmick of the movie. I didn't even know the movie had this gimmick. Everything in the movie synced up to the music he's listening to on his iPod. Everything.
Oh, that makes sense.
They don't really give that across in the trailer. And one guy brought up to me, he said, I thought this movie could have opened to like 35 if they would have advertised that. Because in the trailers, they just make it look like, like a crime comedy movie. But no, apparently in the movie, like, he's listening to music and he makes remixes of stuff that's going on. So, like, if he turns a gear, the music is perfectly edited with that. And, like, I hear it's like a musical almost. Like, it's got that Scott Pilgrim thing where the editing matches. But, like, yeah, so Baby's iPod is the movie. And it's kind of almost a silent film that's being told by the music on his iPod while Edgar Wright directs the shots to it. And I'm like, why didn't you advertise that? That's genius. Like, that would have made so many... If I could just tell people that idea, they'd be like, that's a pretty cool idea. Instead, you see the trailer and it kind of looks like, well, what's this? It looks like one of those movies, a guy has a girl, he's trying to get away, get out, he has one last job. You're
going to make a review of it, right?
Oh, totally. I'm going to review... I've had some friends who tell me they actually think it's Edgar Wright's weakest film, so I don't know. But I heard that same thing about At World's End, and I love that movie. So, yeah, I have to review that, and I'm probably going to start continuing the 20 list here in the next few days, like the 20 favorite movie list. It's just those videos are tough to do because I spend a lot. I really want to get my points down very concise in those videos. Like that American Graffiti one, I spent a lot of time on to make sure like I have a clear thing I want to address here that George Lucas did with this movie. And I don't want people to misconstrue. Like, I want to be very clear. I think this movie's great, but I also am saddened by this movie because I think this movie did contribute to the modern blockbuster that we live in today. And I really do. I think American Graffiti led to a lot of where people are too caught up in nostalgia. People don't want new stuff. They want the old shit they saw, member berries.
Mm-hmm.
And, but Star Wars, I will say, I don't hate Force Awakens and Rogue One. Like, I don't think they're the worst. Like, some people think I hate them. When you see them in the theater, they were okay blockbusters.
You don't hate Rogue One?
I think the third act saves the movie. I don't like it until the last 20 minutes. I did like the spaceship battle and them breaking through the shield, and I like that robot and him getting shot at by the stormtroopers and stuff. And
I am one with the Force. The Force is with me.
yeah,
I
yeah,
am one with the Force.
yeah.
It's awful.
I thought. Well, no, not that stuff. More the robot that was kind of saying one-liners by Alan Tudyk. I liked him, and I liked that they killed off all the main characters. I thought that was actually something Disney wasn't going to do. And the Darth Vader scene, it kind of ends on a high note, the movie. Like, they're very clever to put the best scene of the movie in the final 5 minutes. Because if the whole movie had been as good as that Darth Vader scene, that movie would have been amazing. But it's like, it's very intentional they put that scene at the end of the movie and it was researched. Like, you could tell they knew they didn't have a super strong... But they're like, well, if we put this hype Darth Vader clip at the end, that's all anyone's going to talk about. And they were right, because that's all anyone talked about when the movie was over.
Well, it's also like the Godzilla thing. The guy during Godzilla was hiding all the monster battles until the very end, and I feel like that's just an extension of the dude's style.
I think that's why they had Tony Gilroy come in, in the third act, and he reshot all of it, and it feels like a different movie. The first 2 acts feels like Gareth Edwards, and the third act feels like another director came in and made this movie that actually has action. Because it's like, oh, look, shit's going on now. And, like, the pace picks up. There's actually, like, Diego Luna's character actually isn't just, like hello, like him and her. I actually thought it was pretty tense, them trying to get the drive thing out of the thing and climbing up the thing. And the guy, I liked that. And I did love that Tarkin fucked over the other guy and blew him up. I thought that was great. I thought that was so great that Tarkin basically fucked over the main bad guy. I thought that was I like when bad guys get screwed over like that.
You know what I really liked? We finally got to see the Death Star from a different angle.
I agree with that too, and we also got to see.
Did you notice that?
Yeah, and a planet get destroyed. People on the planet with the Death Star. I thought that was cool to see.
It's like every time during the original trilogy when you would see the Death Star, you would always see it from the same angle because that's the only matte painting they did, or I don't even know. That's the only angle they could shoot the model from. I mean, but it was really obvious that they could only do it that way, but we have money now.
I won't admit my liking for it was completely shallow. It was just like, oh, cool, Darth Vader slicing up guys. And I had a really weird screening. The screening I went to, it was either something wrong with the projection or the copy they got. There was no red in my version of the movie. All the red colors were yellow.
What?
Yeah, the theater I went to, all the red was yellow. And I didn't notice it till about halfway through. You know the Imperial Guards, the guys with the red cloaks?
Yeah, yeah.
They're guarding Vader, and when I was watching the movie, they were in yellow, and I was like... and I looked at my girlfriend, and I said, you know, those guys are red in Return of the Jedi. I said, I wonder if they changed the color for this movie.
So it didn't affect their skin tones?
No, it was like something... I don't know what happened. I'm assuming that either the person who was projecting the movie didn't do something, or the copy they get had a color issue, where it didn't have a... But, so here's the crazy part, though. This is what's crazy, and this is what blew my fucking mind in the theater, and everyone in the theater went like, huh? The final sequence where Darth Vader kills the rebel, the version I saw, Darth Vader has a golden yellow lightsaber. I was in the theater and I saw Darth Vader with the yellow lightsaber, and everyone in the
So you went through this whole movie and you didn't know that the reds were fucked up?
You couldn't really... Well, the movie doesn't have a lot of red to it. It's kind of a gray-blue movie.
That must have been very confusing.
It was confusing. It was confusing me throughout the whole thing because I was like, why? Because Vader's eye things are even red, and they were yellow. And I thought, okay, maybe they're saying this is a different timeline, maybe, but I was so confused. And I was like, maybe different guards wear different colors. But yeah, the moment in the theater, it was so funny because everyone in the theater had this like gas moment because the Vader opens up the lightsaber and it was like, huh? Because we were all excited, and then it was like gold. It was like a yellow, and I was like, then I realized like, oh, this print's fucked up. That's when it finally hit me, was at the very end. I was like, oh shit, this movie has no red in it. And I just realized the whole movie I saw didn't have an ounce of red.
I would have thought, holy shit, they're setting up another movie where they're going to explain where he got his red lightsaber.
No, I will say it wasn't, my girlfriend did think that. We walked outside and she asked me, and she goes, is that a different Darth Vader?
Because he didn't have his red lightsaber at the end of Sith.
No, and I told her, I go, no, we just had a fucked up thing. I was like, no, that wasn't some different Darth. I go, I know why you would think that, because it was confusing why he had a yellow lightsaber right before New Hope, because in New Hope he had a red lightsaber, and this takes place like minutes before that.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's kind of like, yeah, it was, no, basically the version I saw, Darth Vader's lightsaber magically changes color when he enters New Hope Land. It goes from yellow to red. So that might have impacted me a little bit more, because it was kind of one of those moments where it was like, oh, cool, I'm never going to see that again, really. It was like, in a theater, at least, it's like somebody went in and changed the color in the movie, and that was kind of cool. Saying that, though, I probably would never watch Rogue One again.
Hey, what number, like 1 to 10 score? Tell me what you'd give both the Star Wars movies that have come out recently.
I guess I'd give Force Awakens like a 6, and I'd give Rogue One like a 6.5. because I like the third act of Rogue One. If
Yeah.
Rogue One didn't have the third act, it would probably be like a 5. But I actually think the third act's that good. Like I really like I thought it was the best action set piece of last year was the final 20 minutes of Rogue One, where they actually. It was nice to actually see space combat again in a Star Wars movie, which Force Awakens didn't have any of, and it was actually nice to see.
It did have the at the final battle they were shooting
a
up
little bit, but
Death
Rogue
Star
One
3.
has a huge set piece like Return of the Jedi, where like they're fighting, and it was cool to actually see the Rebels fighting and having a shootout with the Empire, and actually like it was the first time we actually. I also really like the scene where Diego Luna character kills that guy at the beginning. I did like that. I like that he's like, fuck it, I can't bring you with me, and you're gonna tell them stuff, so I have to kill you. And I like they showed the Rebels as not totally good. I wish there had been way more of that in the movie, though. That is severely... Apparently, the original Cuth Edwards wanted to do, Jyn Russo was way more of a hard-ass. And you see that in the original trailer.
Yeah, man, there's so much... Like, even in the trailer, you see all this shit that never made the movie. But I heard they also shot a lot of stuff specifically for the trailer.
Like that scene where she stands up in the hallway thing, and it was in the first one. That was shot just for the trailer.
So it's hard to say how much, based on the trailer, wasn't just shot for the trailer.
Well, apparently, from what I read, the original cut, the original version, she was supposed to be way more of like a... neutral, more like she doesn't care who lives and dies. But in the new version of the movie, they made her very driven by her father, and apparently Gareth Edwards made her more like she doesn't give a shit. She just likes to kill stormtroopers, and I think I would have preferred that to the sappy father-daughter story. I think I would have preferred this soldier Saving Private Ryan man.
Just give her some sort of fucking personality. Like at the end when she gives a speech about like why we need to go be rebels, it's false. It didn't make any sense. There was no reason for her to do that. Like she had been like a loner since then, pretty much, and she had no arc or anything. It was just like, okay, this is the part of the movie where we need a speech. Who should give it? I guess the main character. Go.
I guess the emotion just got to me. I actually felt the connection from it to New Hope. I really felt the like those guys loading. I do think. Here's where I think they really screwed up though, and I think this would have been brilliant. And I don't know why they didn't do this in the reshoots. Okay. Now tell me if you didn't think this. Do you think this would be a better movie just for the character development's sake, for the fuck of it? Okay, instead of having them die at the beach at the end with him and her hugging and the explosion gets them of the Death Star, which is just kind of there because they shot like 3 different ways for those characters to die, and they picked that one. Apparently, there was one version where they were gonna fly off, but because originally the original act, and you see it in the original trailers, him and her, they're running on the beach with the Death Star plans in the original version of the film. It wasn't that they were trying to transfer a signal up to the rebels. They're actually running with the physical copy of it getting shot at, and that was the original third act. It was supposed to be a Normandy battle. And then Disney didn't want to do that. They thought... from what I heard, they thought the movie kind of lost focus. And I can get that because apparently it was like a 35-minute battle sequence on a beach, and it had nothing to do with the other stuff going on. I think Gareth Edwards got too caught up in, I need to do Saving Private Ryan with stormtroopers. And he didn't think about a movie. But what I think would have been better, like, let's say this... Jyn Russo and the rest of them, they get the plans, right? And it's her and the like last 4 people, and they're on that ship at the end, and they're about to get away. Then Vader shows up, and he kills off all the lead characters. And Jyn Russo's the one that hands the Death Star plans to the guy and says, take it. And then she gets stabbed through. That would be such a heroic moment. Instead of seeing her die on a beach and him saying, your father would be very proud of you, which is cheesy as fuck, why not have her be like a soldier and say, here, take this thing, this guy's gonna kill me, I can't do anything. That soldier's like he's the bravest character in the movie. Yeah, because
clearly somebody made a huge sacrifice for these plans, and we don't even know his fucking name. That would have been,
If we knew it was her, and we saw her die brutally, like Vader just stabbed her and impaled her, it would be more impactful, because we go, wow, we followed that character, and she went out like that. And then even if, like, because I do love a shot, there's that shot where Vader goes in the room and there's one guy reaching his arm out like, no! And if that had been if that had been Donnie Yen, fuck yes. But straight up, like, kill the leads in that final moment, have Vader kill them all, and that would have been so impactful because, wow, they almost made it. And then they didn't. And then that would have been, instead it's kind of like these just random no-face rebels get killed. I mean, and it's kind of like, well, that's cool, but you could have made it part of the story.
That would have been a badass scene.
Yeah, I thought that when I saw the movie. I said, why wasn't Jyn the one that... Because that moment the guy hands the plans through the door and gets stabbed, I think so brave. You know, because he knows the importance.
Well, also, I think that would have given the movie like a PG-13. Is it PG? I can't remember.
It's PG-13. It's PG-13.
Oh, it is? Okay. I guess
apparently
it would have been fine.
they shot a lot of R stuff in the original cut. Like, there was actually a lot more gore, but that, Disney cut that. Although I think it was I think that scene, that Darth Vader scene was actually pretty good PG-13. Like they did a pretty good job of making you feel the deaths. But yeah, I think if he would have killed, and honestly, each one of their deaths would have been so good. Like when he slashes one of them, it would have been one of the characters we followed throughout the whole movie. Like if he'd have just slashed Donnie Yen first off, we'd have been like, oh shit. And then if it would have been just him and her at the end, and then he would have put the dude up on the roof and slashed him in half, it would have added so much emotion to this movie because we followed these guys get to this point, and then they get killed in the very last 2 minutes because Vader shows up to fuck their shit up. And if they wouldn't have revealed Vader later in the movie, you wouldn't have been expecting it to happen. So it would have been 2 surprises in one. The movie would have kicked ass. Would have just taken.
Cool. So instead of a movie that I give a 4, you're describing a movie that I give a 5.
Basically,
I still
a
like
whole rating, though. A whole rating, because that does improve a lot of the third act. Because it would give the characters.
I still wouldn't have given a shit about the characters, though. No. They had no writing or acting or any qualifications or anything interesting going on.
I just think their deaths, instead of it being like, he see one of them die in these one-liners and stuff, it's seeing them all die together in the hallway would have been like pretty cool. It would have been a really cool scene to see as a Star Wars fan. It'd have been like, oh well, I didn't see you guys. I would have never thought you guys were gonna have Vader kill them all off like that, like brutally too.
Yeah. Had you told me, hey Dan, before you go and see this movie, all the main characters die in the battle at the end, how do they die? And that would have probably been one of the 3 things I would have said. They all die individually. They all die because they blow up the planet.
Yeah.
But never said Vader fucking.
It would have shocked everyone.
Mauls them down.
It
would have been better.
It would have been a great moment. You're sitting in a theater and they're about to get out and they're about to open the door and they're like, "We got it," and then you just hear. And then
and you would have been like, oh, all the main characters survived. Of course, this is a Disney Star Wars movie.
Then you'd hear Vader's voice, and you'd go, "They're fucked," and it would have been awesome. It would have been such. No, I saw the movie, and I go, it's so obvious that's what you should have done. Like they had a guy come in and reshoot and rewrite the movie, and you couldn't fucking figure. Like I figured this out, and I did not like. See, I figured out just watching it. None of you sat around and thought about this idea. Like to me, it was painfully obvious while you're watching. You're like, you guys just didn't give a shit. You said, "Hey, let's put a Darth Vader scene in here." It doesn't matter.
I got an addition. So before, like when they get into the room where they're all gonna get killed, like they walk up because they were supposed to meet the robot, that funny robot, and they find him, but he's all cut up with lightsaber slashes, and we're like, what are these marks? And then Vader lights up behind them.
Hold on. Someone's saying in the comments, Ant-Man, you're saying it's not a remake Iron Man. Actually, you're wrong on the history of that. Edgar Wright, when he came in with Ant-Man script in 2008 to Kevin Feige, they actually used a lot of the tone and structure from his Ant-Man script for Iron Man 1. So actually, if anything, Iron Man 1 is a remake of Ant-Man. And a lot of the stuff they came up with the basic comedic and him playing off the girl, it's very similar to Iron Man. I don't know how you don't see it. It's very similar in like... I mean, yeah, he's not an asshole like Tony Stark, but he is the comedic guy who doesn't take himself that seriously while he's in a costume, and he says a bunch of one-liners like Tony Stark. And the movie has a bad guy that's a guy that works at the corporation, like the other guy who gets another version of a suit at the end to fight Ant-Man. I mean, I can't believe you don't see this. It's obvious, and they based Iron Man, a lot of it, off... People don't get... Edgar Wright actually set a lot of the tone for the Marvel Universe. The script he brought into Kevin Feige for Ant-Man. They go, wow, we really like this. We want to make movies like this. And
Pat, have you seen those many videos they make about like putting A New Hope side by side with The Force Awakens? And they just describe the movie in like a basic way. It's like a droid with plans gets released on a desert planet, and so on and so forth. They tell the whole movie of both of them. You could do that with Ant-Man, Iron Man, and Doctor Strange. You could do it with all 3 of them.
Basically, yeah, and it's the main thing where it's... I mean, Ant-Man was a little different in the third act, that it was him and the guy fighting and getting smaller, and it wasn't like they were fighting in a city at the end, but, pretty much Marvel has the pattern where you know the character's arc from the beginning. He has a slight romance with the girl, there's some older character that's like a father figure... And they have it in every single one of the movies. And then usually the second, third act are almost exactly the same in most Marvel movies. Even if they're not the same from a screenwriting, they're like how they feel and how they're paced. Like just go look at the length of a lot of Marvel, or go look at like... It's like even if you matched up the shots, you could see that they clearly planned out these cuts. I don't have an issue with that. People seem to think I have a problem with that.
I mean, I do. I thought they both kind of sucked.
Yeah, I like Ant-Man. I definitely think Edgar Wright should have made the movie, though. I think you can see that he should have made the movie. But I like Ant-Man well enough. But I don't see how you can't see how it's similar to Doctor Strange is so similar to Iron Man. Holy shit! He's an asshole genius. You're just thinking like instead of getting taken in and tortured and kidnapped by terrorists, he loses his arms in a car wreck. It's basically the same thing, though. It's the same kind of arc, a guy rebuilding himself, changing who he is, getting super good at something. I mean, they do that through Marvel films all the time. That's a very similar... And their group films are basically like Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers. It's a group of assholes that have to learn to work together to save the day at the end because it's their individual problems that are holding them all back. It's the same character arc.
Yeah, I'm really done with these Marvel movies when they followed like the formula. It's like we've seen good comic book movies since then that break the formula, that don't have this giant fireworks bullshit ending. Like Logan is so fucking good. And what else has done it? I feel like Civil War changed a lot of things up. The ending was just like a very brutal fight between all these characters we love. It didn't have to be a nuclear war between a thousand disposable bad guys versus the cast.
Oh wait, there's some guy in chat, like, he's trying to argue with us about mundane things. He's saying that we don't interpret film right because we didn't. He said also Avengers 1, Avengers 2, and Iron Man 3 are totally not remakes of Iron Man. It wasn't like an absolute, like, you're exaggerating hyperbole to try and act like that we're generalizing everything. You're misunderstanding the conversation. But he's saying, I don't think you two can interpret films. Well, if you can't see the similarities between Ant-Man and Iron Man, then I don't know what to tell you because it's plain as day. Also, no, Iron Man's not totally based off the comic book where he's hurt in a firefight. It is a known fact that they based a lot of Iron Man's tone and Kevin Feige's Marvel off the Ant-Man script. Kevin Feige, because the Ant-Man script was the first thing they were working on, and I know they didn't cut any of the jokes out of the script final film. That's because they hired Adam McKay and another guy to come in and write the script, and they realized it sucked, so they went back to Wright's old script because it was better, and they kept all the good stuff from Edgar Wright's script. They were going to throw out Edgar Wright's script, and then they go, oh wow, the movie we came in and wrote sucks, and Edgar Wright actually wrote some cool stuff in here, and we'll keep those moments. But a lot of the stuff that was changed was Edgar Wright wanted to make a more quirky, visually dynamic film that wasn't just kind of like a typical MCU film. Yeah, typical MCU film, basically. Yeah, a guy getting his shit together, learning. I mean, God, they even have the thing where he's learning as he goes along, like Iron Man. Like, he's making the Iron Man suit, he's learning the Ant-Man stuff, he shrinks, Iron Man goes and test pilots and fucks up, Ant-Man fucks up being Ant-Man, and he gets better.
And they even connected it with Tony Stark.
No, they
dad.
did. It's so close. Yeah. Dude, I know Iron Man was injured in Vietnam with the suit. I know that is the comic. I've read those comics. I know those things. I'm telling you, the tone and structure of the movie was... you're not understanding. You have tunnel vision with this. I'm trying to explain to you. The tones of the Marvel films are very thought out by Kevin Feige to be a certain way so the films feel interconnected. They are planned to have... A lot of the directors don't even plan the final set pieces. The storyboards are done by other people because they have a cinematic plan. That's why the Marvel Universe works, is because for people, they feel like they're connected. They're supposed to feel like similar movies. That's a lot of the point. I don't talk about interpret films. The Winter Soldier is literally the only one, and that's why the Russos came in and did a good job, and that's why they got to do Civil War, because Joss Whedon made 2 movies. He made a sequel that felt too similar to his first movie. I know they updated where Tony got injured. They updated the Vietnam story. I'm just saying that a lot of the stuff they did, tonally, and the comedic elements, they liked Edgar Wright's pitch for Ant-Man, and Jon Favreau and Edgar Wright actually, they get along. There's the comedic tone that kind of Edgar Wright sort of brought in, and Kevin Feige has credited him for this. He said Edgar Wright kind of came in and added a lot of the comedic tone of the Marvel Universe because he was there early on, and then they just drifted apart over the years because by the time they got ready to make Ant-Man, the Marvel Universe had become something totally different. So the movie Edgar Wright wanted to make and the movie that Marvel wanted to make for Ant-Man, they just weren't at that point. You know, it was like, well, hey, we want to make 2 different movies here, really. But I still... That's
one thing I'd say I have a big problem with, that all the Marvel movies have the same fucking tone. They're all a little funny. They're all like adventure-y. They're all PG-13y. They're all like made by the same dude, kind of.
I love this guy says Iron Man's basically the original comic of Vietnam. No, it's not. Tony didn't come back from there and eat a Burger King burger and sit down on the floor and from a fast food joint.
Really nitpicky.
Yeah, it's kind of like, dude, you're doing an apples and oranges thing here. I've read those Iron Man comics. There's a lot of modern stuff in the first Iron Man movie that was not in the original Iron Man comic at all. That's just not true. The story structure is very similar, but Tony Stark's characterization, a lot of that was Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. In fact, the test screening that Robert Downey Jr. sent in was done by Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau kind of groomed Downey for the role, and Downey was like, "Hey, I want to be a movie star again. I'm ready to go. I'm cleaned up." And Favreau was like,
"Done with drugs."
Favreau's like, "Let's fucking do it." And they kind of built the character together. And the screenwriters that worked on that film, they wrote Children of Men, a great film, and that's why I think the first Iron Man has a really good story and script, because it feels like a movie. It doesn't feel like it's part of the MCU because there was no MCU. So, like, when Iron Man ends, you're like, oh, that was a movie. And then they set up Nick Fury at the end, and it's awesome. But that movie has a beginning, middle, and end, and it totally works as its own. You can watch that movie standalone, and it's fine. And I just wish Marvel did that a little bit more. Sometimes you have to see the other films to get things, and that doesn't bother me, but I don't know, it makes for sometimes films aren't, like, to me, Doctor Strange didn't feel like a movie. It felt like they needed to make a Doctor Strange movie, so they made a Doctor Strange movie. And they're like, hey, we need a quick montage where he becomes the best wizard in the world in 15 minutes because we need to rush to him being Doctor Strange so we can set him up in Infinity War. And they didn't really spend the time doing like 2 or 3 movies showing Doctor Strange get better with his powers like they should have done. They did it in one movie, and it's Rey in Force Awakens, you know?
It felt so out of place at the end, that post-credit ending when they have him sitting down with Thor and talking about, because he's established as the protector of Earth, and I need to escort you around when you bring Loki. It's like, when the fuck did this happen in the movie? Like when did you become this established person who's now a figurehead on planet Earth and defending it? It's like they knew where they were going. They had the ending that we need to set this person up to be a superhero, and so let's just fill in the blanks. We all know where we're going to end up. It's like there was no passion to really tell the story like they did in Batman Begins, to where it was a thoughtful process. It was just like, he's going to be a superhero, and that's all we have to say about that.
I love that you keep saying nitpick every time I point out where you're wrong about the comic. He said, coming back for me not eating the burger is not enough for it to be different. Dude, there's a lot different from that comic. The entire film analysis for where they show shot for shot how Marvel films are similar. Like, they have the exact same. It's like, we're not geniuses. We didn't figure this out. This is very common. In fact, Robert Cargill, the guy who wrote Doctor Strange, he had an interview where he talked about Kevin Feige was getting worried that the movies were starting to look too similar, and they wanted to change it up with Doctor Strange, and that's a big reason Doctor Strange's third act wasn't a big action set piece. It was him reversing time over and over again, because they wanted to do that, because Kevin Feige was talking to them and saying there's too much,
too many light beams shooting up into the sky, dude, with armies of disposable robots getting killed.
You're obsessed with this remake of Iron Man thing, dude. It was a joke. He was just saying it's a joke. He doesn't honestly think every Marvel film's a remake of Iron Man. That's like saying, hey, it's just a joke. Like it's just a joke people make about the movies. It wasn't like he was literally saying every movie's exactly like Iron Man. It's just too similar from movie to movie for my comfort. I wish the movies were different. And I agree with you. I think Winter Soldier was different, but that's why I like that movie. Everyone's pointed that out, that the Marvel films are, I don't know.
I think instead of everybody looking at Marvel to figure out what's going on, the MCU to follow, I think the MCU needs to take a few pages from X-Men and start changing their tone up. Start not really giving a shit about how it connects. Maybe just have passionate people come and make like a one-off movie that doesn't feed into 5 other sequels down the line.
Why did you raise it as a point? Because we're having a conversation, dude. I don't know. You're like listening to a live stream and trying to nitpick 2 people having a conversation talking about movies. You're trying to like analyze it. This isn't some video. We're just talking. Like, I'm sorry it doesn't meet your standards of film analysis and criticism. I'm sorry that we're not. I'm sorry we're not at your level. That we don't understand the brilliance of the Marvel Cinematic Universe like you. I'm sorry that I don't see the genius of Age of Ultron. My bad. But. Yeah, I think so. Let's get more back to your channel. How long have you been doing YouTube?
Fuck, man. I think since like 2008. Like, my channel's old. I just recently though started uploading more YouTuber content. I went to film school and I put up all my short films, and I recently put up a feature that I had behind a paywall on Amazon, but I just like, fuck it, I'll just put it on my YouTube channel for free and get some ad money off of that. Yeah, I just kind of put up whatever I feel like doing. I've got the next thing that's going to be up soon is this sort of long form podcast I shoot with a 360 camera because I think that's kind of interesting.
That sounds
It's
cool.
called Yeah, it's kind of it looks really cool. You get to flick around and look at my whole house. And we like the first one we made. We were just nitpicking this funny idea I had about micro virtue signaling, kind of a play on microaggressions. And the next one, I'm gonna destroy This American Life. There's a recent episode on fat shaming that is just begging for mockery.
Man, we had that conversation that we both used to love This American Life, and it's so social justice. For like the last like 2 years, 2.5 years, Ira Glass and what's the other guy's Mike? I can't. But if you don't
Me
know,
neither.
if you don't know, at one point in my life, I would have said This American Life is the greatest podcast of all time. I would have said that. There was a point.
Yeah, and you would have been right because
Yeah.
it's quality material. Like obviously, it's got a shitload of production value. It
Oh.
sets a standard for all these other like modern storytelling podcasts. Like all the shit of Gimlet Media is directly inspired from This American Life. It's groundbreaking in podcast, but now it's just turned into this SJW cesspool, and somebody needs to stop them.
I know, because I really like Ira Glass, the other guy, and I love the show because it used to be, let's go take these little things and do a brilliant analysis of it, and this show can be about anything, and they did like an HBO show, and it was great. And the format, like you said, it was the editing, the production value, like it put every other podcast to shame. Like it
They
was,
even had a live action show, didn't they, on like HBO or
they
some shit
did,
before?
yeah. It was great
Yeah.
too. It was like, it was perfect, and I was addictive, and then now like literally everything on all of NPR pretty much is as like so many of the articles I've covered on my channel or stuff has been from NPR and that stuff where it's like it's completely politically driven now, and I'm like, why is National Public Radio? It's like if you watch PBS and every time it was like F Trump when they did those ads, like please give money so we can keep funding PBS. Oh, by the way, fuck Donald Trump. And it's like, can we just get back to you guys making stuff where it doesn't matter? One guy asked in the chat, when are you guys talking about Star Wars? Well, we actually did talk about.
Yeah.
Marvel Studios should look at X-Men. Marvel Studios are raved more than X-Men films, and the X-Men films are convoluted mess. Last X-Men film was panned by critics and hated it. Well, to be fair, the last X-Men film was called Logan, and it has 93% on Rotten Tomatoes and made $617 million worldwide. And it's actually better reviewed than any Marvel film except for like Iron Man and Guardians. So actually, no. And the one before that was called, Deadpool. He's talking about Apocalypse. Oh yeah, Deadpool, that film that made $800 million worldwide on a $58 million budget.
Yeah, I guess Logan and X-Men film aren't X-Men films because they don't have X-Men in the title.
I think Marvel could learn something about the R rating aspect that Deadpool and Logan are playing with, because both of those movies...
Yeah, it sounds like they're backpedaling because Feige, saw something about this, but Feige used to be saying never going to make R-rated, and now he's like, it's not on the books right now, so he's not putting a rule against it anymore.
It makes no sense not to make like an R-rated Blade movie.
Yeah, especially when you see the source material. Like these comics, they don't give a fuck.
Well, pick the right character. Like it made like Daredevil on the TV. He's badass. Like they don't want to make the R-rated movies. It's like, well, pick the right character. Yeah, I don't want to see an R-rated Spider-Man movie. No one does. But I want to watch an R-rated like. I'd want to watch a fucking R-rated Blade movie in a heartbeat. Like, fuck yeah. And I would
a Punisher movie, if that ever comes out, it better not be PG-13.
Yeah, the show's cool, but I wouldn't mind seeing a movie either. I'd watch an R-rated Hawkeye movie where he's just like killing people with arrows and shit.
Or fucking Black Widow.
Yeah, I could watch. Yeah, R-rated, totally. It would make it brutal. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the X-Men but Fox is actually, if you actually look at last year's box office, Fox actually made more profit than Marvel. Deadpool was the second most profitable film of last year, and it made more profit than every Marvel film that came out last year. They made $350 million profit on Deadpool. So I don't think Fox has. I think Fox, if they did have a problem, they've fixed it, and they have their Iron Man now. I'd argue Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is as popular as Tony Stark's Iron Man, because when Iron Man came out, it was like overnight. Deadpool was the same thing.
Yeah.
Movie came out overnight, $365 million. I mean, the next movie's going to make $1 billion. Guaranteed. Yeah,
I just did a response video on some mom actress and wearing a Deadpool shirt just for no reason. It's like, oh, now all the wannabe nerds are rocking the Deadpool.
I love that Logan is not an X-Men film. Deadpool is Reynolds and Miller's film. So, okay, Logan, which is a sequel to the X-Men franchise, and the character only exists to people through the X-Men franchise, and the final shot in the film is an X in the ground, implying that these kids are going to be X-Men. I'd like to say it's an X-Men film. Also that they acknowledge the other X-Men. and Xavier's in it. So yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's a difference between an Avengers film and a film, but you're like, if you're talking X-Men in general, that technically is an X-Men movie, because you can't call it a Marvel movie because the Fox films are all X-Men movies, because that's their
That's
universe.
like saying Captain America: Civil War. Don't ever even compare that to Avengers movie. Completely different. It's like it could have been just as easily called an Avengers: Civil War.
Well, Apocalypse is from Fox. Well, so was Days of Future Past, and that was a great movie. And that's better than most of the Marvel movies. And so was X-Men 2 in the day, and First Class by Matthew Vaughn's a really good movie. I mean, the X-Men franchise is actually really critically acclaimed. Like, go look up the Rotten Tomato scores of, like, Days of Future Past. It has, like, 91%. First Class has, like, 87%. Like, the only film recently at Fox that got bad, the two were Fantastic Four and Apocalypse. But all of their other current superhero films have been huge hits.
Yeah, and Apocalypse didn't get that. It wasn't that bad.
No, and it actually still did okay. It still made like 550 million worldwide.
Like I would watch Apocalypse right now. I think I've seen it at least like 5 times or something. It's okay.
But you say that thing. See right there, you said Civil War made $1 billion. Yeah, but the profits were bad. See, Civil War cost $250 million and made $1.1 billion worldwide. They only profited less than $200 million on that because they had to do back-end pay. Deadpool cost $58 million and made $763 million and made Fox $350 million. Same thing with Logan. Logan cost $95 million, made $600 million. It's going to be more profitable than any Marvel film this year. It's probably going to clear $200 million. Fox is.
How do you just throw these numbers out there? Do you have this like written on the back of your eyelids?
No, I studied accounting and I know box office analysis. When people try to argue box office with me, it's just a bad idea. People try to do it with Covenant. They're like, Covenant's a hit. I go, no, it's not. No, actually, wait, how is Logan in a different universe unconnected from the Fox film when it acknowledges the previous films in the universe? So that makes...
that was some bullshit article that's been corrected. The director's corrected that. It's for as it sets right now, it's in the same world as the other X-Men movies.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, that makes no sense considering it's clearly a sequel in the X-Men franchise. So
that was some comment Hugh Jackman made that the director corrected.
Oh, okay, the director corrected. Okay, so that's not real information. Okay. Speak for yourself. I love I like Avengers too, dude. It's fine if you like...
Way more than Future Past? Come on.
Yeah, I love saying that. Well, you know why I like Days of Future Past more? It was a movie, not a commercial for...
for a bunch of other movies.
It was a better Terminator film than any Terminator film since T2.
Yeah, it's funny that Days of Future Past supposedly inspired Terminator a little bit.
I think James Cameron ripped off everyone. Harlan Ellis.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of definitive now. Yeah. I mean, he got sued for it.
I mean, dude, you think I don't like the Marvel films? I like Avengers, dude. I like Avengers. Like, when I saw it, I was the one liking it. He doesn't like it more than me. I'm not... I like Avengers. I don't like Age of Ultron.
I like Age of Ultron better than the first one, actually.
Yeah, see, we're different on that. I like the first one more, so... Just shows you people have different... I mean, they make so many Marvel films, you can't like all of them. Dude, I know what you say, Civil War, and Marvel's not the most profitable. I just told you that Deadpool literally made more profit than Civil War. So why do you keep saying Marvel's more... Star Wars is the most profitable brand out there. It's not Marvel.
It seems like... Came the Dawn thinks that profitable means made more money, like just amount of tickets sold.
Yeah, that's not how profit works. Star Wars Force Awakens cleared $1 billion in pure profits. Now, if you're talking merchandise, you may, but even then, Star Wars right now is showing to be Disney's most profitable franchise. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Deadpool made $350 million profit for the studio. Civil War didn't make that. The studio didn't get that money. It made $1 billion, but it cost like $400 million to market and produce that movie. So that's the difference here. Marvel movies are expensive. Fox is finding a way to make lower budget films and make bigger profits. And that's something I think is really cool. I think Marvel could benefit from making lower budget films too. I don't think every Marvel film has to be a $200 million movie. I think they could make a $90 million lower budget film like Hawkeye.
Yeah, all the shit they're doing on TV that everybody loves. Yep. Make something low budget like that and put it out in a movie.
I agree.
Make movies. That like joint venture that they put out as a new show, that should have been a movie.
I think it would be, The Defenders. I think it would be a huge hit to do more low budget, gritty Marvel films. I think because like Deadpool and Logan shows that you can make those movies and they can make 600, 700 million, and it's like...
Yeah, and they'll make just as much money, but then all of it will be profit.
Yeah, it'll be way more than because every time they make an Avengers film, the profits go down. because they have
And
to
then
pay more.
I don't have to deal with fucking flashes of lights shooting into the sky and armies of robots.
Well, of course it's personal preference when I say Days of Future Past is better than everything I'm saying is personal preference. Do I have to state something's an opinion before I state it? Like that's what anything like I like this movie better than movie. That's what an opinion is, bro. But I mainly I have hope for Last Jedi. Do you, Ryan Johnson? Made Brick, Looper.
It's hard. I mean, I know the director, so in just knowing that he's involved and he apparently is not getting fired and everything's going great with him, that's great. That's awesome. I'm happy that. I'm glad Disney got a lot of shit for The Force Awakens, so hopefully they've reacted to that. Like we don't like reactionary filmmaking, but in this occasion, I will make an exception. So I want this to not be a remake of Empire or anything like that. I want it to be an original story.
Ray gets her hand cut off at the end.
Oh my god! If they fucking keep doing this parallels, I'm gonna kill myself.
That would be hilarious if it ended with Ray getting her hand cut off by like Kylo Ren. That would.
I mean, Disney's got to know that all the fanboys that were protecting them before, they're like saying, "Oh yeah, we needed to do a sure hit to get Star Wars back on track." All these people that were defending you, they're not going to do it again because now they're like, now we can make an original, fresh story. So this better be an original, fresh story.
You're right. Last Jedi is the make or break film for Star Wars because a lot of people forgave Force Awakens under the assumption that the sequel would answer a lot of the questions and it would be a lot more original and become its own thing. And if it's not, you're going to see the reaction because I think they're not going to get the goodwill if they... Now, I think it's going to be a good movie. I think Rian Johnson, he directed Ozymandias on Breaking Bad, Fly. The guy knows how to shoot a fucking movie. If they let him do whatever he wants, then this will probably be a good movie. But,
Mark Hamill's pissed off. Did you know that?
Yeah, I've read that. He doesn't like what they did with Luke.
That's not fucking good. What are they going to do with Luke? Knowing all this SJW bullshit going on and Luke is a white male, are they going to turn him into like what they did with Captain America in the comics, where it's like, hey, he's been a member of Hydra the whole time, pandering to the SJWs because he's a white male?
If they make it where Luke's just this begrudging old white guy that sucks and Rey has to build him, I mean, that's just gonna piss me off so much. Like Luke's just because Mark Hamill, he came out even now and he said he didn't like the. I mean, I give Mark Hamill so much credit for being so honest in interviews and stuff about these new Star Wars films.
He does not give a fuck.
No, he clearly does not care if they would fire his ass because he knows how important he is to the whole thing. He's like, I'm Luke Skywalker, I own you.
I mean, he wasn't really working outside of voice acting before, and he's not gonna be doing anything after besides voice acting.
That.
So
yeah, he knows that. He knows this isn't gonna like kick his career off. He's like, oh, I was in Kingsman for 5 minutes. So yeah, he doesn't give a shit. So every interview I've seen with Mark Hamill, he's been totally on point. I mean, he even said like, yeah, I thought I was gonna get the lightsaber in the woods at the end of Force Awakens, and I was like, oh, Rey did. And it's like, yeah, even Mark Hamill knew. Like even he had it's clear that Mark Hamill. No, it's crazy too. When you ever hear stories, he wanted to do in Return of the Jedi. He wanted Luke to look like a samurai and have the hair thing, and he went to Japan and loved it. And he came up with all
what hair thing?
Like the way you know how they look in the prequels, the Jedi, like Anakin and them, where they have like the rat tails that Mark Hamill came up with that. He wanted Luke to look like that Return of the Jedi because he went and lived in Japan, and he came to George that. George said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then in the prequels, Mark said he went to go see them, and he was like, oh, that was that.
They're doing my idea.
That was that thing I suggested. No, he talks shit about George Lucas even. He's like, George is George.
He's not a people actor. He's not a people's actor-director. I heard him say that.
Yeah, he won't come and talk to you about your character and see. And New Hope shows that Mark Hamill's performance in New Hope is really lacking. You guys say that every year. I'm going to go work on the power converters. Then you watch Empire Strikes Back, a new director comes in, and he's like, you'll see I'm full of surprises. Way better. It's like, yeah, George Lucas really didn't direct... And Mark Hamill's come out and basically said that George Lucas didn't direct the actor. So the fact that Star Wars has good acting is just a miracle. That Harrison Ford's so good and Alec Guinness, because, like, George Lucas apparently is just not a very good actor's director, and I said that in my American Graffiti review. Because that was his one film he let actors improvise. Marvel Studios usually do not run up their budgets with marketing and reshoots. Actually, no, they have high budgets. What are you talking about, dude? Civil War cost $250 million to make, and marketing was like over $100 million. It's not their films are just expensive. Seems that the vast majority of critics, along with the audience support, show Marvel Studios are excellent, as well as Force Awakens and Rogue One. Okay, well, most people think the Transformers are good if we're going off box office. They make $1 billion. That doesn't make them good movies. Avatar's not the greatest film of all time because it made 2.7 billion. Look, Avatar's the highest grossing film of all time. It's the best film of all time.
Well, it's math. How can you argue with math?
Yeah, no, if something makes money, therefore it is good. If critics say something's good, therefore I agree and it is good.
Pat, I want to tell you what's really got me nervous about The Last Jedi. Despite it having a great director and the production seems to be going well, except for the Mark Hamill being a little pissy. What they've set up with Rey, I've spent so much time thinking about it. There's a theory video I made on my channel. I had this fun little theory about Rey being a clone. And, I'm pretty sure that's not going to be what they do.
Alien Resurrection?
Oh, yeah, something like that. I have a theory video on my channel, and I go into the idea that Rey is a clone of Kylo Ren, and it's kind of fun.
I definitely think Kylo's going to end up being good in the second or third film. I definitely think that's Kylo Ren's story arc. I'm almost certain he's going to end up being like a redemption arc.
Whatever they do, like Rey is the star of these new movies, and they have to use her for the rest of these films. So no matter how great they are, they have to use what they set up The Force Awakens with her, and they've set up garbage. Like that's how much I had to rack my mind to make up something that made sense, like call her a clone of Kylo Ren, and I made up this crazy story. There's no way to make this a good character. Like there's no amount of backstory to fill in to make Rey make sense, what they've set up. She's not the daughter of Luke because it doesn't make sense, and she's not the daughter of Han because it doesn't make sense. She's actually just a stranger who somehow knows the Force, and I don't know what they're gonna do. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think it's gonna make sense.
Rey doesn't work for me at all because I don't listen. Like the person says, they need to do Rey's character. I agree with you. I just wanted her to be a good character. I didn't want her to be Mary Sue, and she was. When Max Landis said that, as much as I hate that guy, he was dead on. He said she was written like a fan fiction character. Because Mary Sue is written by someone who's projecting themselves into the movie, and all I read from Rey was Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams going, "Oh my god, if I was a Jedi, I would be super..." It was like kids playing on a playground. Like, "Oh my god, Rey's gonna beat the bad guy because I'm stronger than you now, because I got better powers." It's like... Like, it totally portrays what the original trilogy was. Obi-Wan, like, he dies in the first movie. Luke gets his hand cut off in the second movie. He's not really trained until Return of the Jedi. In Force Awakens, Rey beats a bad guy. It, like, kills all of the whole, like... Even if Kylo comes back and defeats her in the second movie, it'll be less interesting just by the fact that in the first movie she kicked his ass.
Even if she was trained in the Force as a kid, that still doesn't make it work. Like, she doesn't have the Force anymore.
It's cheap.
There's no way to make... They can't fix what they already fucked up in The Force Awakens, and being that she is at the core of these new movies makes me very skeptical that they're gonna be able to fix what they already fucked up.
I didn't straw man you. This guy, no, most critics do not feel Transformers is good. You misrepresented what I said. I said majority of critics and audience support together. Yeah, Deadpool was more... Deadpool, what does that mean then for Deadpool? Are you saying Deadpool wasn't loved by audiences and critics? Do you know Deadpool sells more merchandise than a lot of the MCU characters and has for a decade? It's not a straw... I didn't straw man your argument, you... Oh, Jesus Christ. No, you were saying numbers and critics. You were trying to use both. It doesn't... It's still an arbitrary thing to say. You're just using the reviewers and the critics to back up your opinion because you think I don't agree with you for some reason. It's an argument from authority. You don't want to argue for yourself, so you want to say, well, critics disagree with me. Well, who cares if they agree with you? I don't care. Everyone thought Metallica was... If Metallica was the biggest...
Take that fallacy.
Yeah, it's your fallacy within fallacies. You've been doing nothing but strawmans about things I've said. You've just been strawmanning my whole thing. You've been like taking points out of context and trying to make it sound like you're more harsh than I am.
Man, I remember when I had my first philosophy class in college.
It does feel like
they taught me about these fallacies, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna start pointing out everybody's fucking fallacies." It does
feel like a young person who's like really into Star Wars and Marvel and pissed off that somebody doesn't like just worship at the altar of it. Like, oh my god, you're nitpicking every little thing. Every Marvel film's great. I love all of them. Thor 2's perfect. It's like, Jesus Christ. Like, I'm trying to talk about fucking Star Wars here. Yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of I will say, though, I like Poe and Finn. I really do. I think they needed way more character, but I did like...
They have good chemistry, so it's hard to not like them.
I wasn't a big fan of Daisy Ridley either. That was also... No, Ray. No, that argument that Luke is a Mary Sue by the logic of Ray. I just disproved that by explaining to you how Luke had 3 different movies where he got defeated, and Ray beat her main bad guy in their first movie.
I mean, Max Landis defeated that a million times. Just go back
Yeah,
in internet time and look at what Max
yeah.
Landis has said
Actually, you
about
can
it.
break down Luke perfectly not being a Mary Sue. He fucks up a lot in the first Star Wars film, like continuously, and he isn't OP. He actually at the end is still pretty bad at what he does, so that's just not true. You are still strawmanning, man. Never said. I didn't say you didn't say Deadpool was a good movie. You said critics and audiences agree, and you were saying Fox films suck, and I pointed out 2 Fox films in a row that were successful. I'm just saying 2 Fox movies that came out were successful, and they're probably going to have sequels that make money with Deadpool. You're making this some black and white thing, dude. You can call it straw man all you want. You've been acting like a dick for like several chat comments now, and you're instead of just having a conversation. But let's say that they do explain Rey's backstory, that Luke dropped her off and she had special powers. She's a reincarnation of Anakin Skywalker. That's what a lot of people are saying. And she's you know. What if they do give you all the flashbacks to Jakku and her going there, and they do explain that? What if they give you everything that answers it great? Would you then be like, okay, Force Awakens is better now? If they explain
That's a
all
very
that
good.
stuff.
That's a yes. If they somehow are able to tie this together to where I realize that they had actual thought behind everything that they did in The Force Awakens, I will feel better about the movie, and I will feel like it's a smarter, more but I sincerely doubt that. It looks like earlier we were talking about how the writers of Breaking Bad didn't know what Walt was going to do with the M16, and that's how I feel about the Force Awakens. I really don't think they know exactly what's going on with Rey, because there aren't any hints. There are hints that there's nothing there to.
Also, I think J.J. Abrams is really terrible at setting up mysteries that have payoff. Like, I've never liked any of his mystery payoffs in any of his movies and shows. Like, the mystery is more exciting than the payoff. So I'm really worried if Abrams does have a plan, what it is. I would hate to be Rian Johnson. Let me put it that way. It felt like they handed him this movie and they said, "Here you go. You have to make this all work." Because he has way more pressure.
If I had to guess, I'd say they're not going to really explain Rey's backstory in a satisfying way. They're going to leave it mostly a mystery. I don't think we're going to know how she defeated Kylo. Like, that's not going to be.
Wait,
that's not going to be explained.
I got to point this out. Vast majority of critics and audiences disagree with you. Actually, Days of Future Past got better reviews than the Avengers. If you go look on Rotten Tomatoes, Days of Future Past, the top critics is 94% with the 7.8, 91 7.6. Avengers has an 8 with a 92%, and top critics 85. But if you go look at Metacritic, Days of Future Past has a 74, and Avengers has a 69 out of 100. So critically, actually, Days of Future Past was a better reviewed movie. It did not make as much money as Avengers, so you're right. But actually, Guardians of the Galaxy even got better reviews than the Avengers, if you want to be really technical about it, and Days of Future Past. I said that The Last Foxman was not a good film. Marvel Studios has nothing to learn from Fox. Deadpool is Reynolds a movie, still strawmanning me. No, you were like implying that like Fox sucked in general, and you were just saying like X-Men films rather broadly. You weren't as specific. You said Apocalypse after I said things for you to clarify, so I wasn't strawmanning you. You were not giving all of the information to what you were saying in the paragraphs and stuff. You were being very broad. So no, you can keep saying strawman all you want, but. I agree with you. If they do add that stuff, that would fix it for me in a lot of ways, but it would still make me feel like Force Awakens just could have been a better movie without that stuff anyway. Like, I didn't need Force Awakens to have all these mystery box stuff. My favorite...
Yeah, I mean, none of the prequels did any shit like this. Yeah. None of the original trilogy did any... These are all supposed to be standalone films that stand... Like, you can watch any of these movies without even having watched the previous ones and still enjoy it. Like everything you can imagine, okay, I don't know how these characters met, but now I know they're friends, and this is what happens in the movie, and it makes sense. Like, here... It doesn't make any sense if you know how the Force works and you see Rey be a nobody and then just have the Force. That's the whole story of the movie, and there's nothing to make any sense of that, and we're told to just wait till the next one, and we don't even know if the movie doesn't really even present you as like, hey, this is a very deliberate mystery we're giving you. They don't even do that really in the movie. They just sort of let her have the Force, and they don't really present that as if it's not weird.
I like a couple moments. I like when she says to Kylo, "You want to be Darth Vader." I think that scene kind of works. I don't like that she just does the Jedi mind trick like right after that to James Bond. Um, and I like when she's kind of, although the movie's kind of confusing because she's like, "Oh, Luke Skywalker, I thought he was just a myth," and it was like 30 years ago. And you think this guy
Yeah.
was like, no one's alive today that remembers fucking Luke Skywalker. Like the whole
I feel
timeline to the First Order and all that was so like they. That's the stuff I really wanted to explain. Like, could you at least somewhat for me establish the timeline of 30 years between this somewhat so I can at least get a good sense of the First Order?
have we even figured that out yet? To the like have all these shitty books that must have come out.
That's all
Do
it
we
is.
know who the
It's
First Order
homework.
is?
That's all it is. It's
Yeah.
homework. They don't
Then I
want
have
to
to do
explain it
a
in the
fucking book
movie.
report.
They're like, hey, it's Snoke. Snoke's this evil bad guy that just exists, and he's in this universe, and the First Order's evil now, and the rebellion is the Resistance now, and it's like, okay, could
Why
you?
doesn't why doesn't the New Republic destroy the First Order? Why are we dealing with the Resistance fighting against it? Is there an explanation for that yet?
I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Raise a scavenger and learn to live more rugged, physically self-sufficient life, and able to do things Luke couldn't. Yeah, that's fine, but we're talking about the Force. We're not talking about physical things. Like, we're not talking about lifting weights. We're talking about, like, it's been established in the Star Wars trilogy that you have to train to get Jedi powers. I just want some consistency. I don't like seeing somebody. It's like me, dude. It's like at the end of the first Harry Potter film. If Harry Potter was like an OP wizard and kicked Voldemort's ass, that would suck. It takes him 7 fucking movies to do it. Like, Kylo seems. It makes the whole villain and thing because Rey seems too strong. You could have ended that movie with the planet splitting them and it's saving Rey's life from being killed by Kylo. Instead, it basically saves Kylo from getting her like taken out by Rey, which is not how you should end a movie.
The movie's villain is a punk ass bitch.
It should be the other way around, where like she gets by just in last minute, and that's just basic storytelling. That's like just, I mean, anyone can do that. It's so ridiculous. Like, you don't make your lead character that strong and make all of the tension just go away. It's like whenever Rey does anything, the whole movie when I was watching, I was like, well, she's perfect at everything. Of course she can fly the Millennium Falcon. Oh, she doesn't need them to help her. She's gonna crawl out of this little thing and escape on her own. Oh, she doesn't.
Don't hold her hand.
She doesn't need her hand. Yeah, the whole movie was that way. It was like she acted like she never needed freaking help. The only time she ever seemed in distress is when Kylo got her that first time, and then she kicks his ass like 20 minutes later. Like
And as much as we want to go into like the Last Jedi is going to answer all these questions, it's a little convenient that all these mysteries that bug us also seem to help feminism. It's all making her seem like a much more powerful character. So it's almost like there isn't an explanation, and they just wanted to appease Kathleen Kennedy's need for throwing a virgin at the SJW volcano.
it felt
I
very
don't know if
Amy
that makes sense.
Pascal. It felt very Amy Pascal Ghostbusters stuff. Like, I mean, I don't think it was. I think a lot of it was Abrams too. I think Abrams wanted a perfect female character that would be. I just think they didn't really think Rey out. They had ideas for Rey, but they didn't want to sit down and like. There's a moment, right, where she sets and puts a helmet on, and she's kind of like pretending to be a pilot. It's a really nice moment. You know, need more.
Except
of that.
she is a pilot. Why is she
Yeah,
pretending?
we need more of that. Yeah, we need more of that. Like, I didn't know there was so much green in the galaxy, you know? But, like, everyone immediately falls in love with her when they meet her. They seem to forget in New Hope that, like, pretty much a lot of people don't like Luke. Luke just kind of, he gets people to like him. But, like, yeah, Finn falls in love with her. Han falls in love with her. Leia falls in love with her. She gets to hug Leia after Han dies, not Chewie. I mean, even Abrams said he fucked that up. He said, why do I have Chewie walking by Leia after Han died and have Rey? He said that. He goes, I shouldn't have framed that shot that way. It's like, yeah, dude, it's stupid. Why would Chewie just walk by and be like, hey, Leia, Han just died. No big deal. Nope, I said the last X-Men film, Apocalypse, was panned by critics. Deadpool is not the last Fox-Men film, and it's Reynold Miller's Logan. I understood it's not in Fox-Men universe, so straw man.
I've never heard this term Foxmen, but I like it.
Yeah, it's Foxman, Strawman, just. I love that the scavenger aspect again. You still don't get it, dude. I don't get it because it's written boring and shitty. You're just adding things to the movie to make it more interesting. Showing 15 minutes of Rey being a scavenger doesn't give her super Jedi powers. That's bad writing. I don't care if Abrams shows around 15 minutes doing stupid shit on a planet, making a muffin and scavenging. That doesn't mean that she should be super strong with the Force. The Force has no ties to physicality. Yoda is one of the top masters with the Force, and he is small. It's a line in Empire. Size does not matter. It doesn't matter if Rey's a scavenger or not. That has nothing to do with the Force. Like, that's established in Star Wars. It's like, it wouldn't matter if Rey was strong or weak. She's just magically strong with the Force because the movie requires it. Nice.
I've got mail.
You've got mail.
Gillette razors. Don't worry about it. All right, where were we?
Well, I don't think we're at the chat's just going off on this person now, so I don't. We spent like 40 minutes debating this guy.
Hey, chat room, deal with the autism for us.
Yeah, why don't you guys just deal with this? Because I'm sick of it, so I'm just gonna keep talking to you so we can avoid this cancer. Because I can't get through. They seem to think every time that I look at their generalizations and point out problems, then it's a straw man. It's like, okay, if you don't want to see Logan as an X-Men film, that's on you, but it's an X-Men film. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, here's my big fear. Episode 9. Colin Trevorrow, Safety Not Guaranteed, Jurassic World, Book of Henry, total studio director, seems like a total, like, I'm worried that film's going to be generic as shit. I'm worried that's going to be, because I do not like Colin Trevorrow at all.
What'd you say? What else has he made?
Safety Not Guaranteed was his first film, and I like that movie. But it's a very low-budget indie film. Very low budget. I mean, like, I doubt it cost $1 million to make. Then he made Jurassic World, which I did not like at all. And I think they hired him for that, and I'm worried his movie's going to be Jurassic World, where it's just a bunch of stuff that we saw before, which is what I didn't like about 4. Like, Jurassic World, apparently from what I read, Spielberg even storyboarded most of the film, and Trevorrow just shot storyboard Spielberg came up with. But, like, that movie, every shot in that movie's taken from some other fucking movie, and everything's like, don't you remember this in Jurassic Park? And I think...
Yeah, it's full of member berries.
He's a bad pick. He worries me. Because, like, Rian Johnson's a great pick. It's like, why are you getting this guy? Please hire, like... I'd be so much more confident in this film trilogy if I knew the last film was being directed by someone else. Like,
just give the last two to Rian Johnson.
Yeah, well, he's writing a story treatment, but yeah, I don't know. I guess he can't prep the production, but like, Cary Fukunaga, someone. There's got to be someone out there. The guy who did True Detective season 1. There's got to be someone out there you can go pay to come do a fucking Star Wars. Like,
or give it to the chick who directed that bomb movie. And Point Break.
Oh, Catherine Bigelow, yes.
Yeah, give it to Catherine. You can virtue signal about a female director,
dude,
too. I
That'd
won't
be
mind.
badass, though. Catherine Bigelow's great. That'd be like James Cameron directing. I'd fucking love Catherine Bigelow's episode 9. Yeah, do that. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's a great pick. That's honestly a great pick. Yeah, right there, like, yeah, get somebody that excites us. Like, basically, you give us J.J. Abrams, who's a big name. Then you give us, like, the indie art house guy, Rian Johnson. And then you give us this guy who's, like, the studio director. It's very similar to George Lucas, Irvin Kershner, and Richard Marquand in the original trilogy. It's very odd how similar the directors are in that, like, you have the one guy that's the more drama artsy guy and the one guy that's clearly just hired to shoot the movie while the studio, because, like, Richard didn't direct Return of the Jedi. Lawrence Kasdan basically directed Return of the Jedi. He basically ghost directed that movie. I'm worried that's going to be episode 9. It's going to be like the producers make that movie and he just goes and shoots it.
Because the director's kind of a pushover?
He felt that way with Jurassic World. That felt like a movie that was all producers. And he had to fight to keep scenes in that movie, like the scene where the dinosaur... Like, he had a lot of different ideas, and they were like, no, it's about the theme park. Stay in the theme park. And yeah, I didn't like that movie at all. But I'm scared about Episode 9. I'm scared about the Han Solo movie for sure.
I mean, if that is not terrible... I will be shocked.
Yeah, no,
I mean, I'm sure everybody will like it, but I'm not gonna like it.
No, if it's not terrible, you're right. Like, if it's just like even okay, I will be completely surprised and be like, wow, that was like.
The only reason I went to see Rogue One in theaters is because I got like a free ticket on T-Mobile Tuesday or something. So I'm not gonna go see Han Solo unless I get some sort of freebie. I'll see the Last Jedi though. I'm definitely gonna go see that because I need to know how they fucked that up.
That's the one, yeah. What's so funny, because, like, even if people love Han Solo, I'm going to be worried, because, like, Force Awakens, you went online and it was, like, 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, amazing, and you watch, you're like, oh. You're like, never mind. I guess I don't always go. It's like
the Ghostbusters reviews. That movie still sits on, like, 80% or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, and all the reviews mention that it's a woman movie.
Speaking of which, do you want to talk about Wonder Woman a little bit? I
Yeah.
didn't you make a review of that? Because
No,
I
I
feel
did
like
not review
everybody.
it. I did
No.
not. No.
So I didn't hear you talk about it.
No. I brought it up. I've talked about it in
Hmm.
videos. I just haven't done a
All
movie
right,
review.
I fucking hated Wonder Woman. Did you like it?
I'm mixed on it, and it's overrated, and I definitely think the critics are giving it a pass because that's the first DC film that's not total trash. And like there's actually scenes in it that aren't like I think Chris
I
Pine.
didn't think it was any better than Suicide Squad.
My argument would be, okay, I don't know. I think Suicide Squad is the worst film editing I've ever seen in a movie. Like I've never seen editing that bad before. Like I Wonder Woman at least has like transitions that make sense sometimes. Like Suicide Squad's just like holy crap. I don't know. I really like Chris Pine in, and I thought he kind of made the movie.
Yeah, he was great.
I thought him.
But Gal Gadot can't act. She needs to go back to acting school. And
I thought Chris Pine really was like kind of like the first time a DC movie had humanity in it, the new ones where it was like, oh, this guy feels like a real guy, and I like him, and I like how he's playing off her, and I actually think he's the Margot Kidder, he's the Lois Lane in that movie, if the original, like he actually is part of the charm of the whole thing.
yeah.
And I like seeing a man play the Lois Lane. I think that's clever. That was my favorite part, and the scene where she goes like no man's land. Hated the
What
villain.
scene's that?
The scene where she go, you know, the Trent, where she first goes out and like they're shooting at her and she knocks the bullets and she out of the trenches, and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I like that scene. Hate the villain. Hate the third act. Oh my god, CGI fest. Was not expecting that. Didn't really like the first 15 minutes. Thought the little girl actress was awful, like really bad. And
that whole beginning added nothing to the movie, added nothing to her character. All they
I
did
didn't
was
like it,
was
yeah.
keep banging us over the head that she has some secret past, which we already pretty much knew what it was, and they treat it like it's this big mystery. You could have cut out the whole beginning of the movie. Could have started when his plane crashed, and then you could have probably cut out 20 minutes of all this bullshit. And
I would have liked that better. I didn't like the origin story of the mascara or whatever. I didn't. I thought I would like it because I thought it'd be cool. Like Thor. The only thing I liked in the first Thor movie was Asgard. I hated everything on Earth when he got on Earth. I thought, you know, Asgard with Loki. This is kind of cool. This is a little bit more dramatic than the Marvel movies, and the aesthetics are cool. And then he goes to Earth, and it's just a remake of Masters of the Universe. But literally, it's He-Man all over again. But this movie, I was kind of like, yeah, and no, I'm with you. I guess it's just the issue where I feel like movies the last few years, like, they're all trying to be a Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they don't realize Marvel did that organically, and they're trying to make Star Wars a cinematic universe, and it's like,
yeah.
I don't want a cinematic universe for every fucking movie. I don't want the cinematic universe of Jurassic Park. I don't want the cinematic universe of the Universal monster movies. They already did that back in the day. I saw the cinematic universe of Universal. It's like, it feels like Fast and the Furious is about to have some kind of crossover with some other franchise coming up. So, like I'm ready for like Vin Diesel to just come into like X-Men or something or Deadpool and be like, "What up? Let's do this." What am I saying? That sounds fucking awesome. Like
That sounds cool.
Fast and the Furious and Deadpool. I'm like, all right, never mind. That's great.
No, it's Fast and the Furious and Triple X. They're probably a shared universe.
If he plays,
they're
both
probably
characters,
the same fucking character. He's the same character.
He just
he's
switches lives.
Yeah.
I'd love it. Greatest movie of all time. Like, sign me up. You were gonna say something though.
What was I? Oh, I was at okay. Basically, you hit up all the things that are my major problems with Wonder Woman, but somehow that doesn't equate bad movie to you. And I feel like everybody is jumping at.
I didn't say it was a good movie. I just said it was okay. I don't think it's a good movie either. I think it's like, like I like it's not a good movie either. I wouldn't call it a good movie. Like I wouldn't.
I thought X-Men Apocalypse was way better.
That's a controversial thing to say, but I actually thought it was more interesting. I think it was flawed in a lot of the same ways with the editing and stuff. I thought Apocalypse as a villain sucked, and I didn't like Ares in the same way I didn't like Apocalypse. Where it's like, this guy should just be gone. I don't like this guy. He's annoying. It's stupid. I much prefer the other stuff going on in this movie than this stuff. Like, I preferred the Wonder Woman with her group of guys, World War I, Chris Pine story. Like, that to me should have been, like, pretty much just everything. But I don't like the Wonder Woman shit, really. It just didn't work for me.
One thing about the ending, that ending battle, everybody's right. It's a huge light show. It's hugely cliche. But the worst part is, since we've never seen the bad guy before, and we've never really seen Wonder Woman, like the worst thing we've seen her fight is that creature from Batman v Superman, and she was holding her own against that thing that killed Superman. So she's pretty much the most powerful being on Earth versus a god. So we have no idea what the limits of these characters are. So every time we hit each other, we don't know if they're hurting each other. Every time the bad guy throws it's meaningless. It's a fireworks show. We don't even know who can hurt each other. So that's why there's no tension.
Okay, let me throw another one out at you. This is fun going down this rabbit hole of stuff, the future of movies and all that, what's going to be good or not. Do you shit, I had some big movie in my head and I was like, what do you think about this? Because it's like another Star Wars and Alien type situation where it's like, I don't know where this franchise is going to... Crap, I can't remember what it was. Oh, you know what I'd like to see, those Star Wars that I want to bring up? You made me think of something. You said back when they were doing the prequels, there was all this extra stuff. Did you ever see Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars cartoon?
Yeah, I have seen some of that. I do like it a lot.
I love it. That's the guy, if people don't know, did Samurai Jack, Dexter's Laboratory...
Yeah. Yeah, especially I love when Grievous shows up. It's really awesome. They make him into like a scary character.
No, what's funny is I saw him before I saw Revenge of the Sith because that came out before, and I was like, man, I can't wait to see this guy in Revenge of the Sith. And then he's like awful in Revenge of the Sith, like because he's so no. But I'll say this right now. Here's what I want. I'm gonna throw this out at you. Pixar animated Star Wars film directed by Genndy Tartakovsky in the tone of Clone Wars. Disney gives Pixar carte blanche, hires Pixar writers. You let them make a animated film with Genndy Tartakovsky getting to do it his way. Star Wars. That's what I want. I think Pixar and him could make the Star Wars film that we all want where it's not like the other ones. Because what he did with that was he made the prequels feel cool. He made Anakin cool. He took all the shit that George Lucas did wrong in the prequels and actually made it work in 5-minute shorts. And he actually expanded on the universe better. I think... I'm not saying maybe him specifically, but I want to see a Pixar star... Like, maybe even Brad Bird. Like...
That's in part why there's so many people defending the prequels, because the Clone Wars, both of the cartoons, is such a good job of sort of filling in the reasons why this stupid shit happened in the movie. It's because, it was set up in the Clone Wars show. They really went out of their way to make the prequels not as terrible as they are. And if you've seen that material, by shitting on the prequels, you're kind of, by an extension, shitting on these great cartoons.
That's true. Yeah, I hate that people see it that way, but what I'm saying is I think Disney... I want to see a Star Wars cartoon. Like, because the action scenes he did, you can really only do in animation. They rarely wouldn't work totally in live action.
Yeah, they were kind of very similar to the shit in The Force Unleashed, weren't they?
Yeah, but in animation... Oh, dude, that one sequence where he has, like, all the clone troopers get taken out and their, like, heads are getting torn off through the woods, it's amazing. It's such a good sequence. But yeah, I just want... Yeah, that is what I want Disney to do more of. I didn't want them to shut down LucasArts. I didn't want us to get a shitty Battlefront game from EA that wasn't anything that we wanted, that was awful. It had less features than a game that came out over 10 years ago, which makes no sense. And it screwed up a lot of things. I thought we were going to get more badass games, more, and we really haven't. The universe feels smaller than it did like 10 years ago.
If anything, we have less because they canceled all these great games that were in development.
They did.
Like that fucking Boba Fett game.
Oh, that game was
And
badass.
what else did they cancel? There was a Darth Maul game that got killed.
They were doing like that Uncharted game, like D13 or like Star Wars 13 or something that like
13, yeah.
Yeah, that was supposed to have like third.
Yeah, dude, everybody was hyped for that, and
so
they killed that for no reason at all. It was fucking ridiculous.
No, that's just like, and then like they were supposed to be developing all these TV shows, all that went on, and it's like, I wish you guys would have kept some of this stuff. Because some of it was really cool. And, like, George Lucas, I didn't want him on it, but I wanted some of this stuff made. Now it's like they're starting from scratch, kind of, and I don't think that was a good idea. I think they should have spent... It felt like they rushed to make Force Awakens on that 2015 release date. Like, they didn't spend...
Oh, man, that was part of their announcement. It's like, we bought Star Wars, and here's the release date of the new movie.
Yeah, it's this thing now where they have release dates before... Like, the Han Solo movie. They had the whole release date before the movie. They're like, we're going to release the Han Solo movie May 25th, 2018. And now they're in production hell, and it's like... Make the movie first, come up with the movie for a few months, then go into the production and filming and everything. Don't just like...
Yeah.
It doesn't help. I think it's a bad idea to put that release date. I know movies have deadlines, but they pressure the filmmakers to deliver a blockbuster of a certain caliber by that date, and they don't get to figure the movie out. They don't get to figure out... They call it when you crack the movie, when you figure out what the movie is. You're like, oh, this is what my movie is. Sometimes you don't figure that out until you're filming halfway through. Sometimes you figure it out in pre-production. Sometimes you figure it out in post in the editing room. But I don't think they're giving a lot of these directors time to find their movie. You know, maybe
Yeah,
Lord
they need
and
to
Miller,
learn that expression that they do in games a lot, which is it'll be done when it's done.
Yeah, we have to wait. Maybe Lord and Miller were figuring their movie out and they needed more time. Maybe they needed more time to go back and you know, I know they didn't want to do the reshoots, but you know, maybe Disney didn't spend enough time before that developing that movie and all the parties agreeing what they wanted to make. I think that was an issue. You know, they just like, hey, we have these two big name directors, let's go into production. And
I'll agree that if they do make this CGI cartoon you were talking about a little bit while ago,
yeah,
they need to make movies with the original cast a little bit older, because now that we're in the CGI realm.
Wait, Mark Hamill voice acting Luke Skywalker. Yeah, that's hilarious. Exactly. He's playing his two. Mark Hamill voice acting Luke Skywalker might be the most meta thing ever if that happens. I swear to God, that'll blow my mind.
We need to see the Kylo Ren story of how he got brought in. We need to see how Leia got knocked up.
I'm totally up for that. If they want to do an animated Kylo Ren prequel story that tells that 30-year story of what, yes. I'd watch the shit out of that movie.
I would watch the shit out of it too.
There was this little comic that was more emotional than any scene in Force Awakens, where it's so Chewie, and it shows him with Kylo as a little kid, and he's playing with his crossbow with Kylo, and it's showing him grow up through the years with him as a teenager, and then Kylo starts to separate from his family, and then the last panel of the comic is Chewie pointing his crossbow at Kylo and then pointing it away from his head down to his the abs where he shoots him so he doesn't kill him, and he has a tear coming down. It's like, you know, that's more emotional than any sequence in the entire movie, because you actually gave a backstory and you fleshed it out in like 6 panels in a comic book. And it made me...
Yeah, it's funny. I've never thought of that, like, Chewie... like, I always saw Chewie shooting at Kylo as reactionary because he shot Han, but Chewie's shooting somebody who's known as... Chewie's known that kid his whole life.
He's an uncle.
And now he shot him. Yeah.
They almost don't even make it a thing, and that should be a big emotional moment. And the comic...
No, this is the first time I ever thought about that.
Yeah, it's in the comic, you watch it and you almost get like a little teary-eyed. You're like, man, that's really emotional. I didn't think about that. In the movie, it's kind of like Chewie's just kind of like...
I think they should make Kylo Ren the star of these new movies. I think he should be the main character because he's the most interesting character.
Here's what I want. Here's my crazy fucking theory. And I don't think it's going to happen. Here's what I want. I want Rey to become bad and Kylo to become good. I want Rey to become a Sith and join Snoke, and I want Kylo to join Luke in the 3rd movie. I
think that's probably what's going to happen.
I think that's a good idea. I really do. Reinvent the original trilogy, reverse it, have Rey actually end up becoming worse as the movies go on. But the problem is Luke already failed training Kylo, but the thing could be maybe Luke didn't fail in training Kylo. There may be a greater purpose. So I'm hoping that, the hope is Kylo in the 3rd act turns to the light side, and then Rey completely embraces the dark side.
I mean, we already saw that was already pretty much set up in The Force Awakens, with being how he was tempted. And now in the trailer, we see his helmet smashed. So that can only mean he's sort of moving away from his dark side.
And somebody pointed out something brilliant to me. You know, he's supposed to have a permanent scar on his face now after Force Awakens. Rian Johnson removed it. He took it away. Kylo doesn't have the scar on his face in Last Jedi.
Haven't I seen it?
No. He's supposed to have a scar like right down the bridge of his nose. Now there's like a slight little. It's supposed to be originally. It's supposed to be brutal. Like he got cut the F up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Rian Johnson came out and he said, "No, I changed it. I changed it to face." I think that's on purpose because I think Kylo's going to be good, and I think you need to see him as a light figure.
So they don't want to have a horrible disfigured fucking face if he's going to be a good guy.
And also, Rey being stronger than him would make more sense in The Force Awakens if she ends up being bad, because then you would be worried like, fuck, Kylo can't beat Rey. She kicked his ass. So then that would make the 3rd film more interesting.
And that would leave a lot of explanation for like what could Mark Hamill be talking about. So if his student goes evil, maybe he fights her or something, and that maybe that's Mark Hamill's problem with that. Maybe he's like, he would never fight his student. He would never punch a woman.
I hate that they don't let Mark Hamill have more say, because every interview I hear him talk about the characters, he seems to understand them more than anyone else ever has. Because Mark Hamill's like, he's a comic book nerd. He's a geek himself.
Yeah. I agree.
He knows this stuff. It's like what I always said with WB, why they didn't hire Paul Dini and Bruce Timm from the Batman animated series and Justice League, why they never hired them to do the DC cinematic? Kevin Smith said it to him in the 90s. He went to a meeting and said, why don't you get these guys? They do the best Batman shit ever. And they're like, oh, those guys do cartoons. And Kevin Smith was like, it's like the best Batman writer ever is Paul Dini. And it's like, fuck it. No, and those guys basically do an Avengers movie every week. Like with Justice League Unlimited, every episode was like Avengers. Great dialogue, character interaction. And, yeah, I think Mark Hamill, it sucks he didn't actually have way more say in this, because every time he says anything, I'm like, yeah, that's such a better idea than what they're doing, and it seems like basically he's just getting paid to come be Luke Skywalker, do his thing, and move on. I am worried, though.
He's really an actor. He's never had any creative control over these things besides conversations with Lucas, right?
Yeah, and it sucks because they had him very involved in the creative elements of the Batman show as the Joker, and I think the quality shows that there's a collaborative process there with his performance and the pitch of it. And I think they could have benefited working with Hamill, being like, hey, let's build this trilogy around you. Because I know they say the idea, and he said this, it should be about the new characters. But we're going to see the movie off the basis of the OT, really. To see Luke, Han, and Leia again, to see what happened. So I feel almost a little betrayed that instead of making actual proper sequels, they're basically doing their own rebooted trilogy. And they're using the original trilogy just so they can make these Disney I'd say it's the Harry Potter Star Wars. These remind me of Harry Potter films more than Star Wars films. Like that first film made me think of...
You're gonna lose me on Harry Potter. I've only seen maybe one of them.
It reminds me of Sorcerer's Stone, like that first movie. It's like, oh, it's the little kid version of Star Wars. Like they have their one... Like it reminded me of the Harry Potter franchise more, which I'm not even saying is a bad thing. I don't hate Harry Potter, but I don't know. I feel like I go to see these Star Wars movies, and they're not Star Wars movies. They're movies that are trying to be Star Wars movies. And
well, we already talked about how they feel like fan fiction.
They do. Rogue One feels very fan fiction at points. Like it's, I mean, like I said, it's the most expensive fan fiction film I've ever seen. Like somehow a guy got $200 million to make a fan film, because it's like the stuff you'd sit around as a teenager and talk about. Like, oh man, like what if this guy like. He actually worked on the Death Star and like he made the plans and he had a daughter and she went and like I mean it's not like wouldn't it be cool if Darth Vader was there right before A New Hope and sliced up a bunch of dudes with the like it's stuff like I remember like what ifs when I was 15 or 16, you know, playing around with, and they're making movies with that shit. Like it blows.
I wonder if all these ideas during the writing process they're like, I bet Kathleen Kennedy would like this idea. Like they every single thing they come up with, I feel like they must be like, nah, she's not gonna let that fly.
Well, just yeah, no, it does feel like she's very she's not as cool as Kevin Feige. It seems like Feige really understands comic books, and he's been a producer not that Kathleen Kennedy hasn't, but like he's worked on these comic book films. You know, he worked in the original Spider-Man films. So I think he's been kind of like he knows what works and doesn't work. And Kathleen Kennedy, she's trying to figure out how to make Star Wars a cinematic universe. And I don't know if she was the right pick for it. Don't get me wrong, financially, yes. But I think the movies would have made money no matter who was producing them. I think they could benefit from bringing someone else in to come kind of work with her on developing these. So I think she's just in over her head. We could tell. We've had 2 movies in a row now where they had to do reshoots and bring in other directors.
That's definitely true. And then Han Solo movie's right behind it.
Yeah, and that's not good.
Oh wait, no, that you're talking about the Han Solo movie.
Yeah, Han Solo movie and Rogue One. Now we haven't had any issues on Last Jedi, but still, it shows a pattern. It's like, okay, you guys clearly need to be a little bit better at picking these directors early on before you hire them. Like, you probably should have went with Ron Howard up front. You probably shouldn't have got Gareth Edwards to do Rogue One up front. You probably could have avoided these reshoots and stuff had you just hired someone else early on. Because they're basically hiring directors who have, like, one-hit movie. Like, oh, you made Jurassic World. Oh, you made Godzilla. Okay, here's Star Wars. And I don't think J.J. Abrams, I get. He's paid his dues. You know, he's been around, like, forever. Rian Johnson's paid his dues. I don't think Colin Trevorrow has. I don't think those guys deserve a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, but they have they have those big one blockbusters, like they had the Lego movie, and then this guy has Jurassic World. That's all they need to know.
Yeah, and I don't like that. I think you should have a few years of experience directing blockbusters first before you get these Star Wars movies, because you know that's why Kevin Feige works so well. He's been through this shit before. He's been producing for years. He was there when those franchises fell apart, and he goes, "This is where we screwed up. I need to not make that mistake again." So his films
or maybe they shouldn't go after these hugely successful directors, because like the director doesn't really need to be that involved in all of these aspects. Like that's why you have cinematographers, that's why you have visual effects people,
writers.
like Yeah.
Let the
So have the
writers do it.
director be very good at dealing with the actors,
Yes.
communicating with the producers. Like just you don't need they don't need to do all this shit. Just bring other talented people who have been part of
Well, they
huge
got the
films.
wrong
And that,
Gareth. They should have got Gareth Evans, not Edwards, the guy who directed the Raid movies. I want to see his Rogue One. his
he should make the Boba Fett movie.
I'm totally up for him doing a Star Wars movie. He's been my pick for a long time. Actually, get the Raid guy. Like, I want a freaking Star Wars movie with good choreographed fucking fight scenes. Like, straight up, just like, could you imagine like one tracking shot Boba Fett taking mofo's out in like Raid style? Because it's a guy,
That'd be pretty
it's a
sick.
guy in a costume, so they could literally cast the Raid Asian guy, the stunt guy, to be Boba Fett as the stunt guy. So it's why
Getting it chubby.
it's why I always got me confused with the Nolan Batman films is that the choreography's such shit. Because literally all he needs to do is put some martial artist in the Batman costume and he could do anything. Instead, he makes Batman do like boxing, which is not Batman's fighting technique in the comic books at all. It's like Batman's
Well, elbow boxing.
the only thing that worked in Zack Snyder's Batman. I did like how Batman fought in Batman v Superman. That was cool. It was kind of like the Arkham games. Like he used all of his gadgets and weapons as one. That's kind of how Batman should fight. But Nolan's films, he like straight up boxes, he brawls and uses his, and it's a style, but it's like that makes no sense. Like him and Bane just punch each other. Like that's the final fight.
That was pretty bizarre
It
to me. It's
was.
like, why is he? You're Batman. Like the last thing you should be doing is punching people. You should be
I know.
hiding in the shadows.
And then he goes and trains
using
in
your
a cave
gadgets.
and gets his back
Yeah.
magically fixed. And then he
Oh my
comes
God.
back, and the way he's able to beat Bane is by Rocky logic. He just has to punch him harder. And he
Yeah.
punches him harder, and he beats him now. He goes and trains
Yeah.
in Rocky. It was so Rocky 3, and I just don't like I think about in The Dark Knight, there's that scene where he breaks into like the Hong Kong building and how he does the fighting with those guys, and like the choreography, like the hits don't even match. Like you can clearly see Christian Bale missing the actors when he goes to hit them.
And that there's one part in the last Batman where he's fighting with Catwoman, and like he's supposed to punch a gun out of someone's hand, and at like with that impact the gun goes off and shoots a bad guy.
Yeah.
But they didn't put in the muzzle flash
No.
or the sound effect. So that
Nolan's not good at hand-to-hand combat. He's just not. He never was.
Bane was it was very nice of Bane when he locked Batman in that pit to leave him with his knee brace. It was very nice of him.
And some guy who can magically fix your back by just like cracking it for you after it's been broken.
Yeah, and he left him with a miracle back doctor.
And if you do push-ups, you could get better. You just have to do a shit. No, it's Rocky. It totally took me to Rocky 4 when he goes and trains in Russia, and then he's able to beat Ivan Drago, even though Ivan Drago killed Apollo in 2 rounds. It's like there's no universe where Sylvester Stallone could beat Dolph Lundgren. In fact, Sylvester Stallone had to go to the hospital because while they were filming Rocky 4, Dolph Lundgren hit him so hard it like
accidentally breathed on him.
It cracked his chest open. Like he actually broke Sylvester Stallone's chest because it's like, yeah. But I could go with that with Rocky. It's a little tougher for me to go with that with this serious Batman trilogy. It's like, okay, wait a minute. This is stupid, Nolan. You know this is.
Yeah,
I'm a fan.
The Dark Knight Rises is definitely a movie that when I saw it in the theater, like, fuck yeah, great movie.
Yeah, me
but
too.
the more I thought about it, it just keeps getting downgraded every time
watch
I
it.
think about it.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's funny
So
because
many
opposite on
so many little
Inception.
nitpicks.
I love Inception every time I watch it more and more, and I think about like the hallway fight and how cool it was, and
Yeah.
then I think about that last Batman movie, and I'm like, what happened with that one? I think it's because Ledger died, and he really planned on doing a Joker story again. And from all reports I've read, he wanted to keep working with Heath Ledger, and he loved him. Like Heath Ledger was supposed to be in
Yeah.
Inception. Like he was supposed to be in that movie. I think he was going to play Arthur, like the side guy to Cobb, or he was like he was like he fell in love with him on the set of The Dark Knight. And it's like, yeah, I think not having the Joker might have screwed Dark Knight Rises. I think that's why they decided to do the 8-year jump thing. Because I think they were actually going to have the film be a follow-up to Dark Knight, and they go, fuck, we can't do that. Joker's dead.
Yeah, that 8-year thing definitely doesn't seem like it was planned.
I don't think it was planned, because the ending of Dark Knight doesn't imply in all that Batman's going to quit for 10 years at all. It's so silly. It doesn't even imply that he's hurt. He's limping in the next movie, and it's like, what? He kind of stumbles a little bit at the end of Dark Knight, but I didn't get the sense that, like, he was, like, crippled now and was going to need a freaking cane. I did like Catwoman in Rises, though. That was Anne Hathaway. I did like
Yeah,
that.
she did all right.
It's mainly the booty and the costume. I like the Bat too. I actually thought the Jet was pretty cool. I actually thought that actually worked better than.
Yeah, when I saw that in the trailer, I wasn't expecting it to be cool,
It's
but
not a
it was
car.
pretty good.
But yeah, I'm excited about Dunkirk though, the new Nolan film coming out. That looks really good. It looks like Saving Private Ryan or something.
Yeah, I don't want to know anything about it.
I don't.
I just want to watch it.
Luckily with Nolan, it's really easy to not learn stuff about his movies. He actually goes out of his way trying to not reveal the movies. Like I didn't know shit about Inception for like a year until it got really close to getting released. Then I found out stuff. But like when I saw that first trailer, I was like, "What the hell is this movie?" It's a top.
What do you think of Interstellar?
Like the movie a lot until the third act, then I think it's way too sappy, sentimental. Love saves the universe. I think the second act where they go to that water planet, and I think when he docks and attaches the ship back, I think that stuff is amazing. I think the Hans Zimmer score is amazing, Matthew McConaughey, but man, the ending is
You couldn't. They lost you at love. Love is the meaning of the dimensions and shit. Love transitions dimensions.
I didn't like any
sappy.
of that.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah, the library at the end. I actually would have preferred if he had just went into the black hole and the movie would have ended more tragically. Or at least maybe his character dies and everyone else saves the world. Like, I didn't like the whole, like, he gets to go meet Murphy as an old woman and they have this It's like, man, this doesn't feel right. I feel like this, like...
They tricked you into a good ending. They cheated.
They did. They really did. I feel like it wasn't consistent with the rest of the movie either. Like, the rest of the movie was pretty realistic about the situation, and then at the third act, everything just gets solved. Like, oh, we have the data from the black hole. Everything's fixed now. We can manipulate gravity. It's like, you kind of made
everything like that made sense for me in the story, except how did he end up floating, like, in it? Because
I think it made sense. It's just, I don't want love to be the answer. I really don't like that at ever. Like, love. Yeah. He literally says it, too. Like, Matthew McConaughey's character says it, too. Like, love it. It's like, oh, my God. He made fun of Anne Hathaway earlier for saying that shit.
Yeah, and coincidentally, the only that happens to be true, and she happened to be somebody who theorized it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it was the ending. I think he could have ended that movie in a dozen ways that would have been badass, and he picked the exact wrong way to go with like this.
So is it gonna be in your top 20?
No, Interstellar would never. Interstellar wouldn't even be in my top 100 movies.
Oh my God.
I like Interstellar a lot, though. I do like it. Like I give it like an 8. I think it's a good movie. I mean, I saw it twice in the theater. It's just basically if the ending was great, it'd be like a 10 for me, and I probably would love it. But I hate the ending of Interstellar. Like I hate the last 10, 15. I'm like you. Pretty much after Matt Damon's character goes away and they dock the ship, that's the end of the movie for me. Like like I think that's the best scene in the movie, the gravity scene where it's spinning around and he attaches it. Once that scene's done, I'm like, okay, great. I can turn it off now. It reminded me of Sunshine, where I really liked the movie, and then the third act, there's like a serial killer plot line, and it feels completely jarring.
I didn't like the ending of that.
No, and that movie for the first 2 acts is like amazing. It's like this great sci-fi film. It's like
it turned into a slasher film or some shit.
It did, and I kind of felt that way with like Interstellar. It's like, please don't go Contact. Please don't do Contact. Don't do Contact.
They did Contact.
And he did exactly the ending of Contact. I was like, please don't do the Contact ending. I don't want that. I don't want the go meet your
father.
I basically don't like the space baby. I don't like the idea of meeting the creator, explaining like. I think that movie would have benefited greatly from abstract. Like, imagine if the whole final 10 minutes of Interstellar was like silent when he gets to that final part, and they didn't explain any of it. He just showed it to you and let you come up with your own theories, like he did with Inception. We'd be talking about that shit right now. But we clearly know it was love, and we clearly know that he was the one sending the messages to Murph. They don't leave any of that up to interpretation. It's clear that that's him behind the book thing and moving the thing, and I'm like, that's a little M. Night Shyamalan for me. And I think Nolan's better than that. I think Nolan can end a movie with you not knowing all the answers. Like, Inception, you can go back and go, man, was that whole movie a dream? Was Maul real? Was she actually trying to save Cobb? How much of it was a dream? Did he actually... Is the ending even real? I think Interstellar could have used that, but the first 2 acts of that movie are great. I like the first act. It reminded me of The Stand, when everyone's getting taken out and you see the dust storms and stuff, because The Stand's kind of that, like, infection starts killing people off, and... It kind of reminded me of reading the first part of The Stand by Stephen King. Man. It was very Stephen...
I can't believe I had no idea we were going to go to The Stand.
Yeah,
Jesus.
The first part of Interstellar was a little Stephen King to me, and I like that about it. I reminded me of...
Have you seen that lately?
What?
The Stand, have you seen that lately?
Seen what about it? Like the production, or...?
Have you seen the movie?
Oh,
have
the
you seen the movie in the
miniseries?
last 5 years?
I've seen it in...
Oh, you have?
Not the last 5 years, but I've seen it. Yeah, that God's hand comes up at the end and...
Last time I had seen that before. The last time I saw it, I was like a kid, and I had built up that movie in my mind to be like this amazing, epic
Isn't
fucking
that the worst
life-changing
thing?
event. And yeah, and then I saw it again. I was like, this is B-movie schlock, hilarious bullshit.
That's the whole basis of Nostalgia Critic, why I miss his old reviews,
Yeah.
because his new reviews are like new movies. What was so great about Nostalgia Critic is he would go back and you'd be like, yeah, this is a movie when you were a kid, it was awesome. Like Three Ninjas or something. And then you watch it as an adult and you're like, this movie's awful. I was a stupid
Yeah.
kid. Holy crap, kids don't know dick. And, I mean, it really was...
Kids don't know
No,
dick.
they don't. It's like that whole idea. Kids are actually really smart. They know. It's like, no, they don't. Kids think Minions is good. Don't give me that crap. They don't know crap. Like, if it's
And
entertaining...
that's what happened.
If it's entertaining...
That's what happened.
You know,
Go ahead.
sorry, if it's entertaining, kids like it. Basically,
Yeah.
it,
That's what happened with you and Burton's Batman.
yeah, same thing. Burton Batman. I grew up on it and loved it. I watched that movie 100 times. Like somebody asked, was like, they're like, well, you probably haven't watched. It's like, dude, I've seen Tim Burton's Batman 100 times on VHS. I've watched that movie. I can quote that movie. I mean, I know every line. There's a 6-foot bound in Gotham. You know, Vox and. I mean, it's vichyssoise, sir, because there's the whole running gag with cold soup in the first two Batman Burton films for some reason. But yeah, I grew up and I started watching it as a teenager and being like, oh, I don't like this as much. And then I watched it in my 20s and I was like, wow, I don't like this movie. And Kevin Smith's review kind of really opened my eyes. If you ever get a chance, Kevin Smith did a commentary on like the original Batman films. And he saw
Yeah, I think I've seen it.
he saw Batman 89 in 89 and it was one of his favorite movies. And his review of it was very close to mine. And it was how I felt for years. We're like, Vicky Vale sucks. Vox sucks. There's too much focus on the Joker. There's almost no Bruce Wayne in the movie. Like, if you actually look at the screen time of Bruce Wayne, it's insanely low. And the Let's Get Nuts scene is one of the dumbest scenes in movie history.
Oh, I love that. I love that shit. That's what Michael Keaton brings to the table.
I don't mind it as an acting standpoint. I just love that he thinks the Joker's going to shoot him in the chest perfectly where little plate's at, not in the fucking face. Which is...
Oh, that's retarded.
Yeah.
But him getting like, let's get nuts is awesome.
Yeah, no, that part... No, I'm not knocking the dialogue. I mean the logic of the scene. That was that Tim Burton crap.
Yeah.
Like, oh...
Yeah, it's like, why didn't you... You could have gotten shot in the dick, man.
No, how dumb is Bruce Wayne? He goes in there like an idiot swinging his dick. Also, just the stuff like...
You could have just stayed in the closet.
I know.
You could have just hid it in the kitchen.
I know. I would have
He didn't know you were there.
I would have much preferred that scene how it played out that way, like Batman's being stealthy, or even more so like the last part where he's the Jet and he shoots all the bullets and missiles, misses the Joker pulls out the big gun, shoots the bat plane down in one shot. That's that Tim Burton shit that I was like, dude, this is so campy, like 60s Batman Adam West stuff. And people act like
Yeah,
that movie
well-
doesn't have that stuff, and I went back and watched it. It's like, there's actually a lot of that stuff.
It's it's definitely full of camp and schlock, but I like it.
No, people like it. I was trying to. I was like, it just didn't hold it because I was trying to start the series to be my nostalgia critic. Like, does it hold up? Where I go back and watch movies that I adored and they're considered classics. Like Batman's considered a classic, and I was like, hey, does this movie hold up? And I watched it. I was like, yeah. I will say this: the last 15 minutes I think are pretty good to Batman, and I definitely still like. I definitely think Anton.
Oh, the church shit.
Yeah, and I definitely think Anton First Batmobile is the best Batmobile ever.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think Danny Elfman's score is the best score. Anton First's whole set design, he won an Oscar for that movie. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's a great look. I mean, those things, it looks like Blade Runner. Like, those things will always be iconic and great to me, and I wish someday they go back to those things with Batman.
Hey Pat, to take something out of the chat room, I see Three Rock Creations wants to know if we like the Ninja Turtles movie. I'm gonna guess it's the first one, being that we're being all nostalgia.
If it's the original 90s one, I like the first two a lot. I actually like...
You like Secret of the Ooze?
Oh, Secret of Ooze is great. Oh, I made
No,
another
it's not.
funny!
That's that would they Michelangelo fights with salami in it. Come on, they took like a gritty, like badass, edgy movie and they turned it into a parent approved cartoon slapstick bullshit comedy.
You gotta understand, dude, I'm the guy that made a video praising the Diary from Wimpy Kid trilogy. So, Secret of the Ooze is exactly made for me. I love those kinds of movies. I love movies where guys are swinging. Like, I love those 90s kid movies, that kind of Nickelodeon era tone. So, I agree with you, the first movie's better where they swear and stuff, but Secret of the Ooze is supposed to be one of those movies you like more as a kid and you grow up and you don't like it. And I watched it with my friend a few years ago and he never saw it. We both just had a great time because... I mean, yeah, I agree with you.
If you watch it as just like fun and bullshit, and especially if you get drunk and shit, sure. I mean,
Dude, it's one of the most
definitely entertaining.
fun,
But...
silly movies ever. Like, it's ridiculous. Vanilla Ice shows up. There's the Super Shredder. I mean, I can't get it. It's hilarious. Like, And the fight, I gotta say, it's got a great last joke. The last.
But
line's
you don't
brilliant.
have to do that with the first Turtles movie.
No.
You can watch the first Turtles movie and just like it as
I
a good
agree,
Turtles
but
movie.
then
You
the
don't have
third
to
one's fucking
watch it
awful.
as like
Turtles
garbage.
At Times, Turtles at Times, a movie I didn't even like as a kid. I knew was bad.
Yeah, I had no idea why they went to Japan. That made no sense.
Oh, the puppet work in that movie too. Like the faces look awful, the heads.
Did you know the CGI movie that came out after is supposed to be a sequel?
Yeah, TMNT. Yeah, I saw
that.
That
Surprised me.
I saw that
I
in the
never
theater. Didn't like that movie much. I'm a pretty big Ninja Turtles fan. Like I'm a big of the comic books and the original cartoon. So
they nailed Casey Jones in them, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah, he was great in it.
The new films, shit. Michael Bay.
I have no idea about the new. I haven't even seen them. I saw the first.
I have a review on my channel for the first film from back when it came out, way back. But I didn't like it. I said it was like one of the worst films.
Did you see the second one?
Yeah, it's not as bad, but it's still bad. Like the first one's definitely the worst Ninja Turtle. It's almost as bad as the third one. The third one's just kind of insulting because it's supposed to be the end of that series and it kind of sucks.
Oh, the Japan. We're back to the originals.
Yeah, because like the first two movies, at least like Secret of Ooze is still it's still a sequel. The third movie just feels like this whole...
It's just a one-off, nothing to do with the last movies.
Yeah, Secret of Ooze, they actually, they're like, hey, this is the ooze that made you guys Ninja Turtles and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, cool.
And they lost they lost the puppet people or something because the turtles costumes look like shit.
Yeah, I think the Henson company did nothing, Henson, and they lost a bunch of the voice actors too, like Corey Feldman and them didn't do the voices. And no, the first one I think is actually genuinely a good film, and people don't give it credit for being a good film. They act like it's a cheesy, outdated film, and I'm like, Ninja Turtles 1's awesome.
There's a scene at the end of the third one, it just occurred to me, where the bad guy gets shot at with a cannon and it breaks something he was leaning on, and then he falls off the edge of a building, and there's this shot where you see him falling down, and it's the worst CGI effect, not CGI probably, but it's the worst composite I've ever seen.
Oh, is that the thing where he just disappears magically?
Yeah.
He's falling
so
and he just disappears from the frame. He's just gone, and it's like, huh. That's the worst.
You should play it on the stream.
That's the worst.
You should pull it up.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, that's the worst special effect I've ever seen in my life is when that guy disappears in Ninja Turtles 3. No, that movie looks like they went and shot that like at like a camp, like some summer camp on a weekend.
Made for TV.
Oh, I know. The first two movies at least have like production value. Like Secret of the Ooze, they clearly put money in that movie. But the third one, it looks like. Sorry, streams like okay.
Thank fucking God.
The first one made like 80 million here, 190 million, like 500 mil worldwide. The second one didn't even make like 200 mil worldwide on like $100-something million. So they made like nothing off that movie. So I was like, thank God that was like a one-off thing. Like, cause I went on Turtles in Time and get the badass arcade game.
I can't find it either.
No, I can't. Maybe the studio they may have it where they take all the clips off. Might be one of those. That's so insane. Yo, I can't find that clip. I have no idea.
It's so funny. I can't believe it's not
one of the funniest. No, it's like total meme. Like it should be a meme. Like I would use.
Oh no, I got it. Here, I'm gonna send it to you in the chat.
Yeah, send it to me in the chat so I can.
Or up in the YouTube chat too.
Thank you.
Oops, we removed. Yeah, they don't let me put on URLs. Oh well. Oh man. Oh wait, I'm gonna wait till you play it.
Yeah, it's loading, mofos.
It's 3 minutes. You're gonna have to jump to the end.
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch the.
If it ain't the Phantom of the Opera.
Oh my God. Well, if it ain't the Phantom of the Opera. Forgot how terrible. Like I remember the dubbing's awful. It like doesn't match up at all.
Man, and none of this shit is like the battle itself. It's not played for jokes or anything. Like they expect us to take all this shit seriously.
No, they honestly think it's like a really compelling third
act.
Oh
yes, that's very clever. Oh yes, very clever.
Uh-oh. Where's Shell Shock or whatever puns they're gonna make? I can't hear it.
Look at him spinning that stick. That guy's... Hey, you're an extra. Just do a face. Oh my God.
There's some scenes in the original where you pause it, and, like when like the turtles are laughing, and you can see like the dude inside of his face. Because they opened their mouth, and you can see inside the mask.
they just skip over the part where they shoot the cannon on the bad guy? Yeah, it's not in here.
Ah, shit.
What a...
I fucked it.
That's a... What the hell?
We're gonna have blue balls over this.
No, it's killing me. I'm like, it's like the worst thing in the world. To watch a really shitty clip from a movie's never been so traumatizing. I've never been so compelled. No, and then they dance to that song throughout the movie, that like, whoa, like that 80s song they dance. I remember that the movie ends with the turtles dancing and doing like, walk like an Egyptian and all that crap.
Here, I got it.
Okay.
I'm gonna send it to you with a timestamp, so however you click on it, make sure you can set it to the right time.
Okay. I don't have it yet.
There you go.
Thank you. I never thought it'd be so... I can't believe you can't just, like, it doesn't come up in, like, 5 seconds, that clip, like, just by itself.
The VFX company worked on it is DCMAing all the videos.
Here we go.
That have it.
Here we go. Falling. It looks like he got swallowed by air, and then he fell into water.
It's almost as good as when the bad guy from RoboCop falls off the building.
Oh, that's amazing. Whoa! No. Go. There's no impact. They didn't even film a splash.
There's not even a splash noise, is there?
No. All right, man. Well, I gotta end this. We've been going way longer than I thought we were gonna go, and we actually had
way too long.
We have actually stuff recorded before we even started the stream.
Yeah, man. They're gonna think we have a thing or something.
No, well, actually, I gotta say, the chemistry here, man. You are very good at YouTubing, at live streaming.
Thanks, buddy.
A lot of people I bring on, they're not good at the conversationalist, keeping it going part, but you definitely have the right acumen for this.
Well, we're talking about the right things.
That's true. That's
Star Wars, Batman, Ninja Turtles. You know, it'll never end.
But I think this went better than I thought. You actually said things that I hadn't thought of before.
Cool, man.
Which kind of really. But yeah, I think this was definitely the best conversation I've had on a live stream so far. Because it was basically just talking about movies for 3.5 hours, and then about half hour of it spent fighting with some dude in chat.
Yeah, well.
Because Pat gets triggered, and that's
you got to give some fan service.
But I'll put Dan's YouTube channel in the description, so you guys can just click on there and go once this video is uploaded. So I highly recommend it. If you liked hearing him talk here, then go check out his videos. He might show up again in a later video if we find another topic to talk about.
We'll find something.
We'll find something to talk about. But thank you for coming on, man. Thank you for talking.
Cool, man. Thanks for setting this up. I will see you when I see you.
All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap the stream up. All right.